inheritance of the Su family, that's it. Su Ryukshuan smiled. But I'll only return the things I took from the Su family. As for the rest, don't even think about it. Chapter 198. He has evil plans for you. The scene suddenly became quiet. Father Su asked, Ryukshuan, why are you doing this? Su Ryukshuan said, I once said that I make my own decisions, but you guys keep trying to use me as a pawn. You guys must know why Chu Ji and I have come to this point, right? Humph, you guys are not happy with what I like, and you force it on me when I say I don't like it. What on earth am I in your eyes? Father Su looked ashamed. He did not deny that he was indeed using Su Ryukshuan, but he couldn't bear the shame when his own daughter said it in public. I know Zhao Bo's abilities much better than you do. You praise him endlessly, but how much do you know about him? Su Ryukshuan looked at her stepmother. Stepmother asked, did he graduate from a prestigious university? Is there any evidence? My stepmother said, that's what everyone else says. Su Ryukshuan looked at her stepmother sarcastically. Then she looked at Father Su and said, Dad, you won't tell me that you think so too. Father Su seemed a little embarrassed and didn't say anything. The atmosphere in the field became solemn again. At this time, Su Zi next to him said, in fact, I have seen the documents handled by Zhao Bo. How should I put it? I can only say that they are quite standard. Su Ryukshuan said, you are good at finding good things to say. What do you mean by being conventional? In the end, isn't it just unoriginal? Su Zi said, that's actually what I meant. As for why the other party was able to attract such a high-quality industry to join the Su Corporation, I really find it very strange. Su Pin said casually at this time, what's so hard to guess? Those companies may be his, so it seems so abrupt. Everyone fell silent upon hearing this. Father Su frowned. There is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. If Su Pin's guess is true, then what is Zhao Bo's plan? Is it just for Su Ryukshuan? But he was even more unwilling to see Su Ryukshuan leave. The next day, Zhao Bo came to Su Group. As soon as I entered the office, I saw Su Ryukshuan correcting documents. That was the document he didn't correct yesterday. Looking at the busy Su Ryukshuan, Zhao Bo narrowed his eyes slightly. I have to say that the temperament of this woman in front of me is really attractive. Beautiful, capable, women are just as good as men. She may not be as pretty as Su Zin, but her temperament is far superior to Su Zin. Ryukshuan, why are you so early today? Yes, there are some documents to process, Su Ryukshuan said without raising her head. Zhao Bo said, I'll handle it with you. Su Ryukshuan said, no need, I'm almost done. Zhao Bo looked slightly embarrassed. Ryukshuan, what's wrong with you recently? Are you dissatisfied with me in some way? Zhao Bo said. Why do you ask? Su Ryukshuan looked up at Zhao Bo. Zhao Bo said at this time, perhaps I really did something that made you, Ryukshuan, dissatisfied. Don't worry, I will review it carefully. Su Ryukshuan looked at Zhao Bo and said, why do you think so? You did a great job and didn't make it difficult for me. Really, that's great, said Zhao Bo. After a while, Zhao Bo looked at Su Ryukshuan again. The other party was still correcting documents. Looking at her focused look, greed flashed in Zhao Bo's eyes. Ryukshuan, I want you to see. At this time, there was a noise at the door, and Chu Ji walked in, still holding the flowers in his hand. Ryukshuan, I want to invite you to see a movie tonight. Su Ryukshuan's eyes flashed with surprise. Okay. These are flowers for you. I'll pick you up after get off work this afternoon, said Chu Ji. Chu Ji simply ignored Zhao Bo next to him, as if the other person did not exist. Zhao Bo's cheeks were distorted with anger. Mr. Chu, Zhao Bo spoke. Oh, Mr. Zhao, is there something wrong? Chu Ji looked at Zhao Bo. I heard that Mr. Chu has many female confidants. I wonder if it's true, Zhao Bo asked. Su Ryukshuan next to her looked at Chu Ji teasingly at this time. Chu Ji said, it's a false accusation. This is definitely a false accusation. I am devoted to Ryukshuan. Chu Ji looked at Su Ryukshuan affectionately. He saw a blush rising on Su Ryukshuan's cheeks. Looking at him blankly, Chu Ji was stunned when he saw this. She should know that this sentence is definitely not true, right? But why did she believe it? At this time, Zhao Bo next to him was so angry that his nose was crooked. Mr. Chu, I can't even compare to you in your ability to tell lies with open eyes, Zhao Bo said. Chu Ji coughed and said, haha, what I said is all true. Then Chu Ji looked at Su Ryukshuan and said, Ryukshuan, I'll come to see you this afternoon. Su Ryukshuan nodded. Zhao Bo watched Chu Ji leave, then turned to look at Su Ryukshuan and said, Ryukshuan, as far as I know, this Chu Ji is definitely not a good guy. Su Ryukshuan looked at Zhao Bo and blinked. Zhao Bo said, Ryukshuan, I am really hungry. As far as I know, Chu Ji is not only unclear with several women, but especially Li Yao from Li's family. There is probably something wrong with the two of them. This time he came to please you. Obviously, he had ulterior motives. Ulterior motives? You mean he is having feelings for me? Su Ruoxuan asked with sparkling eyes. Yes, he has ulterior motives. He approaches you, probably because he wants to take over Su's property. Su Ruoxian's eyes became brighter. He wants to do something bad to me. That's right, men know men best. The way he looks at you is not pure. He is playing tricks on you. Su Ruoxuan's breathing was a little rapid, and her cheeks were flushed. She touched her chest and breathed heavily, as if she was angry. Zhao Bo also thought so. He smiled smugly and said, Ruoxian, we should see his true face. This kind of person is not worth associating with. Su Ruoxian nodded and said, Oh, I see. Do you really think he is plotting something bad against me? Zhao Bo said, Yes, we are both men. I know his thoughts very well. Su Ruoxuan lowered her head and covered her face with Chu Ji's flowers. Her shoulders seemed to tremble slightly. Zhao Bo said, Ruoxian, don't worry. I will never let him do anything to you as long as I am here. No, Su Ruoxuan said quickly. Zhao Bo looked at Su Ruoxuan in astonishment. Su Ruoxuan said quickly, I'd like to see what tricks he plays. Don't worry, I know what to do. Zhao Bo said, Ruoxian. Su Ruoxian said, Okay, let's get back to work. Looking at Su Ruoxuan, who was in working state, Zhao Bo clenched his fists. His eyes were full of resentment. He took a deep breath and said to Su Ruoxian, Ruoxian, can you not go out to the movies with him this time? Chapter 199, Uninvited. Su Ruoxian looked up and asked, Why? Zhao Bo said, Ruoxian, you should understand my feelings for you. Su Ruoxian said, Zhao Bo, I don't think we have reached that stage yet, so don't waste too much time on me. Zhao Bo said a little excitedly, Ruoxian, are you rejecting me? Su Ruoxian said, I am just advising you to recognize the relationship between us. I don't think we are suitable for each other. Su Ruoxuan continued to correct the documents after she finished speaking, but she didn't see the hint of anger on Zhao Bo's face. Chu Ji walked out of the Su building at this time. He turned his head to look at the building, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. He touched his chin and said, He should be very angry now, right? If he is angry, he will probably do something irrational, tusk. At this time, Zhao Bo received a call. After answering the call, Zhao Bo secretly glanced at Su Ruoxuan, then got up and left the office and drove to a hotel. There's already someone waiting here. Mr. Zhao, I've heard a lot about you. A wealthy middle-aged man said to Zhao Bo. Haha, Mr. Zhu, you're too polite. After the pleasantries, the two sat down. The wealthy middle-aged man asked at this time, Boss Zhao, why didn't you meet Boss Su this time? Zhao Bo said, I can make the decision on this matter myself. There is no need for President Su to come over. The wealthy middle-aged man showed a hint of hesitation when he heard this, and then said, Boss Zhao, but as far as I know, you are still the acting general manager. I'm afraid you can't sign the contract on behalf of Boss Su, right? Zhao Bo said, Boss Zhu, do you not believe in my position in the Su group? No, I absolutely don't mean that. I still admire you very much, Mr. Zhao, said Mr. Zhu. Zhao Bo said, That's all. I have the company's official seal. If I say I can make the decision, then I can make the decision. Mr. Zhu said, That's really great. Mr. Zhao, what do you think of our cooperation this time? Don't worry, the contract has been drafted. You can take a look first. Zhao Bo handed the other party a document. President Zhu took the document and looked at it and said, This is okay. Why not? This is a gambling agreement? Mr. Zhu said with a little surprise. Why are you scared? It's not that I'm afraid, it's just that once the contract is signed, if the Su group can't do it, then the Su group will be finished. Are you still worried about the Su group? Aren't you afraid that the Su group will win this bet? Mr. Zhu said, If we win, you will be the one who loses, right? So I'm not afraid. What are you afraid of? It's not you who will suffer the loss anyway, Zhao Bo said with a smile. Don't worry, you won't suffer any loss after this is done, Zhao Bo said. As he spoke, he pointed his finger at the contract. Mr. Zhu looked at the contract and then signed it. Zhao Bo smiled softly. Haha, Su Ruoxian, I didn't want to treat you the same way I treat others, but you asked for it. What? Zhao Bo walked out of the hotel shortly afterwards. But he didn't know that not far away, Chu Ji was quietly looking at Zhao Bo's back. After a while, Mr. Zhu came nearby and got into Chu Ji's car. Son-in-law, that guy really has no good intentions. But don't worry, I have already tampered with the contract. I guarantee that he will lose all his money, said Mr. Zhu. Thank you for your hard work, said Chu Ji. Sir, this is too formal. If you have any instructions, just tell me. Chu Ji said, you have done a lot for me, now we just have to wait to harvest this fat sheep. Chu Ji's eyes were deep. President Zhu was secretly amazed at Chu Ji's appearance. The son-in-law in front of him had unknowingly woven a big net. Now the Zhao family has fallen into the net, but is still unaware of it. The son-in-law's intelligence is no less than that of my young lady. When the young lady left, she asked us to help her brother-in-law. Now it seems that her brother-in-law can bring down the Zhao family even without their help. The reason why the son-in-law mobilized them was simply to ensure that nothing could go wrong. Their existence is not a timely help, but just icing on the cake. At this time, from the Su group, Zhao Bo came to Su Ruoxuan's office again. Ruoxuan, are you free tonight? We haven't had dinner together for a long time. You should give me a chance today, right? Zhao Bo said. Su Ruoxian said, but I have an appointment today, I'm afraid I can't. Zhao Bo's face became stiff. Then how about lunch? Su Ruoxuan thought about it and finally nodded. Seeing this, Zhao Bo showed a sly smile. The two of them left the Su building. We came to a quiet restaurant private room. Su Ruoxuan narrowed her eyes slightly. You know how to find a place. I remember that this restaurant is quite expensive, Su Ruoxuan said. Haha, that's about it, Zhao Bo said. At this time, a waiter came over. He said respectfully to Zhao Bo, Master, would you like to serve the food? Zhao Bo waved his hand casually. The waiter left respectfully. Su Ruoxian asked, Master, why? Are you the owner of this restaurant? Zhao Bo said, I guess so. As you know, my family is from Jinghai and we have some business. Su Ruoxuan nodded. At this time, the waiter brought the food. Zhao Bo poured Su Ruoxuan a glass of wine. Ruoxian, today is a good day. What good day? Today is the 100th day since you, Ruoxuan, and I met, Zhao Bo said. 100 days, more than 3 months have passed in a flash. Yes, after more than 3 months of getting along with each other, I feel for you, Ruoxian. Haha, let's not talk about this, let's have a drink, Zhao Bo said. Su Ruoxuan picked up the wine glass. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Zhao Bo frowned and looked displeased. He stood up and opened the door. Didn't I tell you not to disturb? Zhao Bo stopped talking halfway through, because the person outside the door was not a waiter, but Chu Ji. Zhao Bo's eyes were full of dissatisfaction. Chu Ji looked into the private room and saw Su Ruoxuan. Su Ruoxuan also saw him. She hurried over with a smile in her eyes. Why are you here? Chu Ji said, I haven't seen you for a night and I felt a little lonely, so I came here. I just happened to see you and Mr. Zhao coming downstairs, so I followed you. I'm sorry, this is a bit presumptuous. Zhao Bo said, you also know that it is presumptuous. Tusk, I know that, but I couldn't help wanting to talk to Ruoxuan, so I came here, Chu Ji said. Su Ruoxuan listened to Su Ruoxuan's words. Her eyes were full of honey, almost silky. When had she ever heard Chu Ji say such sweet words to her? Under this onslaught of sweet words, she felt she had no resistance at all. Come in, let's eat together, Su Ruoxian said to Chu Ji, then looked at Zhao Bo and said, you don't mind, do you? Zhao Bo's face was gloomy, and he looked at Chu Ji sinisterly as he walked into the private room. Chu Ji sat down next to Su Ruoxuan and looked at the wine glass in front of her. Chapter 200, Chu Ji's Provocation. Su Ruoxuan also looked at the wine glass. She watched Chu Ji reach out and touch the glass, causing it to fall over. The wine spilled all over himself. Su Ruoxuan blinked. She wanted to see what Chu Ji was going to do. Oh, I was really too careless. Ruoxuan, I'll take you to change clothes. Chu Ji stretched out his hand and wiped Su Ruoxuan's body, completely ignoring that the proud chest of Su Ruoxuan was deformed in his hand. Su Ruoxuan watched Chu Ji busy on her chest, with no intention of stopping him. It was just a tingling feeling that made her face a little red. Zhao Bo next to him felt like his teeth were about to be broken. At this time, Chu Ji stood up and stretched out his hand to pull Su Ruoxian up. Ruoxian, let's go back and change our clothes. Su Ruoxuan followed Chu Ji and walked out. Zhao Bo next to him was so angry that his nose was crooked. Chu Ji, you did this on purpose, didn't you? Zhao Bo said. Tisk, do I look like that kind of person? Like, Su Ruoxuan next to her said with her hands covering her mouth. Chu Ji was a little embarrassed, coughed, and said, Don't worry, Ruoxian, I will take care of your clothes in the future. You can use my card to buy anything you like. Chu Ji took out a card and said with great dignity. Zhao Bo, who was standing next to him, laughed out loud. Who do you think Ruoxian is? Does she care about your little money? At this moment, Su Ruoxuan was like a child who had received candy, and she hugged the card in her arms. Zhao Bo's face next to him was full of excitement at this moment. Chu Ji raised his head provocatively at Zhao Bo, then left with Su Ruoxuan. After he left, Zhao Bo's roar could be heard from the private room. Su Ruoxian, very good, you forced me to do this. Time goes by day by day. Zhao Bo came to Su Ruoxuan's office today. Ruoxuan, let's set off now, Zhao Bo said to Su Ruoxuan. Su Ruoxuan looked up at Zhao Bo. Zhao Bo was wearing a well-fitting suit at this time, which made him look even more handsome. The secretary next to him was already staring in a daze. Su Ruoxian said, "You are really quick, you even prepared the clothes." "Haha, after all, this is a party hosted by Chairman Su, so of course I have to take it seriously," Zhao Bo said. Su Ruoxian said, "I heard that you have something big to announce this time, what is it?" Zhao Bo chuckled and said, "This is indeed a big deal, but don't worry, let me keep it a secret. You will know in a moment, and I guarantee you will be surprised." Su Ruoxuan looked at Zhao Bo thoughtfully and said, "Okay, then I will look forward to what surprises you will bring me." Zhao Bo said, "Don't worry, I promise I won't let you down." Zhao Bo and Su Ruoxuan went to the banquet together. This time it was held in a hotel, and Su also invited some celebrities from Jinghai. For example, people from the Qin family, the Li family, and the Zhang family will all come. When we arrived at the banquet area, there were already a lot of people there. Su Ruoxuan looked around and soon saw a familiar figure. The corners of her mouth curled up unconsciously. These days Chuzh would come to give her flowers every day and invite her to have dinner, watch movies, and go for a walk together. They did everything that couples do. She felt something was unreal, like she was living in a dream. At this moment, when he saw that figure, his eyes could no longer accommodate anyone else. Zhao Bo, who was standing next to her, obviously noticed Su Ruoxuan's look, and a hint of resentment flashed in his eyes. He thought it would be easy to win over Su Ruoxuan with his charm, but he found out that he was wrong, extremely wrong. He had wanted to use some tricks on Su Ruoxuan more than once. If he slept with Su Ruoxuan, she would definitely treat him differently. But that Chu Ji didn't give him any chance. He was like a dog skin plaster that stuck tightly to Su Ruoxuan. Except for the time he spent in the company, Zhao Bo couldn't find any opportunity to be alone with Su Ruoxuan. Chu Ji also saw Su Ruoxuan coming in at this time. Su Ruoxuan is dressed up today and looks exceptionally beautiful. As soon as she came in, she became the focus of the entire banquet. Because Su Ruoxuan is not only beautiful, but also very likely to be the future helmsman of the Su group. "You look beautiful today." Chu Ji walked over and looked at Su Ruoxuan with admiration. Su Ruoxuan smiled brightly upon hearing this. Not far away, the head of the Qin family looked at Chu Ji and Su Ruoxuan and couldn't help but sigh. I was very optimistic about Chu Ji at the beginning. Although Chu Ji came from the countryside, he had good character and abilities, and was one of the few people who caught his eye. I thought he and his daughter would have a good ending, but I didn't expect that they would suddenly go that far. The time Chu Ji took the initiative was also the last time. After that, no matter how Qin Wanshu tried to win him back or how he created opportunities, he never took the initiative again. Pushing away once resulted in a permanent breakup. Mother Qin walked up to Father Qin and said, "Don't look at it. This is what they call fate." Father Qin sighed. "If such a talent could marry into my Qin family, I would die with peace of mind." Pa, what nonsense are you talking about? It's better to choose a son-in-law for your daughter now. Look, after losing Chu Zhej, the Su family found Zhao Bo. I heard that they are now at the stage of discussing marriage. Father Qin sneered. "Haha, what did you do back then? If the Su family had treated Chu Ji half as well as they treated Zhao Bo, would Chu Ji have left the Su family? After all, Chu Ji and the one from the Su family have a marriage, so they are protected by law. We have heard about the Su family's affairs. Tell me, is it something a normal person would do to drive Chu Ji away from the celebration party for Chu Ji and celebrate for that Zio Han? The aunt from the Su family called Chu Ji a country bumpkin in front of so many people. That naked contempt makes me feel heartbroken for Chu Ji when I think about it now. Chu Ji worked hard for the development of the Su group, but he felt that everything he did was justified because of what the Su group brought to him. Mother Qin said, "Who said it wasn't true? I was dumbfounded when I heard the news. Why are all the Su family members a bunch of weirdos?" Fortunately, the Su family was not stupid enough to completely turn against Chu Ji and quickly found a candidate for Su Ruoxian. I heard that Zhao Bo's ability is not inferior to Chu Ji. Father Qin said, "We should wait and see whether he has the ability. Don't you think that Zhao Bo's achievements in the Su family are strange?" Mother Qin thought about it and nodded slightly. It is true that such a high-quality company chose to be acquired by the Su family. It seems a bit contrary to common sense. At this time, Zhao Bo also appeared in the sight of the head of the Qin family. Looking at Zhao Bo, the head of the Qin family frowned slightly. "What's wrong? Is there something wrong?" Qin's mother noticed something was wrong with Qin's father. "It's nothing, it's just that Zhao Bo doesn't give me a good impression. This person is not as simple as he seems," said Qin's father. Chapter 200, The Su family is about to cause trouble. Qin's mother shook her head and stopped looking at Zhao Bo. What the other party was like had nothing to do with her family. You should think about how to deal with your relationship with the Zhang family. Zhang Heng is like a dog's skin plaster that sticks to you and you can't tear it off. Father Qin frowned. Zhang Heng was released, but the other party still missed his daughter and came to their doorstep to send flowers every few days. Now the relationship between Qin Wanshu and Zhang Heng has been brought to light again. After all, this incident caused a lot of controversy at the time. The rumor that Qin Wanshu and Zhang Heng slept together was spread for so long that it seemed to have become true. Thinking of Zhang Heng, Father Qin looked a little worried. "It seems we should find some time to have a good talk with him," said Qin's father. He also wanted someone to drive Zhang Heng away. But let's not talk about whether this method is effective or not. What he is thinking about now is how to resolve these rumors. Not to mention that Qin's father was worried about Zhang Heng's affairs. Zhao Bo also came to Chu Ji at this time. The two looked at each other, and a flash of fire flickered in their eyes. Chu Ji said, "Boss Zhao, you look very high-spirited today." He extended his hand toward Zhao Bo. Zhao Bo shook hands with Chu Ji generously and said, "Haha, you figured this out. That's right, I have good news to announce today." Chu Ji said, "Oh, what good news?" Zhao Bo said, "You will know in a moment." Chu Ji frowned slightly. The two of them standing together immediately became the focus of the banquet. After all, both Chu Ji and Zhao Bo are rising stars in Jinghai, and they can be said to be dazzling. In addition, both of them seem to be pursuing Su Ruoxuan, which makes it even more of a hot topic. They are both equally handsome. The eyes of the wives, both young and old, nearby lit up. However, their temperaments are very different. Chu Ji used to give people the impression of being a sunny, gentle, and modest gentleman. At this moment, Chu Ji seemed more profound and domineering than ever before. Zhao Bo is the kind of person who is handsome, yet has a sharp and aggressive temperament. The two of them felt like they were at loggerheads, neither of them willing to give in. Zhao Bo looked at Chu Ji and suddenly smiled and said, "Boss Chu, I heard that you have a good relationship with Li Yao from the Li group and you are inseparable. Why didn't I see Boss Li coming today?" "Are you talking about me?" A charming and gentle voice sounded. Zhao Bo turned his head and saw Li Yao's charming face. In terms of appearance, she is not as good as Su Ruoxuan and Su Zin. But when it comes to femininity, she is definitely one of the best. Zhao Bo's eyes swept over Li Yao's foul body, and a hint of greed flashed in his eyes. But he quickly suppressed his greed. He was not a fool like Xiao Han. He had enough self-control and knew what he could do and what he could not do. To provoke Li Yao at this time is simply to seek death. In fact, he also wanted to start with Li Yao at the beginning. However, through investigation he found that Li Yao and Chu Ji were too deeply tied together. A large part of the Li family's industry was in Chu Ji's hands, and Chu Ji was also the president. More importantly, Chu Ji had another identity, which was the position of acting principal. Even though he is just an acting position, he has a position, and his words are final in the Li family. Has absolute authority. Even if Li Yao had differences with Chu Ji, it would probably be difficult to shake Chu Ji's position. In other words, this path through Li Yao is not feasible. More importantly, Li Yao is difficult to control, and she seems to have obsessive-compulsive disorder. It would be fine if this kind of person didn't feel emotional, but once they decide to like someone, they will give everything. Back then, Song Lang even lived with Li Yao but still couldn't get her. But Li Yao treated Chu Ji completely differently. She had set her sights on Chu Ji, leaving him helpless. But the Su family was different. As far as he knew, Su Ruoxuan and Chu Ji were divorced, and the Su family seemed to have a prejudice against Chu Ji. More importantly, he knew that Su Ruoxuan and Chu Ji had never had any substantial relationship. This is a lot to write about. As long as I have a relationship with Su Ruoxuan, even if she is not willing, she will treat me differently. Women always pay special attention to their first man, so he set his sights on the Su family. The result was pretty much what he expected, and he quickly gained the approval of Chairman Su. It also received Su Ruoxuan's approval. Thanks to his good social skills, The Su family now recognizes him very much, which is much better than Chu Ji. But what he didn't expect was that Chu Ji suddenly changed his behavior and launched a fierce pursuit of Su Ruoxuan. This was completely different from the Chu Ji he had investigated, like two different people. But this is the real Chu Ji. It can be said that all his plans were successful, except for this one where something went wrong. Because of Chu Ji's intervention, he still cannot win Su Ruoxuan's heart. This forced him to take the last step. Of course, he won't let Chu Ji go either. At this time, Li Yao had come to Chu Ji's side. "Boss Zhao, I just heard that you have something important to announce. I wonder what it is. It can't be your and Boss Su's happy event." Su Ruoxian frowned and looked at Li Yao and asked, "What's the good news?" Li Yao looked at Su Ruoxian and said, "Hey, Ruoxian, don't you know yet? Your stepmother just said that today she wants to take this opportunity to announce your and Mr. Zhao's happy event. I thought you knew." Su Ruoxuan frowned and looked in the direction of her father and stepmother. Over there, my father and stepmother were greeting guests, and they looked so attentive, as if they were there to welcome guests. Su Ruoxuan looked at Zhao Bo next to her again. Zhao Bo shook his head and said, "I don't know, maybe it was just a few polite words. Otherwise, how could they not inform us of such a big thing so that we can be prepared?" Chu Ji asked at this time, "What are you preparing for?" Chu Ji's tone was sour at this time. Seeing Chu Ji's jealous look, Su Ruoxuan's previous unhappiness instantly disappeared. She looked at Chu Ji with a strong smile in her eyes. Li Yao rolled her eyes. She really didn't know what Su Ruoxuan was thinking. If she really liked Chu Ji, why was she so unclear with Xiao Han in the first place? I heard that she took Xiao Han with her when she got divorced. It was simply an insult to Chu Ji to let Xiao Han, the mistress, witness their divorce with her own eyes. Now she seems to be full of love for Chu Ji. What is going on? Does she have a split personality? At this time, Father Su waved towards here from a distance. Chu Ji was stunned. Could it be that Father Su was looking for him? But he didn't think that Father Su would have anything to say to him. Sure enough, after a while, my stepmother came over and said to Su Ruoxian and Zhao Bo, "What are you two still standing here for? Why don't you go over?" Stepmother pointed in the direction of Su's father. A slight smile appeared on Zhao Bo's lips. He looked at Chu Ji with disdain and walked towards Su's father. Su Ruoxuan watched as her stepmother's face turned gloomy. Stepmother looked at Su Ruoxuan and smiled awkwardly. Chu Ji narrowed his eyes slightly. It seemed that the Su family was going to cause trouble today. Su Ruoxuan looked in the direction of Su's father. He saw Father Su talking to Zhao Bo and Su Ruoxuan. He also saw that Father Su actually pulled Su Ruoxuan and Zhao Bo's hands and tried to put them together. Chu Ji's face darkened. Chapter 201, Proud Zhao Bo. Zhao Bo naturally would not object, but Su Ruoxuan suddenly pulled her hand away and looked at Su's father with an angry expression. "Is this the big deal you guys are talking about?" Su Ruoxuan looked at her father sharply. An embarrassed look appeared on Su's father's face. "Ruoxuan, don't make a fuss. I think you and Zhao Bo are a good match. If you hurry up and have a baby after you get married, there will be hope for our Su family," said Su's father. "Dad, what's wrong with you today? I seem to have told you that Zhao Bo and I are just colleagues, right?" Zhao Bo's face turned ugly. "Ruoxian, don't you know how I feel about you?" "I know, but you can't force me to like you, right?" Father Su said. "In fact, relationships can be developed slowly. It's not bad to get married first and then slowly develop the relationship." "Dad, that's not what you said at the beginning. Why did you change your mind now?" Father Su couldn't help but think of his reaction when he first knew Ruoxuan was married. The look in his eyes when he looked at Chu Ji was full of disgust. It was also his attitude that determined the views of other members of the Su family towards Chu Ji. As a result, Chu Ji was always ostracized by the Su family and could not truly integrate into the Su family. But just when he changed his mind, he found that the Su family and Chu Ji had become impossible. At the banquet, Su Pin drove Chu Ji away in public, which laid the groundwork for Chu Ji and Su Ruoxuan's divorce. And his sister-in-law, instigated by someone, actually came to Chu Ji's house to cause trouble and even beat Chu Ji. This fully exposed Su's contempt for Chu Ji. This also means that Chu Ji was completely pushed out of the Su family. Chu Ji's plan to join the Su family was over. But Zhao Bo is completely different. As the helmsman of the Su group, how could he not know that Zhao Bo's performance was acceptable compared to ordinary people? But he was not even close to Chu Ji. However, because of his attitude, Su attaches great importance to Zhao Bo. There was no such contempt he showed towards Chu Ji at all. Father Su sometimes thought that if he had paid more attention to Chu Ji from the beginning, even if the Su family could not reach the status of the Zhu family now, it would probably not be much different. But there is no medicine for regret in the world. He had to do it now. Ryuoxian, don't make trouble. This matter concerns the rise and fall of our Su family. This is not the time for you to be petty. You must agree this time. Su Ryuoxian suddenly looked up at Su's father, her eyes full of disbelief. Father Su's eyes flickered, and he didn't dare to look at Su Ryuoxian. Zhao Bo next to him had a look of sarcasm in his eyes at this moment. He looked at Su Ryuoxian and said, Ryuoxian, you should listen to your father. Our marriage is really related to the future of the Su family. This is not nonsense. Su Ryuoxian looked at Zhao Bo and said gloomily, Do you think I will agree? Zhao Bo said, I'm afraid this is not up to you. Su Ryuoxian's face showed a murderous look when she heard this, and her already handsome sword-like eyebrows stood up. What, you still want to threaten me? Su Ryuoxian said coldly. Zhao Bo chuckled and said, Hey, don't say such harsh words. How can this be considered a threat? This is Chairman Su's intention. You can't be disobedient and unfilial, right? Su Ryuoxian looked at her father. Father Su said, Ziner, don't be so petty. You and Zhao Bo are a perfect match. I think this matter is settled. Su Ryuoxian asked, Do you think I will agree? Zhao Bo, who was standing next to him, suddenly said, Ryuoxian, I'm afraid this is not up to you. Su Ryuoxian looked at Zhao Bo and said, Oh, tell me more about it. Why can't I decide? Su Ryuoxian looked at Su's father again. I noticed that Su's father had an embarrassed and depressed expression on his face. Su Ryuoxian narrowed her eyes slightly. Zhao Bo said, Because only if you marry me, the Su company can survive this crisis safely. I think Chairman Su will tell you the details. Ryuoxian, in order to catch up with the Li family, I signed an agreement with someone, a gambling agreement. I thought things would go smoothly, and my Su family would reach the level of the Li family, but we didn't complete the last project, said Zhao Bo next to him. Su Ryuoxian suddenly turned her head and looked at Zhao Bo with a very ugly expression. Seeing Zhao Bo's confident expression, Su Ryuoxian asked, Are you setting up a trap for our Su group? Zhao Bo said, How can you say it's a trap? I'm just reminding you that only by cooperating with me can your Su family go further and catch up with the Li family. So the last big project you mentioned is your plan. You deliberately suppressed that project to make our Su group lose. Zhao Bo shrugged and said, Ryuoxian, if you accept my feelings, then these problems will no longer be problems. I will solve them all. You can just be my wife in peace in the future. Su Ryuoxian looked at Zhao Bo coldly and then said, Zhao Bo, you really make me feel sick. Is your ability only at this level? Zhao Bo said, Haha, I know you are questioning my ability. Yes, I am not as good as Chu Ji in terms of business acumen, but Chu Ji is just a peasant. Even if he is talented, he is still nothing in front of absolute power. Even if you are talented, you can only work like a slave for others. Ryuoxian, give up your useless fantasies. Only I can save the Su family. Only I am the true leader of the Su family. Su Ryuoxian asked, Do you think the shareholders of the Su family will agree? Zhao Bo smiled and said, When it comes to interests, they will make the right choice. Don't you agree, Chairman Su? Father Su said, Ryuoxian, stop messing around. This decision was not made by me alone, but by all shareholders of the Su Corporation. Su Ryuoxian looked at Su's father in disbelief when she heard that. She then turned to look at the shareholders beside her. Seeing Su Ryuoxian's gaze, they looked away guiltily, not daring to look at Su Ryuoxian. Not far away, Chu Ji frowned slightly as he looked in the direction of Su's father. Li Yao said, It seems that the situation there is not very harmonious. Chu Ji's eyes became deep, and no one knew what he was thinking. Li Yao asked, What do you think they will do? Chu Ji said, I won't be surprised no matter what they can do. Chu Ji saw Su's father climb onto the podium at the banquet. Everyone, please be quiet, everyone. Please be quiet. Haha. This time we invited everyone here. One is to celebrate the smooth development of the Su family, and the other is to discuss the marriage of my daughter Ryuoxian. Everyone in the audience looked at Father Su in surprise. Then they started whispering to each other. I heard that Su Ryuoxian and Zhao Bo have been very close recently. Is the Su family going to announce the marriage of Su Ryuoxian and Zhao Bo? Zhao Bo also raised his head proudly at this time. Chapter 202, Ryuoxian is mine. At this time, someone whispered, But I heard that Chu Ji is also pursuing Su Ryuoxian. Recently, Su Ryuoxian and Chu Ji have been going out together all day long. And Chu Ji is Su Ryuoxian's ex-husband. I think the Su family should announce the marriage of Su Ryuoxian and Chu Ji, right? Tusk, it can't be Chu Ji. Oh, why? Someone asked. The Su family has always looked down on Chu Ji. You should all know this, right? That's a good point. They chased Chu Ji away during the family gathering. This shows how the Su family treats Chu Ji. Indeed, Chu Ji has made great contributions to the Su family, but the Su family just doesn't like him. I heard that even the house that Su Zin showed to Chu Ji was taken away by Su Zin's mother, who beat Chu Ji. Hearing what you said, it is true that the Su family seems to be very disgusted with Chu Ji. It is really strange. Chu Ji's appearance and ability are impeccable. Why do the people of the Su family dislike him so much? Isn't it because of Chu Ji's background, a farmer's son, that the Su family feels that he has brought disgrace upon the Su family? Tusk insulting the Su family. Chu Ji led the Li family, which was on the verge of despair, to become the largest wealthy family in Jinghai in just a few months. How could such ability insult the Su family? I think it is the Su family that is not worthy of Chu Ji. What's the point of us talking here? The Su family just looks down on peasants, right? Don't you think about it? Weren't the 3 generations of the Su family also farmers? The more this happens, the more they value family background, as if they are afraid that others would say that they are of humble origins. What? At this time, Su pressed her hand again and said, I will not say any more nonsense. I hereby announce that my daughter Ruoxian and Zhao Bo love each other, and this banquet is their engagement banquet. I hope everyone can send your blessings and wish them a long and happy marriage. Everyone looked at Su Ruoxian and Zhao Bo in surprise. Su Ruoxian stared at her father blankly, not knowing what he was thinking. However, Zhao Bo had a warm smile on his face and seemed to be in a good mood. Everyone looked at Chu Ji again. I found that Chu Ji's face was as gloomy as water, and his expression was cold. Zhao Bo also looked at Chu Ji, and then gave a provocative smile. Zhao Bo came up to the stage and stood beside Su's father, looking at the crowd below and said, Ruoxian and I are in love with each other. We have long been attracted to each other. But some people always fail to see the situation clearly, and always come to harass Ruoxian, wanting to be the shameful third party. Today, I am here to openly announce the relationship between Ruoxian and I, and to solemnly warn someone not to be ungrateful. Zhao Bo was staring at Chu Ji when he spoke, which could be considered as speaking to Chu Ji openly. Zhao Bo smiled slightly at this time. My marriage with Ruoxian has been blessed by Uncle Su and everyone in the Su family, which is different from some people of humble origins. I think no one would object to my marriage to Ruoxian, right? Everyone looked at Chu Ji at this time. Chu Ji placed the wine glass in his hand on the table next to him and said, I object. The voice was clear and firm. Ruoxian is mine, said Chu Ji. The people around looked at Chu Ji in shock. Is this still the same Chu Ji who used to be submissive? It feels like Chu Ji is very domineering today, someone said. But what can we do about it? The people of the Su family don't like him. But it's enough that Su Ruoxian likes him. Do you think Su Ruoxian will disobey the Su family for Chu Ji? True, but I still think Chu Ji and Su Ruoxian are a good match. What? Chu Ji took 2 steps forward and said, Ruoxian and I are in love with each other. Also, I am not the third party. I, Chu Ji, am not the kind of person who would be a third party. But if she is mine, I will not let her go. Ruoxian is mine. Su Ruoxian looked at Chu Ji, and the solemnity, loss, and grievance on her face had long disappeared. She looked at Chu Ji, and saw Chu Ji declaring his sovereignty over her in front of everyone, and she felt her whole body melt, so much so that she couldn't even conceal the affectionate look she gave Chu Ji. Zhao Bo looked at Chu Ji, who openly challenged him, and his expression suddenly turned ugly. Chu Ji, who do you think you are? You are just a peasant. What qualifications do you have to pursue Ruoxian? You don't even have the qualifications to stand here. There was a moment of silence in the room. Everyone was a little stunned to see Zhao Bo suddenly getting angry and embarrassed. I was even more shocked by Zhao Bo's words. Hiss, does he not know Chu Ji's current identity? Chu Ji is not only the president of Li Corporation, he also has an official status. This status alone is not comparable to Zhao Bo. That's right, Zhao Bo actually said such things to Chu Ji. Is he crazy? Sure enough, someone couldn't listen anymore, and one person stood up and asked, Boss Zhao, in what capacity do you say this? Those who were on good terms with Li could no longer sit still. They are now closely tied to the Li family, or more precisely, to Chu Ji. Do you really think that the Li family's ability to become the most powerful family in Jinghai is just talk? Not only in terms of financial resources, but also in terms of influence, the Li family is not comparable to the Su family. These were all brought by Chu Ji. All the companies that rely on the big tree of Li's family are convinced by Chu Ji. At this time, Zhao Bo suddenly spoke out against Chu Ji, which made them feel dissatisfied. That's right, Mr. Chu is the president of our Li Group and the largest shareholder of Li Group. I would like to ask you, Mr. Zhao, what is your identity? What qualifications do you have to say this to Mr. Chu? Mr. Zhao, don't say that you are just an acting general manager of Su's. Even if you are the general manager, even if you are the president of Su's, you are not qualified to talk to Mr. Chu like this. Someone else couldn't stand Zhao Bo's behavior and spoke up at this time. Isn't it just bringing a few businesses to the Su Group? Do you really think you are that incompetent? Zhao Bo's face turned pale. Chu Ji also looked at the person who stood up to speak for him in some astonishment. At this time, Li Yao next to him said, "Did you see that? This is the difference between fighting and not fighting. If you stand up and fight, they will be very happy because you can bring them peace of mind. If you don't fight in this situation, besides disappointing them, they won't say a word for you. This is how it has always been in the business world. If you don't move forward, you will fall behind. Being humble and tolerant will only make people look down on you. These people are all friends of our Li family. Their insult to you is an insult to them. If you hadn't said a word just now, they would have reconsidered their cooperation with Li Corporation, and they might even dare to slam the table at you in the future." Chu Ji asked, "Is it that serious?" Of course, this is a big deal about stealing a wife, not a small show. If you don't even give up your own woman, how can they believe that you won't sell them out at the critical moment? Chu Ji suddenly realized that it could be understood in this way. Chapter 203, Zhao Bo's Falling Out. At this time, Zhao Bo's face on the podium turned ugly. He never expected that Chu Ji's influence was so great. Although these people who spoke up were far from the wealthy families, they were not small bosses with no reputation. This person was invited by the Su family. Even so, there are so many people here speaking for Chu Ji. So what if the situation changes? If it were a different situation, would there be more people willing to support Li? Father Su's face also became full of excitement. This time, apart from inviting a few people from wealthy families, the rest were small bosses who had some dealings with the Su company. I thought they would stand on his side without hesitation, or at least would not openly oppose this matter. But unexpectedly, as Chu Ji spoke, these people actually started to help Chu Ji. Is Chu Ji's influence already so great? Father Su looked at Su Ruoxuan and said, "Ruoxuan, express your opinion quickly." Su Ruoxuan simply ignored what her father said. Father Su looked at Chu Ji and said, "Chu Ji, this is our Su family's business. You and Ruoxian have divorced and there is no connection between you. Isn't it inappropriate for you to say these things now?" Chu Ji said, "I think it's very suitable. Also, Director Su, I think your current behavior is inappropriate and may even be illegal." Father Su's cheeks were livid as he said, "Breaking the law? This is my family affair. Even if the government officials come, they won't interfere. What law have I broken? Chu Ji, I admired you at first, but I didn't expect you to be such a mean person who forgets his principles when he sees profit. You are holding on to Ruoxian just to covet her shares in my company, right?" Chu Ji suddenly laughed. "Are you greedy for shares? Didn't anyone tell you that I have already returned all the money that Ruoxian invested to the Su Corporation, and I have returned the principal with interest?" Father Su looked embarrassed. How could he not know? After that family meeting, Su Ruoxuan returned all her shares that she had sold to the Su Group. "That's also because of our Su family's help," said Su's father. "This is just being a rogue. This means that banks are the great benefactors of everyone present here, who has not borrowed money from a bank, and who has not repaid the bank the principal and interest. Why do banks lend money? Isn't it also to make money? It doesn't make sense to say who is whom's benefactor." However, Chu Ji nodded and said, "I didn't deny this. The Su family did help me a lot, but I still want to say that Ruoxian is mine." This domineering declaration made Su's father's nose crooked with anger. "Huh, what makes you think you can do that?" said Su's father. Zhao Bo also said with disdain, "That's right, what makes you think you can do that? Because he and I are a legal couple." Su Ruoxuan, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. Everyone fell silent instantly. Zhao Bo turned his head sharply and looked at Su Ruoxian and said, "Ruoxian, you'd better think carefully before you speak. Once you say something, you can't take it back." Father Su's face turned pale at this time and he said, "Ruoxian, be obedient and don't make trouble. Everyone present knows that you and Chuzh are getting divorced. Even if you haven't divorced yet, you must do it now." Chu Ji looked at Su's father and said, "Chairman Su, what are you afraid of?" Father Su glanced at Chu Ji coldly and said, "What do you want?" Zhao Bo next to him said at this time, Chu Ji, if you really want to do this for the good of the Su family, I think you should leave here as soon as possible. Of course, you can also stay and bless me and Ryu Xian. Chu Ji shook his head and looked at Zhao Bo and said, Ryuxian is mine. Unless Ryuxian takes the initiative to leave me, I will not let go. This is my promise to her. Su Ryuxian covered her chest with her hands. She felt it was very hot there. Su Ryuxian called softly. Chu Ji looked at Zhao Bo and continued, You are so confident today. I guess you have made all the preparations. I heard that you are going to announce something big. Is it about you and Ryuxian? Zhao Bo said, Why should I tell you? Chu Ji looked at Su Zi, who was standing next to him with his head down and silent, and said, Manager Su Zi, I think you should know something, right? Su Zi did not speak. Su Pin beside him said, What else can we do? We signed a gambling agreement with the other party, and now we have lost. It's that simple. The people present fell silent instantly. This is a trap. Sure enough, this Zhao Bo doesn't look like a good guy. But there is nothing wrong with the gambling agreement itself. It seems that Chairman Su is a little greedy. Su's company is such a big company, so just focus on developing it. Why would they think of doing something like this? Haha, if the Su family didn't have this kind of courage, would they have been able to become a wealthy family? Unfortunately, he miscalculated this time. This Zhao Bo is quite ruthless. He has been in the Su Corporation for such a long time and gained the trust of Chairman Su. Then he set a trap for the other party. How insidious. What a sinister move. Which of us hasn't used a gambling agreement before? In the final analysis, Chairman Su is just too eager for quick success. Perhaps it was because of the Li family's provocation. In the beginning, the Su family and the Li family had always been at odds with each other, and Su Xin was even abandoned by Li Ping from the Li family. Now that the Li family has Chu Ji, it is soaring, while the Su family is still standing still. I'm afraid he can't accept it. Listening to the whispers below, Father Su seemed very embarrassed. The other members of the Su family also looked at Su Ryuxian, Chu Ji, and others awkwardly. They signed this contract without Su Ryuxian's knowledge. To be honest, they had indeed begun to distance themselves from Su Ryuxian. If they win this bet, they would be happy to see Su Ryuxian leave. But now they have lost, and it is also Su Ryuxian who can save them. Su Zi said at this time, This is all Zhao Bo's instigation. I never thought that he would bypass the company and sign a contract directly with my uncle. Father Su's face flushed red at this time. He looked viciously at his wife in the audience. Su Ryuxian's stepmother lowered her head. It was because she had been speaking well of Zhao Bo that he signed the contract in a fit of anger. The Su family is a wealthy and powerful family, but no one expected that they would fall into such a thing. Zhao Bo laughed and said, I didn't force you to sign the contract. You signed it voluntarily. Upon hearing this, everyone in the Su family blushed and lowered their heads. At this time, Zhao Bo no longer pretended. He looked up at these people from the Su family with contempt. Now I am the only one who can save the Su family. Letting Ryuxian marry me is the best way for you to resolve the crisis. You should thank me for having some thoughts about the women in your Su family. Everyone in the Su family was filled with shame. Being treated like this in such an occasion, the Su family's reputation was completely trampled underfoot. The people below looked at Zhao Bo in shock. Damn it, Zhao Bo's true colors are revealed. All those hardworking and capable people he showed off before were just an act. Tusk, the Su family deserves it for not wanting such a talented person like Chu Ji and ending up with such a jerk. What can the Su family do now? No problem. The gambling agreement itself is fine, but it is a big problem if it is used by gangsters. It seems that the Su family is playing a big game this time. Chapter 204, the protagonist's script. At this time, someone else said, That's because the Li family rose too fast and has become the new leader of Jinghai. The Su family used to be at odds with the Li family, and their strength has always been above that of the Li family. Now that the Li family has risen suddenly, who can withstand it? What's even more ironic is that it was Chu Ji who led the Li family to rise. You say that such a talented person was driven away by the Su family just like that, and at the beginning he was even cold and stern towards Chu Ji. This is equivalent to having a treasure in front of them but not knowing how to cherish it. It is only until they lose it that they realize what a rare treasure it is. It would be strange if he wasn't stimulated in this situation, and it would be normal for him to do something irrational. Tusk, everyone in the Su family must be regretting their decision now, right? I heard that when Chu Ji was in Su's, there were employees who pretended to obey him but secretly disobeyed him. There were also several bigwigs who were very dissatisfied with Chu Ji and often tried to trip him up. They openly and secretly said that Chu Ji was a gigolo. Now they are simply slapped in the face. Tell me, why were they so harsh on Chu Ji in the beginning but so lenient towards Zhao Bo? What makes Zhao Bo better than Chu Ji? Who knows? The Su family gives people a weird feeling. If the Su family had been a little better to Chu Ji, would the Su family have ended up like this? Is it because of Chu Ji's background? Do you think Chu Ji is not worthy of Su Ruoxian? Maybe it's because Chu Ji is from the countryside and they think it's embarrassing to bring him out. This may have something to do with Su Ruoxian's stepmother. She was very dissatisfied with Chu Ji in the beginning and spread bad things about him everywhere. The one in our family has heard her say many times that Chu Ji is a peasant. No matter what, Su's father didn't treat Chu Ji well at the beginning. The two of them got the marriage certificate, and the Su family never announced to the public that they were going to hold a wedding or anything like that. It is also better not to mention Chu Ji. How much contempt do you have for Chu Ji? Not to mention the whispers below. On the high platform, Zhao Bo had a sneer on his face. He looked at Su Ruoxuan and said, "Ruoxuan, I believe you like me too. If it weren't for Chuj, I think we would have been married. You have also seen how I treat the Su family. I work hard day and night for the Su family. What is it for? Isn't it just for your praise? I just didn't expect Chu Ji to be a third party. He relied on the fact that he was engaged to you to pester you. I know you don't like him, right?" After Zhao Bo finished speaking, he looked at Su Ruoxuan meaningfully. Father Su beside him nodded quickly and said, "Yes, I can testify that Ruoxian has praised Zhao Bo more than once in front of me, saying that Zhao Bo's talent is not inferior to Chu Ji. But I also know that my daughter is nostalgic. Although Chu Ji is not as good as Zhao Bo in every aspect, he is still a couple with Ruoxian after all, so Ruoxian reluctantly agreed to go on a date with him. But I can guarantee that they are just ordinary friends. At least Ruoxian only regards him as an ordinary friend. It is Chuj who has to pester Ruoxian that people misunderstand." Father Su looked at Su Ruoxian and said, "Ruoxian, tell me, is what Dad said right?" As Father Su spoke, he winked at Su Ruoxuan. Let Su Ruoxuan continue with what he said. Zhao Bo next to him also showed a smug smile. In the face of absolute interests, he didn't believe that he couldn't take Su Ruoxuan. A member of the Su clan next to him stepped forward and said, "That's right, Chu Ji, you are now a well-known figure. Don't you think it's a bit dirty to pester Ruoxian like this? Chu Ji, our Su family didn't like you at the beginning, and we still don't like you now. Judging from your current appearance, we were not wrong at the beginning. After all, you are still a peasant with a small vision. Haven't you heard the saying that it's better to part ways in peace?" Chu Ji said, "Yes, let's part ways in peace. The key is that we haven't parted yet, right?" Everyone looked at Su Ruoxuan at this time. Su Ruoxuan's decision is related to the safety of the Su family. However, anyone with a discerning eye can guess that Su Ruoxuan will definitely choose Zhao Bo. Su Ruoxuan is a member of the Su family after all. At this moment, Su Ruoxuan suddenly smiled. "Dad, this is not a choice for me, because whether I choose or not, it will not change the fact that I am Chu Ji's wife. I forgot to tell you that Chu Ji and I have never divorced. Do you think what I just said was an excuse?" As she spoke, Su Ruoxuan took out 2 documents from her bag. 2 marriage certificates. The crowd was in an uproar. "Didn't you say you were divorced? Why do you still have a marriage certificate?" Su Ruoxuan explained what happened, and everyone suddenly understood. So Chu Ji has always been the son-in-law of the Su family from the beginning. What kind of magical plot is this? It turns out Chu Ji has always been a member of the Su family. But what did I hear the Su family say just now? They seem to say that they just look down on Chu Ji, saying that he is a peasant with little vision. This Su family is really courting death, and no one can stop them. Father Su was dumbfounded. Then he closed his eyes in despair. This time, there was no room for easing the tension between him and Chu Ji. Chu Ji then said, "So, if I say Ruoxian is mine, is there any problem?" Zhao Bo's face turned pale at this time. He was shaking with anger. "So you were just teasing me from the beginning." Tusk, you're not too stupid to think so," Chu Ji said frivolously. He felt like he was the villain who was suppressing the protagonist. Zhao Bo was once the son of a top wealthy family, but his family fell into decline. Then the family's honor and disgrace fell on him. In order to revive his family, he endured humiliation, joined the Su family and won the heart of a proud daughter of heaven, and then revived the family and reached the pinnacle of his life. No matter how you look at it, this is a standard plot of the protagonist's counterattack. And I am the villain in this plot, right? Chu Ji let his mind run wild with thoughts. Zhao Bo said arrogantly at this time, "Do you think you won? Ruoxian, you will regret your choice today." Chu Ji said, "Then I want to see how you make Ru Xian regret it." At this time, Father Su suddenly said, "Ruoxian, hurry up and divorce Chuzh and then marry Zhao Bo." So Ruoxian said, "Dad, is this what you think?" "That's right, you should hurry up and break up with Chu Ji. Zhao Bo is your perfect match, not Chu Ji," said Su's father. Chu Ji shook his head speechlessly. Su Ruoxian looked at her father with some disappointment. "Zhao Bo, can you give me 2 days? I promise to let Ruoxian and Chuzh divorce." Father Su looked at Zhao Bo pleadingly. Zhao Bo sneered and said, "Do you think I'm a rag collector? I told you I'll make you regret it." "Mr. Zhu, please bring the contract over here," Zhao Bo said. A fat figure stood up and walked forward with a copy in his hand. Looking at the man, Su's father's legs went weak, and he took a few steps back and sat down softly on the chair behind him. Seeing this, Zhao Bo smiled slightly. Chapter 205, He is His Destiny. Zhao Bo smiled sinisterly and said, "Chairman Su, I have the contract. Let's fulfill it. From now on, 80% of Su's shares will belong to me." Looking at Su's father's expression, Zhao Bo smiled smugly. The people below shook their heads slightly, thinking that this boy had a treacherous heart, and it would be better not to associate with such people in the future. Zhao Bo still doesn't know what consequences his actions will bring to him. After spending a long time abroad, I found that my flamboyant personality is not very popular. Everyone in the Su family looked desperate. Someone actually jumped up and cursed at Su Ruoxian, saying that Su Ruoxian did not help the person in danger. The Su family raised them, so they should sacrifice for the Su family. When one person stood up, many others stood up and criticized Su Ruoxian. It was as if Su Ruoxian had made a huge mistake. Everyone around was stunned. What was going on? Su Ruoxian had clearly done nothing wrong, but how come she became a rat crossing the street in the eyes of the Su family and was wanted by everyone to be beaten? Zhao Bo watched all this with a smile on his face, as if he was looking at a bunch of idiots. Su Ruoxian's face turned pale as she looked at those relatives and friends who had once tried to please her. She didn't know why they treated her like this. Even Chu Ji couldn't understand it. Shouldn't the object of their anger be Zhao Bo? How could it become Su Ruoxian? The Qin family's head looked at the Su family speechlessly and said, "Alas, the Su family doesn't have any decent talents except the Su family's head and Su Ruoxian. If a family business has no talents, it will fall into ruin sooner or later." Mother Qin shook her head speechlessly. Then I became more worried about the situation at home, because the situation of their Qin family seems to be similar to that of the Su family. The scene became chaotic, and some people from the Su family attempted to attack Su Ruoxian. Chu Ji then stepped forward and stood in front of Su and the others, his eyes becoming sharp. Under his gaze, the people of the Su family became quiet. The man who attempted to attack Su Ruoxian became evasive and did not dare to look Chu Ji in the eye. There was contempt in Chu Ji's eyes. When he was at Su's, he had vaguely sensed Su's situation. However, Su Ruoxian of the Su family was still able to control the situation, so he didn't care much. But now it seems that, except for the head of the Su family, these ordinary Su family members are a group of short-sighted and incompetent people. Don't they know that the reason why Su's company has been able to grow so big is because of Su Ruoxian? Listen to me, the reason why the Su family has become a wealthy family is due to the efforts of the head of the Su family and Ru Xian. Especially Ruoxian has been working diligently for Su's company. Do you know how long she is busy every day? The development in the past few years was all brought about by Ruoxian. Ruoxian doesn't owe you anything, but you owe her. Why do you ask her to sacrifice for you? Just because her last name is Su. I'm telling you that she is my wife now, and her shares have been returned to Su's. She is now a member of my Chu family and has nothing to do with your Su family. If you dare to touch her, do you believe that I can make Su's get out of Jinghai?" As soon as Chu Ji finished speaking, the room fell silent. With Chu Ji's current strength, what he said is not just talk, he can really do it. Zhao Bo snorted coldly at this time and said, "Chu Ji, you are so arrogant, but it's a pity that Su's is mine now. Do you think you can make me get out of Jinghai?" Chu Ji looked at Zhao Bo with disdain and said, "Yours? On what basis? Just based on your status as a member of the Zhao family. The Zhu family was able to get your Zhao family out of Jinghai, but I, Chuzh, will not do that, because I want your Zhao family not to even have a chance to get out." "Zhao family? Which Zhao family? Could it be the same Zhao family from before, the Zhao family from more than 10 years ago?" someone exclaimed. No wonder he is so arrogant, that's why. This also explains why Zhao Bo was able to merge so many high-quality companies into the Su Corporation in such a short period of time. It turns out that they are the Zhao family's industries. So Zhao Bo's entry into the Su Corporation was a trap. Those things given to the company were just bait. The Su family got addicted to it, so they signed the so-called gambling contract. So that's how it is. Everything makes sense. The Su family is being targeted by the Zhao family. If they swallow up the Su family, the Zhao family will rise and make a comeback. The head of the Qin family became furious at this moment. Li Yao looked at Zhao Bo in shock. She didn't expect that Zhao Bo had this identity. At the same time, she looked at Chu Ji in shock. She didn't expect that Chu Ji knew Zhao Bo's identity early on. Chu Ji's abnormality these days seemed to be explained. In other words, he was not actually that interested in Su Ruoxuan. The person he really cared about was always Zhao Bo. Su Ruoxuan happened to be in that position, so Chu Ji went against his norm and pursued Su Ruoxuan. Li Yao was depressed for a while because of this, even though this change was suggested by her. But now it seems that Chu Ji is still Chu Ji. He has not changed. Thinking of this, Li Yao looked at Chu Ji with infatuated eyes, because this was the kind of Chu Ji she liked from the beginning. Just like Chu Ji said at the beginning, it is because he is such a person that they are willing to stay with him. If he was a playboy from the beginning, would they still like him and be willing to give everything for him? Of course, Chu Ji has not changed at all. At least he has become a little more domineering than before, or he has always been like this. But he just hasn't encountered anything that made him care before. Chu Ji then looked at the members of the Su family and said, "Since you think Su Ruoxian is not worthy of being a member of your Su family, then from today on, she has nothing to do with your Su family. Anyway, she is my wife now and will be a member of the Chu family in the future. She has no relationship with your Su family. Master Su, I will take Ruoxian away now. You won't have any objections, right?" Father Su seemed to be drained of his spirit at this moment. He looked at Su Ruoxuan and waved his hand weakly. "Well, the Su family is finished. Since Ruoxian is your wife, she has nothing to do with the Su family. Please take good care of her in the future." Chu Ji said, "Don't worry about this, I will take good care of my woman." Chu Ji reached out and held Su Ruoxuan's arm and gave her a comforting look. Su Ruoxuan looked at Chu Ji, a little dazed. She seemed to have returned to the scene when she first met Chu Ji. He still looked a little green that day. He was sitting at the table, quietly flipping through a book. When she passed by, he turned his head and looked at her. His eyes at that time seemed to be filled with warm light, which instantly made her fall in love with him. It was at that moment that she made the decision to catch him. Now it seems that my decision at that time was so correct. This may not be love at first sight, but Su Ruoxuan is very sure. She knew at that first sight that the person in front of her is her destiny. Chapter 206, Like a Clown. The feeling was so strong at that time that I resorted to some coercive measures, which also laid the seeds for the subsequent disharmony. Fortunately, everything is over now, and she saw that warm light in Chu Ji's eyes again. I was enveloped by his gaze and felt like I had gained the whole world. She originally had a lot to say to those so-called relatives and friends of the Su family, but now it seems that nothing matters anymore, because she has already got what she wanted most. She now seems to be grateful for the accusations and slanders against her by these relatives and friends. Zhao Bo's face was filled with confusion at this moment, because Chu Ji was too calm, so calm that it made him nervous. Of course, Chu Ji has always been like this. Apart from the safety of people close to him, it seems that nothing can make him lose his composure. Just like when the cutting-edge chip machine was destroyed, everyone thought that the Li family was finished, but Chu Ji remained calm and resolved the crisis with just a few simple steps, and even gained public status because of it. This kind of identity is not something that anyone can have if they want it. Even for a wealthy family, it is not easy to obtain such an identity. But Chu Ji did it. So when facing Chu Ji in such a state, Zhao Bo felt panic for the first time. "The contract is with me. I don't believe you can make any more trouble." Zhao Bo suppressed the strangeness in his heart and looked at Chu Ji defiantly. Chu Ji said, "Really? Then you'd better take a look at what is written in the contract in your hand." Zhao Bo was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then looked a little flustered. Father Su also came back to his senses. He looked at Chu Ji, then at Zhao Bo, and his body gradually sat up straight. At this time, Su Ruoxian stepped forward and said, "Zhao Bo, in fact, from the day you stepped into the Su company, Aj began to doubt you. Do you know why?" Zhao Bo looked at the contract in his hand and asked in a hoarse voice, "Why?" Su Ruoxian said, "Because of the photo you took. You are too smart. You sent someone to take a photo of you and me and sent it to Aj's phone. You think Aj will be angry, right? You think you are playing a trick on him, right? Then do you know that your action will expose yourself immediately? You think you are very smart, but in my opinion, you are really stupid." Su Ruoxian said with sarcasm, "Have you finished reading the contract? Remember to tell me after you finish reading it. Those companies of your Zhao family will belong to my Chu group in the future." Chu Ji was slightly stunned and looked at Su Ruoxian. Su Ruoxian squeezed Chu Ji's hand at this time. "Listen to me. I have no relationship with the Su family anymore. There is no need to give these things to the Su family." Chu Ji opened his mouth but didn't say anything. The Su family members nearby were all dumbfounded. Zhao Bo was still looking through the contract, his eyes blank as he saw the most critical part of the contract being changed. "How could this happen? How could this happen? When was he replaced? When?" Zhao Bo murmured. Chu Ji said, "Well, when you signed the contract with Mr. Zhu, when you went to the hotel. That hotel is ours, and the waiters are ours too," Chu Ji explained in detail. "So, Zhao Bo, your Zhao family is still living in the past glory and has not come to its senses. The current Jinghai is no longer the Jinghai of the past." Zhao Bo tore up the contract and said, "But so what? It's just that I didn't succeed here at the Su family, but you still underestimated my Zhao family. Do you think I just signed a contract with the Su family?" Zhao Bo's words made the faces of the people below change slightly. Could it be that the Zhao family has signed this kind of gambling contract with other families? Probably. How could the Zhao family possibly hang itself on the Su family's tree? If other contracts take effect, the Zhao family will still rise. Those who once depended on the Zhao family may band together again. Then Jinghai will be bustling. Yes, the rise of the four great families has swallowed up a lot of the Zhao family's assets. Once the Zhao family returns, these great families will probably be uneasy. Chu Ji raised his lips slightly and said, "Really? Are you so sure that the things your Zhao family did were done without anyone noticing?" Zhao Bo's expression changed again. Ding-ling-ling, the phone suddenly rang. "It's Zhao Bo's." Zhao Bo answered the phone tremblingly. An annoyed voice came from the phone. "What did you do, you idiot? Now all the companies that signed the contract have completed the task. Do you know how much it costs us? You idiot, idiot, idiot." At this time, Mr. Zhu, who had signed the contract with Su Corporation, came to Chu Ji and said flatteringly, "Son-in-law, well done. I will definitely say a few good words for you in front of your young lady," said Chu Ji. Mr. Zhu laughed so hard that his eyes could not see. "Sir, just your words are enough." Chu Ji tilted his head slightly and looked at Zhao Bo and said, "Zhao Bo, do you have anything else to say?" Zhao Bo felt like a bereaved family at this moment. He felt like a clown standing on the stage. After a long time, Zhao Bo raised his head and looked at Chu Ji with resentment. "Chu Ji, you are very good, very good." Chu Ji said, "You don't need to tell me this, I know I can still make sense." At the same time, Chu Ji was also extremely alert. He quietly protected Su Ruoxian behind him. He was afraid that Zhao Bo would do something desperate. At the same time, two people moved forward and came to Chu Ji's side. They were arranged by Su Wan. Su Wan didn't come today because she had more important things to do. Zhao Bo looked at the alert Chu Ji, then at the two people beside him and said with a cold smile, "Do you think I will be angry? Don't worry, Chu Ji, I admit that you are excellent, but I still don't take you seriously. You are just a small fry in my eyes. Do you have the ability to take over my Zhao family's assets?" Zhao Bo smiled sinisterly and turned to look at Su's father and the people of the Su family with contempt in his eyes. "I failed today because of my carelessness. But just wait, I, Zhao Bo, will trample all of you under my feet one day." Zhao Bo walked down the platform and headed towards the door with an arrogant stride. Father Su wanted to stop him, but at some point, a few people also came to Zhao Bo and quickly stopped the people from the Su family. Looking at those people, Father Su's pupils couldn't help but shrink slightly. Zhao Bo sneered disdainfully again and left with a swagger. Chu Ji looked at Zhao Bo, who walked out of the door with a serious look in his eyes. It seems that Zhao Bo still has something to rely on. After Zhao Bo left, there was naturally no need to hold the banquet. However, from today on, the Su family's decline may be unstoppable. Without Su Ruoxian, the Su family was lucky enough to maintain their achievements. Chapter 207, This is the Result. After the banquet, Chu Ji, Li Yao and Su Ruoxian returned to Chu Ji's residence together. Su Ruoxian did not return to the Su family. and she would probably have fewer opportunities to go back in the future. Today she was sold by her own biological father, which she found hard to accept. There may be some hidden secrets that she doesn't know about, but this is the fact. Compared with the Su family's assets, she can be sacrificed at will. This made her understandable, but also unacceptable. Chu Ji didn't say anything, but just held her hand tightly. Su Ruoxuan tilted her head and looked at Chu Ji, and the faint sadness on her face was quickly replaced by a faint smile. The faint neon light outside the car window shone on her face, making Chu Ji look a little dazed. Finally, Su Ruoxuan glared at Chu Ji coquettishly, and a neon blush rose on her face. "As long as I have you, it's enough," Su Ruoxuan said softly. When I got home, I saw Su Zin sitting on the sofa in a daze. Her expression was indifferent, with a hint of resentment and sadness between her brows. She was sitting there quietly at this moment, looking fresh and refined. The skin, as delicate as a baby's, emits a bright glow under the light, which is a fascinating sight. Looking at Su Zin, Chu Ji suddenly realized that it was no wonder that he always felt that something was missing at this banquet. It turned out that Su Zin was missing. "Su Zin, why are you here?" Chu Ji asked. "What, I can't come yet?" Su Zin forced a smile. Her tone was bleak, and the look she gave Chu Ji was filled with reluctance, resentment, and a hint of longing. Chu Ji shook his head and said, "That's not what I meant. I just felt like something was missing at the banquet today. It turns out you were not there." Chu Ji was honestly saying that sometimes he was used to attending banquets with Su Zin, and without her this time, he really felt a little empty inside. When Su Zin heard this, a hint of surprise flashed in the depths of her eyes, as if the dry land had welcomed a sweet rain. Su Zin asked in a trembling voice, "So you're not used to my absence?" "A little bit," Chu Ji nodded honestly. At this time, Chu Ji saw that Su Zin seemed to be holding something in her hand, which seemed to be a plane ticket. "Air ticket?" Chu Ji raised his eyebrows. Su Zin tore up the ticket and said, "Oh, this is a plane ticket I left behind. I'm just playing with it." Chu Ji's eyes flashed with doubt. "Is that true? Who would use the old plane ticket for fun?" Su Zin was about to throw the plane ticket into the trash can, but after thinking it over, she went to the toilet instead. She dropped the ticket into the toilet and pressed the flush. As the plane ticket disappeared, Su Zin breathed a sigh of relief, and then a smile appeared on her cheek. "Humph, you are sensible, I won't leave." Su Ruoxuan looked at Su Zin's back as she entered the bathroom, then looked at Chu Ji and shook her head slightly. Not to mention Su Wan, now with Su Zin added, Su Ruoxuan felt that the three sisters in her family would probably be in Chu Ji's hands. "Where's Su Wan? I didn't see her at the banquet today, and there's no one here either." Thinking of Su Wan, Su Ruoxuan asked with a frown. Chu Ji also became a little worried, but he couldn't make the call because Su Wan had instructed him to. At this time, in an abandoned factory, Su Wan sat on an industrial barrel like a queen. As a secret force of the Su family, how could she not know that if the Zhao family wanted to succeed, there must be a powerful force in secret? Obviously, Zhao Bo is the person that the Zhao family puts in the open. And in secret, there is this force, which is the main force of the Zhao family. How could Chu Ji not have thought of the power of the Zhao family? So he asked Su Wan to secretly monitor this force from the beginning. Chu Ji didn't mind speculating the Zhao family with the most vicious thoughts. So all conceivable aspects have been taken into consideration. As the saying goes, a lion will use all its strength to fight a rabbit, let alone dealing with the cunning wolf of the Zhao family. And it is this power that Zhao Bo relies on. As long as this power is still there, even if the contract he signed fails, he will have a way to make the other party give it up. Zhao Bo thought Chu Ji had no idea about this force. That's why he mocked Chu Ji so much at the banquet. But he didn't know that Chu Ji never underestimated his opponents, so he would think carefully and worry about whether he had missed any details. That's why Zhao Bo's path was blocked from the very beginning. I wonder what Zhao Bo would feel if he knew Chu Ji's thoughts. Since Chu Ji chose to take action today, he would beat the opponent to death with a stick. It is not his habit to leave troubles behind. Of course, it's not a gunfight, and this isn't the place to shoot a gangster movie. The task he asked Su Wan to do was very simple. Collect evidence of the Zhao family's crimes, then call the police, and then prevent these people from escaping. In order to quickly reap the small and medium-sized enterprises in Jinghai, the Zhao family signed a gambling agreement with many people. In order to prevent the other party from winning the bet, they will naturally use some despicable means. Su Wan handed the evidence to the small bosses who signed the contracts, and those small bosses were furious. As long as Su Wan exacerbates the conflict a little bit, causing the arrogant Zhao family to lose their minds and come into conflict with those small bosses. Then the opportunity will come. Miss, the police have already launched a roundup of them. They are so arrogant that they dare to hurt people. Haha, the Zhao family still thinks that Jinghai is the Jinghai of more than 10 years ago. They used to be able to use these methods, but now they are courting death. Miss, but I'm afraid there will still be some fish that slip through the net. Su Wan gently held her chin with her hand, looking extremely charming in the light and shadow of Minglong. She said softly, "Then we will deal with those who slipped through the net ourselves." But Miss, Mr. Chu said we can't be stained by any stain. Aj is still too kind. In this society, kindness will bring trouble to oneself. For him, I can do anything. Go ahead and do it. It's not the first time. It doesn't matter even if I'm found out. As long as he's fine, that's all. Don't worry, miss, we will do it beautifully. At this time, in a dark corner of Jinghai, there was a person who was quietly observing all this. Tusk, isn't this opportunity here? The man said sinisterly. A light flashed through the window, and Zhang Heng's face appeared in the light, then quickly disappeared into the darkness. Chu Ji had been waiting for Zhao Bo's counterattack. Even when he took over the Zhao family's business, he remained very vigilant. To this end, he also spent a lot of money to hire a professional team to audit the assets and contracts of those companies, to ensure that there are no traps and to be foolproof. But until he finished busy receiving the information, he did not see Zhao Bo's counterattack. This surprised him. Where's the promised counterattack? Why didn't the promised scene of stepping on me happen? What went wrong? Not feeling any blow from Zhao Bo, Chu Ji became somewhat unconfident. He was ready for the blow, and this is the result. Chapter 208, I feel unworthy. Now all the Zhao family's assets have been taken over by him and Su Ruoxuan. After Su Ruoxuan withdrew the funds from Li's company, she returned a portion of it to Su's company. All the remaining money and the money invested by Chu Ji were invested in this. It can be said that this was a big gamble for them, but fortunately they won. Now that the situation has been decided, the Zhao family has completely lost the chance to turn the tables. Even if the Zhao family tries to kill me now, they can't take away these properties. Su Ruoxuan counted the assets and found that their current power might not be as strong as the Zhang family, but it was not far behind. What's important is that this completely belongs to Chu Ji and her assets. Since Chu Ji was still working for Li's company, Su Ruoxuan became the natural president of Chu Ji Industry. Chu Ji has grown to the point where people look up to him, but Chu Ji was not happy because he didn't know whether his current achievements could help Zhu Wangqing. Because Zhu Wangqing said that when he grew up to the point where he could help her, she would naturally contact him. Now he still hasn't received any message from Zhu Wangqing, which makes him a little nervous. And this time in Europe, in a manner, Zhu Wangqing lay on her side with her big belly on a custom-made recliner. She gently stroked her belly with a faint, happy smile on her face. At this time, the old butler came over. Miss, there is news from the country that the Zhao family's assets in the country have been taken away by the son-in-law. The other party wanted to use the gambling agreement to quickly make money, but they didn't expect to be used by the son-in-law, who in turn made them spit out all the assets of Jinghai. A look of joy appeared on Zhu Wangqing's goddess-like face. Sure enough, I knew he would never let me down. The old housekeeper thought to himself, the key is that you don't have any requirements for your son-in-law. Even if your son-in-law does nothing, he is still the best in your eyes, right? Of course, he didn't dare say this to anyone, not to mention anything else. The child in the young lady's belly alone is already the greatest contribution that the son-in-law has made to the Zhu family. Zhu Wangqing said, "Be careful of the Zhao family, they may jump off the wall in desperation. Don't worry about this, young lady. Your son-in-law has already anticipated this and has made arrangements. Our people will also help you to find and fill in the gaps," said the old butler. Zhu Wangqing nodded. Miss, the Zhao family has consumed a lot of the time, money, and energy of the Charlo's family. This is a good thing for us. I thought that Jinghai's son-in-law would have an impact on us. I didn't expect that the son-in-law could solve the problem so easily. The plan of the Charlo's family in Jinghai has failed. If he wants to rescue the Zhao family, he will probably have to pay a certain price. Zhu Wangqing's lips curled up slightly. One move affects the whole body. The Charlo's family should pay the price for their stupidity. Aji has helped me a lot. Chu Ji was still worried that his strength was not enough, but he didn't know that he had unknowingly helped Zhu Wangqing a lot. It was also because of his potential that Zhu Wangqing found the opportunity to kill him with one blow. But that is a story for later. Jinghai. Zhao Shi hung up the phone at this time. His face looked very ugly. Damn you, Zhao Shi cursed. You're just a foreigner, but you really think you're such a big shot. When my Zhao family was at its peak, what could you Chalos count for? Charos is his biggest supporter in Europe. It was also because he got close to Charles, when the Zhao family fell into decline, that he was able to preserve a large part of his assets in Jinghai without anyone noticing. After Zhao Shi finished scolding Charos, she turned her head and looked at Zhao Bo next to her. Speak up, why aren't you talking? Where's that arrogance you had at the banquet? And when you left, were you still swearing at people? Now the other party is 200% alert, and all our escape routes have been blocked by that damn Chu Ji. You are just saying such harsh words, right? Zhao Bo's face turned red. He thought he had a chance to turn the tables, but he never expected Chu Ji to be so ruthless and thoughtful. Thinking of what he said now, he just wanted to find a hole in the ground to crawl into. After shame comes endless resentment. Zhao Bo's eyes were red at this time, and he had lost his mind. I'll make him pay. Zhao Shi glanced at Zhao Bo with disdain. He thought Zyro Han was stupid enough, but now he saw that Zhao Bo was the same. Maybe neither of them is stupid, but it's because Chu Ji is too outstanding, so outstanding that these two guys look stupid. This explanation is a bit more reasonable. Zhao Bo turned around and went out. The dilapidated door made a teeth-grinding creaking sound. They are no longer in the suburban estate. Because that place was exposed. That little girl from the Su family is quite cruel. She is so vicious at such a young age. When Zhao Shi thought of that slim but seemingly fragile woman, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Of course, the other party would not be stupid enough to show up in person to deal with him. But it was precisely because of this that he was even more afraid of that woman. I'm afraid even the head of the Su family doesn't know how powerful his little daughter is. Otherwise, he wouldn't care so much about Zhao Bo's threat. It was also at this time that he truly realized that Jinghai was no longer the Jinghai of the past, and their Zhao family had become a thing of the past. The saying, when people leave, the tea gets cold, is not as simple as it sounds. What should we do now? Our funds are now frozen. If we don't get support, we will have to withdraw from Jinghai, but this withdrawal may be. I'm afraid I won't be able to gain a foothold in Jinghai from now on. Zhao Shi sat in a dark corner, and no one could see what he was thinking. Jinghai. Chu Ji was alert for a while and then relaxed. Now that the situation has been decided, he doesn't think the Zhao family has any chance of turning the tables. But he still won't take it lightly. At Chuz's house, Su Wan looked at Chuz sitting on the sofa and said, "Aj, you are still too soft-hearted. You shouldn't give them a chance." Chu Ji said, "Opportunity, how could I give them a chance?" "Then why don't you catch them all in one fell swoop?" Su Wan asked. Chu Ji looked at Su Wan and frowned slightly. "We live in a society ruled by law now. Wanner, tell me, how do you plan to catch them all?" Su Wan's face turned pale. She is fearless and can be ruthless towards her enemies. He is even extremely cruel to himself. But she had no way to deal with Chu Ji. Even the slightest frown of Chu Ji would make her feel anxious for a long time. Seeing the reproach in Chu Ji's eyes, she was a little at a loss. "I don't know what to say. Wanner, I've told you before that there are some things we can't do. You can say I'm too soft-hearted, but I still say that I don't want you to get your hands dirty because of me." There was one more thing he didn't say, which was that he felt he was not worthy of a good girl like Su Wan treating him like this. Chapter 209, Qin Wanshu is back. Chu Ji's words were like poison. Su Wan had no power to resist. She slowly squatted down, hugged Chu Ji's legs, and rubbed her cheek on Chu Ji's legs. "Aj, I'm willing to do anything for you." Chu Ji's heart trembled suddenly, and he slowly reached out and touched Su Wan's hair. "Wanner, I just hope you're well." Chu Ji's voice was a little dry. He frowned, feeling a little helpless about Su Wan's efforts. He doesn't think he is that outstanding, nor does he think he is the destined one. He is who he is, a farmer's son, who just happened to be favored by Sister Wonking. It was Sister Wonking who helped him when he was at his lowest point, although she only provided him with a job. But it was this job that kept him going, so he always thought that he was just an ordinary person. Whether it is Su Wan, Su Ruoxuan, or Su Zin and Nan Shu, they put all their goodness on him, which put a lot of pressure on him. It is the most difficult to accept the favor of beautiful women, let alone so many of them. Sister Wonking will not be mentioned anymore. She is the angel in his life and his salvation. Su Ruoxuan is his wife, even if it was just a misunderstanding at the beginning. And Heiress is also his wife in another identity. He already has 3 women, which makes him a complete scumbag. He really didn't want to accept the friendship of Su Wan and others anymore. He felt that he was not worthy of it. In the eyes of others, he is completely hypocritical. But at least this is his current understanding. He grew up in a traditional family, and his ideas have never been about having many wives and concubines. His only thought is to build a career for himself and make his family proud of him, which is his greatest wish. This may be what is called a small pattern, but at least this is his current idea. Does he like Su-won? He liked it, he was sure of that, but he didn't think he was qualified to accept this relationship. When or I know you are tired. Can I rub your shoulders for you? Su-won interrupted Chu-ji. Chu-ji opened his mouth and nodded slightly. Su-won walked around behind Chu-ji, staring at him infatuatedly, and murmured in her heart, "As you are mine. I believed this from the beginning. No one can take you away from me, not even you." She reached out and touched Chu-ji's shoulder, as if she was touching a priceless treasure. I have to say that Su-won's massage skills are becoming more and more sophisticated. Chu-ji felt drowsy after a while. His head seemed to be buried in something soft, and he rubbed it unconsciously. Su-won looked at Chu-ji in her arms, her cheeks flushed. If other people, especially the subordinates of the Su family, saw this, they would probably be shocked that this ruthless and cruel enchantress of the Su family could actually have such a feminine side. It seemed as if he was afraid of waking Chu-ji up. Su-won just held Chu-ji's head gently without moving, and looked so cautious as if what she was holding was everything to her, her whole world. This was the scene Su Ryukshuan saw when she came back. "Is he asleep?" Su Ryukshuan asked. Su-won turned her head to look at Su Ryukshuan, then turned her head and set her gaze on Chu-ji. Su Ryukshuan raised her eyebrows, then shook her head and ignored her. She walked straight to Chu-ji, put her arms around his neck and laid him flat on the sofa. Su-won looked at Su Ryukshuan angrily, but did not dare to speak. Su Ryukshuan rolled her eyes at Su-won, then said, "Why don't you go cook? Do you want him to wake up hungry?" Su-won was startled and hurried into the kitchen. Among these women, apart from Nanshu, it seems that only the food she cooks is acceptable. Just as I was thinking about Nanshu, the door opened and Nanshu came back with food. Nanshu walked over to take a look at Chu-ji's peaceful sleeping face, and then walked into the kitchen in a happy mood. While Nanshu was cooking, Su-won asked Su Ryukshuan if she wanted to clean up the Zhao family completely. Su Ryukshuan looked at Chu-ji, who was sleeping on the sofa, then turned to look at Su-won and said, "Do you know why Aj wants to keep them? Why isn't it because Aj is too kind-hearted?" Su Ryukshuan said, "Aj is no longer the young boy he was before. How could he not know the principle of a desperate dog jumping over the wall? He kept those people because he was afraid that they would do something irrational out of desperation. Second, he wanted to go fishing. Fishing? Haha, have you heard of besieging a point and attacking its reinforcements?" Su Ryukshuan said. Su-won was stunned for a moment, then suddenly realized, "Are you saying that Aj has some ideas about the forces behind the Zhao family?" Su Ryukshuan said, "Yes, he wants to continue to bleed the forces behind the Zhao family. As long as the Zhao family is still valuable, Aj will not let them go." Su-won's eyes sparkled at this time. "So that's it. Aji is playing a big game." Su Ryukshuan said, "So don't underestimate Aji's ability. He just has a natural inferiority complex because of his family background. In fact, his ability is many times stronger than those young masters of big families." Nanshu walked to Chu-ji's side at this time. The possessed being grabbed Chu's ears and shook them. "Time to eat, lazy pig." "I'm not lazy," Chu-ji said in a daze. However, he did not have the confidence to say this, especially in front of Nanshu. Nanshu felt her heart melt when she saw Chu-ji's expression. "It's almost the end of the year. Who do you plan to take back this year?" Nanshu squatted down and looked at Chu-ji with a hint of longing in his eyes. But she knew that was unrealistic. "You want to come back with me?" Nanshu wanted to say something but stopped. "We have built a new house at home, thanks to someone's persistence. The house is very big and has many rooms. I think it can accommodate many people," said Chu-ji. Of course, that someone refers to his nominal wife, Su Ryukshuan. Nanshu said in a trembling voice, "Are you really going to take me back?" "Of course, but I have to think of a better reason." Chu-ji said distressedly, "It's hard to say. Just say it's an activity organized by the company to experience rural life. And then I can stay at your house, right?" Su-won said from the side. "That's great. Anyway, everyone in your family and the neighborhood knows that you are a big boss. No one will mind if you bring a few people back with you," Su Ryukshuan said. She was going to go anyway. As the daughter-in-law of the Chu family, how could she be left out of the trip home? Just when Chu-ji was discussing with several women how to get home, a plane landed at Jinghai Airport. A slim woman who looked heroic in a windbreaker walked out of the airport. As the woman walked out of the airport, she saw a familiar figure waiting by a car. "Dad," the woman said. Father Chin looked at the person in front of him and said, "It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back." The woman took off her sunglasses, revealing her beautiful face. It was the daughter of the Chin family, Chin Wanshu. Chapter 210, Zhang Heng is a little panicked. The car drove all the way towards Chin's villa. Chin Wanshu seemed a little silent sitting in the car. Father Chin sighed slightly when he saw this. "Are you thinking about Chu Ji?" Chin Wanshu suddenly came back to his senses, his eyes looking a little flustered. "No, why would you think so? He and I are both a thing of the past. You are my daughter, how could I not know what you are thinking? It's a pity that you two are not destined to be together after all." Chin's father sighed. Chin Wanshu clenched his fist and whispered, "How is he doing recently?" Father Chin said, "Very good, I believe you have heard something. He is not only the president of Lee's, but also owns 35% of Lee's shares. Not only that, he recently took over the Zhao family's assets. Now, if he wants, he can be the new wealthy family in Jinghai, and his power can surpass that of the Zhang family." Speaking of Chu Ji, Chin's father's tone was full of admiration. Chu Ji started from scratch and has had a smooth journey. There may be help from other people, but it is undeniable that Chu Ji's ability is second to none. His ability to handle problems calmly in times of crisis is amazing. The various development plans formulated have made accurate predictions about the future. It is precisely because of this that he was able to soar to the sky. Such a person is rare in life. It's a pity that he should have been able to enter Chin's family. Who could have thought that fate would play tricks on us? Zhang Heng's intervention caused the Chin family to completely lose contact with Chu Ji. Thinking of Zhang Heng, Chin's father couldn't help but frown again. Zhang Heng now goes to Chin's villa every day. He didn't say who he was going in to see. He just stood at the door holding flowers. Said he was asking for forgiveness. He did not say whose forgiveness he was asking for. But now the rumors are spreading again. That was the rumor between Zhang Heng and Chin Wanshu. That incident was widely reported at the time. Zhang Heng even claimed that he had had a relationship with Chin Wanshu. Although it was clarified in the end, people love gossip and they all think that what Zhang Heng said is true. Because Zhang Heng had produced evidence at that time. Even if Chu Ji clarified the misunderstanding later, others would still think that they were just helpers sent by the Chin family. Just like how the Su family views Chu Ji. Others would also take it for granted that Chin Wanshu would not be interested in Chu Ji. After all, Chu Ji is just a peasant. This is prejudice, but it is also human nature. Of course, Chin's father could stop Zhang Heng, but if he did so, outsiders would say that he was angry and embarrassed, which would only confirm what happened in the first place. The car arrived at the gate of the villa, and Father Su saw Zhang Heng. Chin Wanshu also saw Zhang Heng and her eyes narrowed slightly. Why is he here? Father Chin sighed and said, let's go in first." Zhang Heng watched the car pass by him. He did not go up to stop it, but just watched the car enter the villa quietly. "Chin Wanshu, you're finally back," Zhang Heng said. Returning to the villa, he looked at Chin Wanshu's puzzled eyes. Father Chin sighed and said, he was released early. Then Father Chin recounted Zhang Heng's story in detail. "He did it on purpose," Chin Wanshu said. "Of course I know this, but the other party didn't do anything excessive. I warned them several times, but it was useless. If we use force, it would show that we are guilty." Chin Wanshu said, "Will people not think so if you don't force yourself? Dad, you are too timid, housekeeper. Chase that guy away and don't let him appear at the door again." The old butler looked at Chin's father. Seeing Chin Wanshu's insistence, Chin's father nodded. The old butler went out. Zhang Heng was a little stunned at this time. He didn't expect that the usually gentle Chin Wanshu would drive him away as soon as she came back. Zhang Heng raised his lips slightly and said, "You are really cold-blooded and ruthless." Chin Wanshu watched Zhang Heng being driven away in the surveillance video with cold eyes. She always felt that Zhang Heng was planning something bad. What exactly does he want to do? Chin Wanshu frowned. Zhang Heng left and came to a bar. He sat casually at the bar. A person next to him was drinking at this time. Zhang Heng said to the man, Tusk, have you made up your mind? Do you want to cooperate with me?" Zhao Bo looked up at Zhang Heng with a hint of contempt in his eyes. "Why do you think I will agree to your request?" Zhang Heng said, "Because we have a common enemy." Zhao Bo said, "No, he is the enemy of my Zhao family. What your Zhang family does to him is your business. I will not care and will not get involved." Zhang Heng said, "I am very curious. It is beneficial for both of us to join forces. Why do you keep refusing?" Zhao Bo glanced at Zhang Heng with disdain, then walked away without looking back. Zhang Heng's face turned pale. He thought his chance had come, so he took the initiative to contact Zhao Bo, but Zhao Bo's attitude made him very annoyed. At this time, Zhao Bo walked out of the bar, looked back and said with contempt, "You think you can use me? You are worse than that idiot Zyro Han. I'd be crazy to be with someone who's into drugs. I'd be an idiot to even talk to you." Zhang Heng never imagined that something that he thought was foolproof would go wrong. It was a pity that he pretended to be an expert for a long time. If Chu Ji knew this, he would be laughed to death. Zhang Heng shook his head, shaking off the boring thoughts in his mind. "HMPH, even without you, I can still take down the Qin family," Zhang Heng said confidently. The next day, he came to the Qin family's door again. Still holding the flowers in his hands, he squinted his eyes and looked at the Qin family's gate. "Go and tell your young lady that I'm here to apologize and hope to speak to her in person." The guard looked at Zhang Heng, curled his lips, and then waved to the side. Two security guards walked out and drove Zhang Heng out without saying a word. Zhang Heng was stunned. This was different from what he expected. Do you really think he has a change of heart by sending flowers here these days? He just wanted to meet Qin Wanshu. He felt that the Qin family would definitely compromise and handle the matter in a low-key manner. This was his chance. But now it seems that this matter is completely different from what he expected. Qin Wanshu didn't even have the slightest intention of seeing him. In the villa, Qin Wanshu watched coldly as Zhang Heng was taken away. "I don't know what you want to do, but I won't give you any chances. As for the rumors outside, Humph, I won't be able to explain it until I meet you." "Zhang Heng, Zhang Heng, do you think I am still the same Qin Wanshu as before?" There was a hint of sarcasm on Qin Wanshu's beautiful face. This time Zhang Heng was really panicked. "Something is wrong. Why isn't things going the way I wanted?" "What went wrong?" Zhang Heng no longer had the aura that he had not long ago, that everything was under control. If others saw Zhang Heng's appearance, they would definitely sneer in disgust. "I thought he was a sinister, venomous snake hiding in a dark corner, but I didn't expect him to be a stink bug buried in the soil." Chapter 211, Obsessed. Zhang Heng would never have thought that the development of the matter was completely different from what he expected. Qin Wanshu could actually reject me so ruthlessly, without caring at all about the impact it would have on her. This was simply beyond his understanding of Qin Wanshu. Zhang Heng was driven far away. He looked at Qin's villa with a gloomy expression. "Humph, I won't let this go." A few days later, a rumor quietly spread again. That is, Qin Wanshu did have a relationship with Zhang Heng. After that incident, Qin Wanshu left Jinghai immediately, not because she was sad, but because she went abroad to have an abortion. In other words, Qin Wanshu was pregnant with Zhang Heng's child. For some people who didn't know what happened, considering how quickly Qin Wanshu left Jinghai, it was hard not to believe it. The Qin family naturally also got the news. Qin Wanshu almost exploded with anger after hearing this. She left Jinghai obviously because Chuzh rejected her, which made her a little disheartened. "It is so shameless that the other party used this incident to slander me." Qin Wanshu stood up and walked towards the door. She knew that Zhang Heng must have done it. But when he reached the door, he stopped. Then he sneered, turned around and walked back. Father Qin beside him asked in confusion, "Why are you back again? I thought you were going to settle the score with him." Qin Wanshu sneered, "If I go to argue with him, I will fall into his trap. Let others say whatever they want. I want to see what he can do." Father Qin shook his head slightly. Then he said, "There is a banquet this afternoon. Please follow me." "Do you want to introduce someone to me again?" "No," Qin Wanshu said. Father Qin said, "Look at you. You are already old enough and it's time for you to get married. Didn't Chu Ji marry Su Ruoxian?" Qin Wanshu's expression darkened when he heard this. Father Qin patted his forehead speechlessly and said, "Chu Ji may also come to this banquet." Qin Wanshu was stunned when he heard this and turned to look at his father. Chuzh finished his morning work. Nan Shu walked in at this time. "There is a banquet in the afternoon and you are invited. Will you go?" Nan Shu asked. As she spoke, she straightened Chu Ji's collar, acting naturally like an old couple. Su Zin also walked in and said, "Of course we have to go. This is not just a banquet. There may be some people introducing some high-tech projects during the banquet. If possible, we can also get involved." Since there was work, Chu Ji would not refuse. He nodded and said, "Okay, then let's get ready. Nan Shu can come with us." Nan Shu seemed very happy when he heard that. Chu Ji looked at Nan Shu lovingly. "This woman had been working with me from the very beginning, and my chain stores and factories were all run by her. She has worked very hard for me. I wanted to give her more shares, but she refused and was very unhappy. She asked why the division was so clear. Thinking of this, Chuji stretched out his finger and scratched Nan Shu's delicate nose. Nan Shu's face turned red with embarrassment, making her look particularly cute. Su Zin rolled her eyes and said, "You feel sorry for her, but not for me. I've been working so hard to build the factory, and you didn't even come over to show your support." Chuji said, "It's my fault. What do you say we should do? My legs are sore. Rub them for me." Su Zin sat on the sofa with her legs on the table, looking at Chuji with seductive eyes. Nan Shu curled his lips, turned around and walked out. Chuji said, "Okay, I'll rub it for you." Chuji put his hand on Su Zin's slender legs and kneaded them gently. Su Zin tilted her long neck and took a deep breath, her eyes filled with intoxication. Chuji didn't know that at this moment, Su Zin was squinting at him with a hint of cunning in her eyes. Soon it was time for the banquet. Chuji took Nan Shu and Su Zin to the banquet venue. As for Li Yao and Su Ruoxuan, the two women are acting mysteriously, and no one knows what they are doing. When he arrived at the banquet venue, Chuji saw Su's father at a glance. Now that Su Ruoxuan has left the Su family, Su Zi's abilities are limited. The Su family encountered the same incident again, and it can be said that they were seriously injured. For the future of the Su family, Su's father had to come out of retirement to take charge of the overall situation for the Su family. But Father Su is old after all, and his energy can't keep up. It has only been a short time, but Father Su looks older than before. "Uncle," Chuji came to Su's father and shouted. Father Su looked at Chuji and said with emotion, "You and Ruoxian are husband and wife. Are you still calling me uncle now?" Chuji was stunned for a moment, then said, "Dad." Father Su nodded slightly and said, I'll leave Ruoxian to you from now on." Looking at Su's father's hunched back, Chuji didn't know what to feel. Father Su looked at Chuji with mixed emotions. He only had 2 daughters in his life. Because of the special nature of her identity and different interests, Wanner did not take over the official work of the Su group, so he placed almost all his hopes on Su Ruoxuan. Naturally, the requirements for Su Ruoxuan are very high. He hoped that his son-in-law could help Ruoxuan take charge of the Su family. But at that time, Chuji was a college student who had not yet graduated, and he is from a rural background. He really didn't like Chuji at that time. If it weren't for Su Ruoxuan's insistence, he would have kicked Chuji out that day. It was only after Chuji showed his strength that he gradually began to appreciate Chuji. But Zairohan appeared at that time. The appearance of Zairohan made the relationship between Chuji and Su Ruoxuan increasingly tense, and they drifted further and further apart, eventually reaching the brink of divorce. His biggest mistake was hesitation. He did not stand firmly on Chuji's side. He even thought that their divorce might be a good thing. He could then look for a suitable son-in-law for his daughter, a son-in-law that he would be satisfied with. Why, in the final analysis, it was because of Chuji's background. He still felt that Chuji's background was too ordinary. Although I didn't say anything at the time, I subconsciously felt that Chuji was not even as good as Zairohan. How could I have such a thought? It's obvious that Chuji and Zairohan are nothing alike, but just because he was born a farmer, you think Chuji is worse than that duck Zairohan. Now that I think about it, it really doesn't make sense. If I have to use a word to describe it, it would be bewildered. Then came Zhao Bo, who almost satisfied all his fantasies about his future son-in-law. A person with a background that is not high, but not low, is originally an upper-class celebrity. He has certain abilities and can help his daughter manage the Su family. Although he is not as capable as Chuji, he thinks Zhao Bo is the right match for his daughter in every aspect. So at the beginning, he treated Zhao Bo and Chuji with completely different attitudes, and even publicly expressed his appreciation for Zhao Bo. These are treatments that Chuji has never received. So naturally, the Su family's people had 2 different attitudes towards Zhao Bo and Chuji. Even though Zhao Bo finally tricked them into signing the gambling agreement, they still believed that it was not Zhao Bo's fault. She even felt grateful that Zhao Bo was still willing to marry her daughter in order to save the Su family. If this isn't being possessed by a ghost, what is? Chapter 212, The Last Courage. Unfortunately, it's too late to say anything now. Chuji's current achievements have surpassed his, and he is no longer a person he can comment on. I am old and my eyes are blurry. I can't recognize gold and jade. I deserve this end. Fortunately, things did not reach the worst point. After all, Chuji was not Zairohan and Zhao Bo. He was still kind-hearted. The word dad could be considered as a way out for the Su family. After talking to Su's father, Chu Ji was pulled away by others. He is very popular now. The chip industry is on the right track. Now Su Ruoxuan and Li Yao from the Su family are planning to build a processing plant, specializing in the production of high-end electronic products, such as mobile phones. This is an electronic product with chips independently developed by the country, which is of extraordinary significance. The rise of the Li family, no, to be more precise. The rise of the Li family and the Chu family is just around the corner. Similarly, Nan Shu and Su Xin, Chu Ji's subordinates, are also very popular because they are in charge of part of Chu's industry respectively. There is no shortage of young talents who have ideas about Nan Shu and Su Xin. They came forward one after another to show their courtesy. Nan Shu didn't bother to deal with these people and followed Chu Ji closely. Wherever Chu Ji goes, she goes. Su Xin wanted to follow suit, but was stopped by Su's father. There was no choice but to deal with my uncle. Father Su looked at Su Xin and sighed in his heart. Su Xin's growth was amazing. From a rich girl who didn't know how to manage anything to the president of a group that manages 2 listed companies. Su Xin has demonstrated through her actions that her ability is no less than Su Ruoxuan's. All of this was brought about by Chu Ji. It was Chu Ji who patiently taught Su Xin how to manage a business. Now Su Ruoxuan has left the Su family because of the last incident and officially joined the Chu family. But Su Xin is still a member of the Su family. Zinner, have you ever thought about coming over to help your uncle? Su Zi's ability is limited, so he can only rely on Su Xin now. Uncle, you know I have my own property, Su Xin said. Of course, Su's father knew this, and he also knew that all of Su Xin's industries were tied to Chu Ji. No one would give up these industries unless they are foolish. Today, the market value of the entertainment and gaming companies surprised him. Su's father believed that in a few years, all the giants in the domestic gaming and entertainment industries would belong to Su Xin. Under such circumstances, how could she agree to return to Su's? Father Su said with a gloomy look, I'm just asking if you don't want to forget it. Su Xin is just her niece, not her daughter, so she can't force her. Su Xin looked at her father's hunched-over appearance and felt inexplicably sad. Su's father was also a prominent figure at the time, and he led the Su family through all difficulties and became a wealthy family. I have also enjoyed the benefits brought by Su's father. It would seem too cruel if I don't care about anything. Su Xin looked at Chu Ji and her eyes suddenly lit up. She seemed to have forgotten someone. That person is Li Qing. Anyone who is not a fool can see that Li Qing has feelings for Chu Ji. No one knew what happened between them, but Li Qing acted like she was Chu Ji's woman. Now only Chu Ji is still stupidly unaware of Li Qing's thoughts. She knew Li Qing's abilities, which were no weaker than hers. With Liu Jing helping out, it was easy to manage the 2 companies. In that case, why don't I hand over the company to Li Qing? She would go back to the Su family first. Maybe one day the Su family would become the Chu family. Even if it is impossible to turn the Su family into the Chu family, it can still help Chu Ji. Su Xin rolled his eyes when he thought of this, and then said, Uncle, I'm back to help you. Father Su was very surprised when he heard this. Soon Su's will welcome a new general manager, and perhaps in a few months she will become the new president of Su's. Just then, several people walked into the hotel. When they saw the person in the lead, the place suddenly became unusually quiet. I saw a woman walking in from the door, a beautiful woman, a woman who made all the lights here dim. Her face, her figure, and her temperament undoubtedly demonstrate her incomparable temperament. More importantly, this woman was Chu Ji's former white moonlight, Qin Wanshu. Chu Ji also turned his head and looked towards the gate. When he saw the familiar yet unfamiliar face, he seemed a little dazed. Qin Wanshu also saw that person in the crowd at a glance. Because he is so dazzling, the two looked at each other, and inexplicable feelings emerged in each other's eyes. Nan Shu, who was next to Chu Ji, looked at Qin Wanshu with amazement and worry. He was amazed at Qin Wanshu's beauty, and at the same time he looked at Chu Ji worriedly. Su Xin was also worried about Chu Ji, and she clenched her fists. She knew how destructive Bai Yueguang was, and she was afraid that Chu Ji would lose his composure. Chu Ji came back to his senses, and the turmoil in his heart had returned to calm. He walked up to Qin Wanshu and said, Wanshu, long time no see. He extended his hand to Wanshu, as if he was greeting an old friend. Qin Wanshu looked at Chu Ji's handsome and resolute face in front of her, and slowly stretched out her hand. No one noticed that her hands were shaking slightly. Chu Ji just gently held Qin Wanshu's hand, and then let go. Qin Wanshu's expression stiffened slightly. Chu Ji said with a smile, You didn't even call me after you came back. You don't take your old classmates seriously. Father Qin was watching all this behind Qin Wanshu and couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, Chu Ji finally let go of this relationship. Qin Wanshu looked at Chu Ji's calm face and said with a slightly trembling voice, "I thought Li Qing told you." Chu Ji slapped his forehead and said in annoyance, "Li Qing did say that. I forgot. It's my fault. How about I treat you to a meal some other day to make amends and also welcome you?" Qin Wanshu said, "Okay, then it's settled." At this time, Chu Ji saw Qin's father behind Qin Wanshu and hurried forward to greet him. Qin's father looked at Chu Ji and sighed in his heart that such a talented person was ultimately missed by the Qin family. Unlike Father Qin and Father Su, he never opposed Chu Ji's relationship with his daughter from the beginning, and through observation he knew that Chu Ji had good character and talents, and he really needed a live-in son-in-law, so he was very optimistic about Chu Ji. He would never look down on Chu Ji because of his background. On the contrary, the humbler Chu Ji's background, the more relaxed he became, because only in this way can he wholeheartedly help his daughter to manage the Qin family's business. But who could have thought that just when he was preparing to marry Chu Ji as his son-in-law after his daughter graduated, Zhang Heng suddenly appeared. It was so simple that Chu Ji broke up with his daughter. It would be fine if Zhang Heng had that strategy and ability, but Zhang Heng is just a little clever, and his character and ability are no match for Chu Ji. To be honest, if it weren't for the Zhang family, Zhang Heng wouldn't even have the chance to enter Jinghai University. Zhang Heng's grades were terrible during his studies. He was just there to get by. On the other hand, Chu Ji not only received scholarships every year, but also had a good business sense. The two of them simply could not be compared. The reason why Chu Ji let go was not because he didn't realize Zhang Heng's clumsy plan. It was because of his daughter's words, which seemed to make him lose the last bit of courage he had mustered. So in the final analysis, it was his daughter who pushed Chu Ji away with her own hands, even if she didn't mean to do it. But that sentence made Chu Ji realize the gap between the two sides. After that day, Chu Ji never did anything beyond friendship towards Qin Wanshu, not even once. Chapter 213 Hot Photos. Qin Wanshu was looking at Chu Ji, who was talking with his father at this time, with an inexplicable light flashing in his eyes. "As you are better than I thought," she murmured. As the banquet continued, outside the banquet, Zhang Heng looked at the hotel door with a gloomy expression. "Have you figured out what to do?" Zhang Heng sneered and said, "I will let everyone know that Qin Wanshu is a fickle woman. I will ruin her reputation. By then, Qin Wanshu will be notorious in the upper circle, so she will have to consider you again," said the man next to him. Zhang Heng said gloomily, "Yes, then she will have no choice." "Really, I hope your guess is correct," the man said. Zhang Heng was looking at the hotel's entrance and did not notice the sarcasm in the man's tone. "Zhao Bo, I heard that Su Ruoxuan also dumped you. Don't you want to go up and see how Chu Ji will react next?" Zhang Heng looked at the person next to him. The person who had made the agreement with Zhang Heng was Zhao Bo. Zhao Bo's face changed from gloomy to bright when he heard this. Zhang Heng continued, "Don't you want to see Chu Ji's expression when he finds out how his beloved Bai Yueguang was promiscuous abroad and even got pregnant? But those are fake. Haha, do you think those people at the banquet will care whether it is true or false?" Zhang Heng said insidiously. "Besides, there are many rich young men pursuing Qin Wanshu abroad. Who can guarantee that she is not a plaything in the bed of one of them?" Zhao Bo looked at Zhang Heng and said, "So you have a target to exploit. Of course, that man is a playboy, and he treats women as his trophies. He even shows off in front of his fiancée. If I use him, even if he knows, do you think he will care? He doesn't even know whether he had an affair with Qin Wanshu, and he even admits that he had had a relationship with Qin Wanshu. Do you think Qin Wanshu will be able to explain it clearly when the time comes?" At this time, Zhao Bo turned his head and looked at Zhang Heng with contempt in his eyes. The banquet at the hotel is still going on. Suddenly, the huge electronic screen behind the hotel podium lit up. Everyone looked at the screen, thinking it was some kind of show. But when one after another of the explicit photos of Qin Wanshu and a foreigner appeared, the room suddenly fell silent. "Simon," Chu Ji looked at the foreigner and uttered a name. Chu Ji narrowed his eyes as he looked at Qin Wanshu, who was hugging a flushed face as if she had just finished some exercise. At this time, Qin Wanshu also saw the photo, and his face turned pale. She felt her hands and feet were cold, and she felt completely hopeless. "No, no, no, none of this is true, this is all fake," she screamed. Chu Ji turned around and gave an order to someone next to him. The man quickly walked towards the backstage of the banquet control electronic screen. Chu looked at the screen and sighed speechlessly. It seemed that someone was trying to target Qin Wanshu. He could guess who that person was. The screen quickly turned black, and it was obvious that someone had interrupted the person behind him who was continuing to play the photos. Then Chu faintly heard the sound of glass breaking. After a while, the person he sent came back. Mr. Chu ran away. Did you see what that person looked like? No, the man was wearing a hat and we didn't see what he looked like, but he jumped from here to a platform downstairs. He must have been injured, said the man. Okay, I got it, Chu nodded. Father Qin's lips trembled at this time. He never imagined that someone would insult his daughter like this. Combined with some previous rumors, even if the Qin family had 1,000 mouths, they couldn't explain it. I didn't expect the Qin family's daughter to spend money like this. Isn't this normal? Didn't you play with Chu and the young master of the Zhang family? I heard that she was pregnant with the young master of the Zhang family. It seems to be true. Indeed, otherwise why would you leave the country in such a hurry? Have you had enough fun outside, and are back to find an honest person to take over? It's hard to say. Foreigners are always open-minded. Do you think Miss Qin can keep herself clean outside with her looks? That's right, you can tell at first glance that she's the type that attracts a lot of men. A woman who was jealous of Qin Wanshu's beauty took the opportunity to make a sarcastic remark. Qin Wanshu's body was shaky. Although these words were spoken quietly, she still heard them in the silent atmosphere. She felt that the world was full of malice towards her. Father Qin said angrily, "This is a false accusation. The photo is obviously fake. If I find out who did it, I will make him pay." Father Qin, who was always gentle, was completely furious this time. Chu stepped forward and said, "I also believe that Wanshu is not such a person. Everyone should not be deceived." "How can you be so sure?" someone asked. Chu looked calm, his eyes flickering, and no one knew what he was thinking. "Because I believe Wanshu is not that kind of person." Isn't this a bit too much to take for granted? You know, people can change. Especially in foreign countries influenced by the open atmosphere abroad, it seems that it is not impossible for them to do such things. Chu turned his head to look at the person who was talking, but he couldn't see clearly who it was. It is obvious that this person has ulterior motives and is probably the mastermind behind the scenes. At this time, someone said, "That man seems to be a famous playboy in Paris. It is said that he has more than 20 girlfriends. He has the habit of collecting beautiful women. Maybe Miss Qin is the one he is collecting." You have to know that the Simon family is a top wealthy family, and it is not comparable to the Qin family. Chu face darkened when he heard this. He naturally knew what kind of character Simon was, but he couldn't match it. If Qin Wanshu cannot clear his suspicion, he will have no chance of staying in Jinghai after today. Chu glanced at the pale Qin Wanshu, sighed slightly, and said, "I said it was fake. Of course it was fake. You should know the relationship between me and Wanshu." When he said this, Chu face turned slightly red. At this time, Qin Wanshu also came back to her senses. Chu words seemed to be her salvation, making her desire to die come back to life again. She looked at Chu her mentality recovered, and she no longer had that doomsday feeling she had just now. Looking at the slightly shy expression that flashed across Chu face, Qin Wanshu felt like her heart was melting. This man was still defending her at this time. He still has feelings for himself. Qin Wanshu thought silently. "Relationship? What kind of relationship is it? Could it be?" someone exclaimed. There was a fire of gossip in his eyes. The other's eyes also moved back and forth between Chu and Qin Wanshu, looking as if they were thinking about something. Chapter 214, Bold Qin Wanshu. At this time, everyone looked at Chu and Qin Wanshu with curiosity. Chu was also a little at a loss. Just like when he exposed those photos of Zhang Heng, he could tell at a glance that although the face of the woman on the screen was Qin Wanshu's, her body was not. Although he only took a casual glance that day, the scene was clearly imprinted in his mind. Qin Wanshu's chest was not the same as on the screen. Of course, after not seeing each other for a few years, he couldn't be sure that Qin Wanshu hadn't had plastic surgery. The reason why he said this was entirely to help Qin Wanshu out of trouble. He didn't care much about being misunderstood by others. Qin Wanshu suddenly took a step forward and attracted the attention of most people. She said, "I used to be Aj's girlfriend. Aj knows best what I look like. Do I have to ask him to explain it so clearly?" The place suddenly became quiet. Some of the women couldn't help but secretly spit, and their faces turned red. Qin Wanshu's words were extremely bold. They were equivalent to admitting that she had had a substantial relationship with Chu Ji, and not just once or twice. Chu Ji was also a little dumbfounded. Being speculated and admitting it yourself are two different things. What is Qin Wanshu trying to do? It doesn't matter for a man like me. But as a woman, how can she get married in the future if this happens? He wanted to explain, but when he saw Qin Wanshu's pleading eyes, he closed his mouth again. Nan Shu then said, Wanshu is really like that, isn't she afraid of not being able to get married? This is also true. All those young talents who were interested in Qin Wanshu just now retracted their unrealistic fantasies. At least on the surface, they didn't dare to get close to Qin Wanshu now. Qin Wanshu seemed to be relieved after saying this. She continued, My Qin family hasn't offended many people. I heard that someone was released from prison early, so it's normal for him to get revenge. But he wants to attack me based on just a few photos. He underestimates me too much. Qin Wanshu did not mention the man's name, but they had all heard about Zhang Heng going to Qin's house with flowers in his hands, and some had even seen it with their own eyes. Qin Wanshu's words clearly told them that the person who wanted to slander him was Zhang Heng. Everyone thought about it and felt that it was not surprising for Zhang Heng to do such a thing. After all, that guy had been out of prison not long ago. This is prejudice, but it is not when applied to Zhang Heng because he was the one who did it. Father Qin looked at his daughter speechlessly. What his daughter said had blocked his own way out. I was going to introduce him to someone, but now I don't have to, and I won't have to do that in the future. He didn't know if there would be anyone willing to want her in the future, except Chu Ji. Thinking of this, he felt angry at Zhang Heng for the first time. Zhang Heng, you really deserve to die. At this time, Zhang Heng covered his broken leg and looked at the hotel with resentment. He could have used his men for this operation, but he just wanted to see with his own eyes Chu Ji's expression when he saw the photo, and also wanted to see Qin Wanshu's desperate expression, as well as the pleasure of revenge with his own hands, so he did it himself. But he didn't expect Chu Ji to react so quickly. After the first photo appeared, he arranged for people to rush over. He could only escape in a hurry. He couldn't be caught. He didn't want to go to jail again even if he died. So he chose to jump out of the window, even if it was from a building more than 10 stories high. Fortunately, he knew there was a platform 2 floors below the window, so he did not fall to his death. But he also broke one of his legs. Chu Ji, Qin Wanshu, this is all thanks to you, just wait for me. Zhang Heng's resentful voice rang out. Not far away, Zhao Bo looked at Zhang Heng sarcastically. This person is really stupid, but stupidity can sometimes be an advantage, a very good advantage. The banquet is over. The results Zhang Heng wanted did not appear. On the contrary, his actions made Qin Wanshu take a big step towards Chu Ji. At least in the eyes of outsiders, Qin Wanshu is Chu Ji's woman. They were all wondering how Su Ruoxuan would react when she knew about this. Of course, there was a reaction. Su Ruoxuan was very angry, and as a result, Chu Ji came out that morning with his hands covering his waist. Of course, Su Ruoxuan was not much better. She didn't get up lazily until the evening of the next day. Looking at Su Ruoxuan who came out, Su Wan had a teasing look in her eyes. Su Ruoxian blushed slightly. Why are you still here? You dear wanted me to stay at home with you, Su Wan said. Su Ruoxuan's face turned red. It seemed that Su Wan had heard her screams. Su Ruoxuan rushed into the bathroom, covering her burning face. Chu Ji is reviewing documents. At this time, Li Qing walked into his office. Wanshu said you promised to welcome her home. You didn't forget it, did you? Chu Ji looked up at Li Qing. Now that Li Qing has taken over Su Zin's job, she is already a president at the same level as Nan Shu. Before he could say anything, there was a knock on the door and Cairo May walked in with documents in her arms. The twisting waist is full of charm. Boss, I heard a lot of gossip about you outside, said Cairo May. What news? Of course it's about the story of you and your white moonlight. Wow, very exciting. If it were written as a novel, it probably wouldn't pass the review, Cairo May said teasingly. But I don't believe what those people said about you. Would you like me to give you some pointers and teach you some tips? Chu Ji said speechlessly. Now I have become a big scumbag, right? Cairo May said. Well, that's right. It's simply what women desire and men envy. You have become their idol. Chu Ji nodded. Oh, the object of vomiting, I understand. Tusk Li Qing suddenly laughed. Cairo May also covered her mouth and chuckled. Fortunately, Chu Ji is a man. If this kind of romantic affair happened to a woman, it would probably cause a shock to their company. But for Chu Ji, this became a harmless matter. On the contrary, it is because of this that Chu Ji seems more real. Otherwise, It would seem too abnormal for him to achieve such success at such a young age. Chu Ji shrugged. I have always been self-aware. Chu Ji looked at Li Qing and asked, how is work going? Li Qing said, it's good. Su Jai is very capable in handling the gaming company's affairs, so I don't need to worry too much. Senior sister Liu Jing is also here at the entertainment company, so I don't have much work to do. Chu Ji nodded. Then he pondered for a moment and said, well, let's welcome Wan Shu tonight and invite senior sister and Su Jai, as well as other junior students from Jinghai. Li Qing nodded. Kairo Mei pouted beside her. You're not taking me with you. Chu Ji asked, do you want to go? Kairo Mei rolled her eyes at Chu Ji and said, come on, I won't make trouble anymore. Kairo Mei left the room with her waist twisted charmingly. Chu Ji shook his head. If Kairo Mei wanted to go, he would not refuse, but Kairo Mei knew her limits and would always consider him. It's really not appropriate for her, an outsider, to attend such a matter. Chapter 215, There is no if. At the Qin family, Qin Wanshu kept looking at the mobile phone next to him. She tactfully expressed her thoughts to Li Qing, and as her former best friend, Li Qing understood immediately. There should be news by now. The cell phone rings. Qin Wanshu quickly stepped forward and answered the phone. What did he say? Qin Wanshu asked. On the other end of the phone, Li Qing had a complicated look on her face. But at this time, he still smiled and said, he said that he will prepare a welcoming party for you tonight. I will send you the location later. Qin Wanshu was a little excited. Okay, I'll wait for your news. Li Qing hung up the phone and sat in her office with a wry smile on her face. Wanshu, what should I do? Li Qing murmured. Qin Wanshu hung up the phone and was so happy that she wanted to fly. He hurried to his closet to look for clothes. Qin's mother also walked into her room at this time. She was speechless when she saw Qin Wanshu humming a song with a sweet smile. Isn't this exactly how she looked when she first started dating Chu Ji? Mom, which one do you think looks best on me? Qin Wanshu gestured at the clothes on his body. Mother Qin sighed at this time and said, Wanshu, I want to say that he is married after all. Qin Wanshu was stunned when he heard this, and his face instantly fell. Yes, he is married. Seeing this, Qin's mother sighed helplessly. You can go to the party, but you have to keep a necessary distance from him. Of course, I'm not worried about this because Chu Ji is not that kind of person. He will keep a distance from you. I just hope you don't focus too much on him. Some people are missed once they are missed, just like spilled water or broken mirror. Maybe those words you said were unintentional at the beginning, but to someone who loves you deeply, those words are torture to him. The more someone loves you deeply, once he decides to let go, you really have no chance. Mom is telling you this so that you can be mentally prepared. Don't put too many fantasies on Chu Ji. You two are no longer suitable for each other. Qin's mother admired Chu Ji very much. If Chu Ji was divorced, she might not be so opposed. After all, it was her daughter's fault in the first place, and her daughter liked him so much. But now Chu Ji is married, and his wife is the daughter of the Su family, who is no worse than his own daughter in terms of ability, status, and appearance. How could Chu Ji divorce Su Ruoxuan in this situation? And their Qin family is also a famous family, so how could their daughter be a mistress? Although after the incident with the photos at the last banquet, I'm afraid no one in Jinghai would dare to propose marriage. But the Qin family can send Qin Wanshu abroad, and life abroad is also good. Mother Qin glanced at the depressed woman, sighed, stood up and left the room. Qin Wanshu stood there blankly, holding the clothes she had carefully selected in her hands. She clenched her palms tightly, her fingers turning white. Her eyes couldn't help but become hazy, as if she was remembering what happened in the past. The boy who only had himself in his eyes ran out to buy medicine for himself in the middle of the night. He just said that he had a poor appetite, and he personally learned how to cook stomach-nourishing porridge. She still remembered how he stood downstairs of her dormitory building, holding porridge on that bitterly cold evening. That boy whose eyes were full of me, I actually lost him. Tears rolled down Qin Wanshu's eyes. She wished time could go back to that time. If she could do it again, she would definitely tell those people loudly that she liked Chu Ji. She liked him very much, very much. Unfortunately, there is no if. Mother Qin returned to the living room at this time. Father Qin gave him an inquiring look. Mother Qin sighed and said, Aren't we being too cruel? There's nothing we can do. Chu Ji is already married after all. What can Wan Shu do? Become a mistress. Even if our Qin family is willing to do this, do you think Chu Ji will agree? Mother Qin shook her head and said, Chu Ji is just too good-natured. If he had a worse character, it would be fine. Nowadays, all the rich young men have a bunch of mistresses outside. Father Chin coughed awkwardly and said, "Aren't you just hitting everyone with the same stick?" "HMPH, really? Then tell me if there is one. Do you want me to find one for you?" Chin's mother looked at her husband with disdain. Father Chin coughed awkwardly and said, "I don't know what you mean." Mother Chin rolled her eyes as she watched Father Chin leave, and actually looked a little coquettish. When it was almost time to get off work in the afternoon, Chuji came to find Li Qing. "Li Qing, I want to pick up Wanshu, so I'll leave first. You can then call Wanner and the seniors to go to the restaurant together," Chuji said. Li Qing hesitated when she heard this. Chuji said, "There are some things I think I should talk to her alone." From Li Qing, he knew that Qin Wanshu might have some feelings for him, but he is already married. Even if he is not married, he still has sister Wonking. He and Qin Wanshu really became a thing of the past. He finally let go of that relationship, even though he felt like he had died at that time. But when he recovered, he found that he could let go of this relationship freely. Maybe it's because the pain is so severe that I've become numb. In his heart, Qin Wanshu has become a friend with special meaning. Li Qing looked at Chu Ji's indifferent expression, seeming to want to say something but stopping herself, and then could only sigh helplessly. This is Chu Ji. Sometimes she really wants Chu Ji to become a little bit bad, even just a little bit. "Aj, are you angry about that photo that day?" Li Qing asked. Chu Ji was stunned for a moment, frowning slightly. "To be honest, I'm not sure whether the photo is real or not. The reason why I defended her at the banquet was because I felt that she was not that kind of person. But whether the photo is fake or not, it doesn't really matter. After all, she and I have become a thing of the past. I have no right to interfere with her and what she wants to do in the future. I went to pick her up this time to find a chance to make things clear with her. We can be friends, we can be confidants, but that's all. It's impossible for her and I to be together. Some things are missed, and they are really missed." Chuj left. Cairo May also walked in at this time, and looking at Li Qing's gaze at Chu Ji, she smiled teasingly and said, "Are you wondering why he can't be a little bit mean?" Li Qing was shocked and her face turned red with shame. "I didn't." Cairo May covered her mouth and chuckled. "Someone has already stripped herself naked and put herself next to his mouth, but he didn't eat it. Do you think someone is very unwilling?" Chapter 216, Zhang Heng's Revenge. "Ah," Li Qing blushed. She accidentally said this when she and Cairo May were drunk. Unexpectedly, he became Cairo May's dark material for teasing himself. I guess with Cairo May's big mouth, all the women around Chu Ji knew about it, especially Su Ruoxuan. When she went to deliver materials to Chu Ji that night, Su Ruoxuan actually let her stay at her house, which was rare, and reserved a room for herself. The way she looked at herself was obviously different from that of others. Thinking of the scene at that time, Li Qing felt her legs go weak. Su Wan walked in at this time. "Where's Aj?" Li Qing said, "He went to pick up Wan Shu in advance." Su Wan frowned and asked, "Why didn't you bring security with you?" Li Qing was slightly stunned and said, "Maybe he has something to say to Wan Shu alone." Su Wan felt a little uneasy. At the gate of Qin's villa, Qin Wanshu walked briskly to the gate, stretching his long neck and looking at the road opposite. When Qin Wanshu heard that Chu Ji was coming to pick her up, she felt like her heart was beating fast. "The last time I had this feeling was when I met him in the library. It seemed that no one else could make her feel this way except him." And at this time, in a corner not far away, Zhang Heng's eyes lit up slightly as he watched Qin Wanshu walk out. Qin Wanshu is dressed particularly beautifully today. The graceful figure and flawless face made Zhang Heng a little dazed. After a few years, Qin Wanshu has become less immature and more charming, and her round and smooth figure is so perfect that it makes people jealous. Looking at Qin Wanshu at this moment, Zhang Heng murmured, "You are mine, you should be mine." His eyes were red, and his face was full of greed. He quickly straightened his clothes to make himself look more handsome. He took a deep breath and prepared to go out and say hello to Qin Wanshu. He felt that he should talk to Qin Wanshu. "As I took a step, I felt a sharp pain." He looked down at his legs, the pain sobering him up a little. Cold sweat trickled down his forehead, and his eyes turned resentful. "Chu Ji, very good, you are very good. I will make you live a life worse than death." After calming himself down, Zhang Heng endured the pain and tried to take another step. But at this moment, a Cullinan drove over from a distance. It quickly passed his position and stopped at Qin's gate. Zhang Heng was a little stunned, but when he saw the appearance of the person getting off the bus, his face became distorted with anger. "Chu Ji, it's you." He saw Chu Ji and Qin Wanshu talking about something. Qin Wanshu's cheeks were flushed, and her eyes had a charming smile. He saw Qin Wanshu reach out and grab Chu Ji's sleeve, shaking it slightly as if she was acting coquettishly. Looking at Qin Wanshu's hand grabbing Chu Ji's sleeve, Zhang Heng felt it was particularly irritating. "You damn woman, how could you do this? He already has a wife, don't you know? Bitch, you are a stinking bitch." He saw Li Qing get into Chu Ji's car. Then the car started and drove out of the community. Zhang Heng's distorted face looked particularly ferocious. He took out his cell phone and made a call. "Tell them to get ready." Chu Ji looked at Qin Wanshu, who was humming a song beside him, and seemed to want to say something, but stopped himself several times. The car was not moving fast. Finally, at a certain moment, Chu Ji said, "Wanshu, are you doing well abroad?" Qin Wanshu said, "Not good." Chu Ji was a little stunned. He didn't expect to get such an answer. "Why?" Chu Ji asked subconsciously. "Because someone has never called me once," Qin Wanshu said. Chu Ji looked slightly embarrassed, but he still pondered. "Wanshu, I was too naive and young at that time. I thought that as long as two people liked each other, they could overcome all difficulties. But later I found that the world is not like this. Liking someone is just a temporary passion. Behind liking someone is more boredom, more ordinariness, and more of the daily necessities of life. I apologize for the trouble I caused you. Don't feel like you owe me anything because I was willing to pay for it." Qin Wanshu listened to Chu Ji quietly, and her face turned pale, because she knew what Chu Ji would say next. She and Chu Ji knew each other and got to know each other well, and she knew Chu Ji's character very well. "Even though he still likes me now, he is a very responsible person. For the sake of his engagement, even if he doesn't want it, he will not have anything to do with me." This is Chu Ji, but she didn't want to hear what was said next. "Aj, please stop talking, okay? I beg you," Qin Wanshu said. "Next is the party you're hosting for me. You won't let me go in with a sad face, right?" Chu Ji was stunned, but he felt that he had expressed his thoughts, and Wanshu would surely understand, so it didn't matter whether he said it or not. At this moment, Chu Jeffa felt the car shake violently, followed by a spin. A harsh friction sound was heard. He turned his head to look outside and saw a truck coming straight towards him. Bang, this is the second collision. He saw the truck driver's sinister smile through the car window. Chu Ji thought to himself, "I was careless. I just don't know if it will be Zhao Bo or Zhang Heng who will take desperate measures this time." At this time, their car happened to be on the bridge, and there was a turbulent river below. Chu Ji's car fell towards the river. Boom, the vehicle plunged into the water. Just then Su Wan came over with her men. She brought people here because she was worried about Chu Ji, and she happened to see this scene. Su Wan's eyes were red with anger, and she almost fainted. "Catch them and interrogate them for me," Su Wan ordered. The train driver wanted to run away, but how could he escape? The cold river water made Chu Ji feel a little drowsy. Although their car fell into the river, they were not seriously injured because they were wearing seat belts. The moment the car fell into the river, Chu Ji unbuckled his seat belt. He also unbuckled Qin Wanshu's seat belt. The car door couldn't be opened, but the window was broken in the impact just now. The river water poured in. Chu Ji grabbed the frightened Qin Wanshu in his arms, then lifted her up and tried to drag her out of the window. But because they were now submerged, Qin Wanshu was struggling unconsciously, and Chu Ji tried to lift her out several times but failed. He felt his head was a little dizzy, but he still didn't give up. He exerted force again, lifted Qin Wanshu up and finally carried her out of the window. He then dragged Qin Wanshu towards the shore. Qin Wanshu regained his composure when his head emerged from the water. She looked at Chu Ji and found that Chu Ji's face was unusually pale. Chapter 217, I'm not a thief. As Qin Wanshu shouted, "Don't worry, we'll be fine." Chu Ji's words were as calm as ever, which made people feel refreshed and inexplicably at ease. But his voice seemed a little weak this time. Finally, Chu Ji saw the shore. His spirits lifted, and he swam desperately towards the shore. But although he clearly saw the river bank, it felt very, very far away from him. "Wanshu, I'm afraid I will have to break my promise this time," Chu Ji said. Qin Wanshu felt a bad feeling in his heart. "Aj, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me, let me go, don't care about me, let me go." Qin Wanshu struggled. She thought she was a burden to Chuj, but he didn't see that there was a wound on the other side of Chu Ji's head. "Wanshu, don't move, live well." Chu Ji finally reached the shore, and he struggled to carry Qin Wanshu to the shore. Qin Wanshu got ashore and turned to pull Chuj. "Aj, give me your hand." She looked at the river quietly, but there was no trace of Chu Ji. Aj, don't scare me, Aj. Aj, Qin Wanshu's shrill cry could be heard from far away. When Su Wan arrived, she only saw Qin Wanshu crying on the shore, and there was no sign of Chu Ji nearby. Su Wan's eyes went dark and she lost consciousness. At the same time, Yue led people to arrest Zhang Heng. The charge, hiring someone to kill someone, is intentional homicide. Moreover, Zhang Heng is still under probation, which makes his crime even more serious. Through interrogation, Yue followed the clues and found the criminal gang hiding on the border. They launched an attack on them and wiped out the enemy's lair in one fell swoop. Zhang Heng's cheap third uncle committed suicide. The thing he regretted most was recognizing Zhang Heng as his son. However, Zhang Heng sold him out without hesitation in order to save his life. How ridiculous. Zhang Heng was sentenced to life imprisonment, but he died in prison for no apparent reason a week later. Of course, this is a later story. When Chu Ji woke up, he looked a little dazed at the simple roof. This doesn't look like the roof of a house, but more like a cabin. Just as he was stunned, footsteps were heard nearby. Then Chu Ji saw a fat head appear in front of him. "Haha, Grandpa, this guy is awake." The person next to him looked at Chu Ji, who opened his eyes and turned his head and shouted outside. There was a sound of light footsteps, and an old man with short hair and gray hair but in good spirits appeared in Chu Ji's eyes. "It's a blessing to be alive. Haha, we just scooped it out with a net, and it was fed to the fish later." "Who are you?" Chu Ji spoke in a hoarse voice. "We are fishermen from nearby. We fished you out while fishing not long ago," said the fat-headed guy. "My name is Fat Fish, and this is my grandpa," Fathead continued. Chu Ji's eyes flickered with doubt. "Then who am I?" Fathead blinked, then looked at his grandfather and said, "Grandpa, he is a fool." The old man said, "He is not a fool. He just stayed in the water for too long. The lack of oxygen in his brain caused brain damage. Maybe he really has become a fool." The boat soon docked, and Chu Ji was able to sit up from the bed. Looking at Chu Ji, who looked like a normal person, the boy named Fatty asked, "Are you really stupid?" Chu Ji frowned and looked at him and said, "I feel like I forgot something, but you can't say I'm stupid." Fatty looked at Chu Ji in amazement when he heard this. "Then you have to think about it carefully. When we fished you out of the water, you had nothing on you except the clothes you were wearing. Where is this place?" "This is Jinwen," the boy replied. "Jinwen, where is Jinwen?" Tusk, you say you're not stupid, but you don't even know Jinwen." The young man looked at Chu Ji with pity. "Grandpa, how should we place him?" The young man looked at the old man next to him again. "Of course we should call the police and let them handle it," the old man said as a matter of course. Chu Ji did not object to this. He also urgently wanted to know who he was. The police arrived quickly. However, Chu Ji looked at these policemen with some confusion, because the police uniforms on them seemed a little unfamiliar. Of course, this was just his subconscious feeling. The police seemed to take this matter very seriously, and Chu Ji was also taken to the police station. Chu Ji stayed in the police station for 2 days. On the 3rd day, a police officer walked into his room. "Mr. Chu, your identity has been confirmed. Your original name is Chu Yuan, a native of Jinwen, and your home address is number 20 Xiangshan Road. There is no problem with your identity. You can go out." Chu Ji walked out of the room, and a police officer came forward and handed Chu Ji an ID. "This is the replacement certificate for you," said the police officer. Chu Ji expressed his gratitude and walked out of the police station. The first thing he should do is take a good shower and change his clothes, because he feels like he's stinking. But he felt his pocket, and it seemed that he had no money. Then he thought of Xiangshan Road, where he lived. But why does he feel like he has no impression of that place at all? Without money to take a taxi, Chu Ji could only walk towards Xiangshan Road. After asking along the way, I finally arrived at my doorstep in the evening. But he was a little dumbfounded when he saw the slightly desolate villa. The villa is not big, just like the houses that one family lives in the countryside. The exterior is nice, but through the gate I could see that the inside was overgrown with weeds, as if no one had lived there for a long time. "Is this my home? Why don't I have any impression of it?" Chu Ji felt a headache. "There is no key." Chu Ji was a little blind. He looked around and saw a stone next to him. Chu Ji bent down, picked up the stone, weighed it in his hand, and then smashed it against the lock on the door. Bang, the sound was heard from far away. Just as Chu Ji was struggling with the door lock, a cry of surprise rang out. "There's a thief!" The exclamation came from behind. Chu Ji turned his head and saw a wooden stick appear in front of him. With a clang, the wooden stick hit his head. Before Chu Ji fell into coma, he seemed to see a woman wearing sportswear and a ponytail. "What bad luck," he muttered. "When I woke up again, I felt like I was in the hospital." He turned his head to the side and saw the woman who hit him with a club. The woman looked embarrassed. "Well, you're awake." Chu Ji rolled his eyes. "Isn't it obvious?" The woman was somewhat at a loss and said, I thought you were a thief, so. The good thing is that we have found out everything is fine, so we will leave now, someone said next to him. Chuji saw two policemen. The woman called the police, and when the police arrived, they quickly confirmed Chuji's identity because Chuji had just left them not long ago. Chapter 218, I beat him silly. The woman said at this time, "Okay, thank you for your help. I was wrong this time. I will make it up to you. Just talk to the person involved and try to get his forgiveness." The policeman shook his head speechlessly and left. "I didn't expect that you really were the owner of that house. I thought the house was abandoned." The woman returned to his bedside again. "Gurgle," Chuji's stomach protested. The woman covered her mouth and chuckled. "I'll buy you something to eat." Chuji shook his head speechlessly, stood up and found that he was wearing a hospital gown. The woman came back after a while, holding a lunch box in his hand. Chuji was not polite either, as he hadn't eaten for more than a day. The woman said, "I was wrong this time. If you need anything, just ask." Chuji said, "No, I'm fine. Just pay the hospital bills. Also, where are my clothes?" "Your clothes are all smelly. I bought you a new set. I'll give it to you," said the woman. Chuji didn't say much to the woman. After all, the woman just meant well but did bad things. Chuji felt that the most urgent task was to find a job as soon as possible. "But I don't know anything, not even my academic qualifications. So I have to wait for someone to want me to apply for the job." After simply saying a few perfunctory words to the woman, Chuji thought about leaving. The woman wanted to give him money, but he refused to take it because she had no cash. Chuji walked out of the hospital. There was no response to the woman's shouts behind him. The woman looked at Chuji, who was walking away, and stamped her feet. The fullness of her breasts swayed in a way that made people linger. The man had a stern look on his face. "Damn it, if it wasn't because I misunderstood, I would have been nice to you. Why don't you ask me when I, Chen Zixiu, have ever bowed my head to someone?" At this time, a person who looked like a secretary came over to the woman. "Mr. Chen, we checked, and he is indeed the owner of the house. At least that's what the information shows. His name is Chu Yuan, and we can't find out anything else." The woman raised an eyebrow. "Really? He really is a strange person." The woman was about to leave, but when she looked up, she found Chu Ji standing in front of her again. His tall body gave her a feeling of oppression. "Are you my neighbor?" Chu Ji asked. "That's right," Chu Ji said. "Then do you know who I am? Also, do I have any family?" Chen Zixiu was stunned when she heard this. "Forget it, you probably don't know." Chu Ji thought if the other party knew, he would not hit him with a stick. Looking at Chu Ji's back, Chen Zixiu said to the people around her, "Go, follow him." Chu Ji didn't know that he was being followed. Walking aimlessly along the street, he felt that he should find a job. "Otherwise, I wouldn't know where to get my next meal." He definitely can't go to a big company. How could they hire someone like him who has no education and no experience? Just when I was worrying about it, I saw a job advertisement posted at the door of a bar next door. Chu Ji's eyes lit up. At the same time, the people who followed Chu Ji also went back to report to the woman. Chen Group and office. Chen Zixiu was a little surprised and asked, "He is looking for a job now?" He went to a bar. "Yes, Mr. Chen," the man replied. "Okay, I get it. Tell me the name of the bar and you can go down," said the woman. Not long after the man went downstairs, the door was pushed open again. A charming woman walked in. "Ziu Ziu, I heard that you did something big today." Chen Zixiu said speechlessly, "Why, are you here to laugh at me?" "No, but it's really shocking that you personally sent a strange man to the hospital. When did our Zixiu treat a man so well?" "Don't be sarcastic. I misunderstood him and thought he was a thief. I hit him without mercy, but it seems like he was stunned by my beating," said Chen Zixiu. "Oh my God, did you beat him silly?" The enchanting woman covered her sexy lips in surprise. "It seems so. He actually asked me if I knew him and if I knew his family. If he was in a clear mind, why would he ask such strange questions?" Chen Zixiu said. Tusk Zixiu, you're done. You beat him into a fool. His rest of life will be ruined by you," said the woman. Chen Zixiu seemed a little anxious when she heard this. "I didn't do it on purpose." Who asked him to sneakily smash the door lock? The woman said, but it looked like he was smashing the lock of his own door. Chen Zixiu paused slightly. Just then, there was a commotion outside the office. Chen Zixiu saw through the transparent glass a handsome young man with a warm smile walking towards the president's office next door. Looking at the young man, Chen Zixiu showed admiration on her face, but it was soon replaced by deep jealousy. The look in the president's office also became angry. "He comes to see your sister again? Zixiu, haven't you given up yet?" The woman next to Chen Zixiu said with emotion. Why should I give up? Why do all the good things belong to her? I don't accept it, Chen Zixiu said fiercely. Her pretty face was distorted with anger. The woman next to him shook her head slightly. It really is a bad fate. Not to mention how Chen Zixiu was jealous of her sister. Chu Ji also breathed a sigh of relief when he found a job. I worked for 2 days, received 2 days' wages, and bought some things. When he arrived at the seaside, he found the boat that had saved him. As soon as I got on the boat with the gifts, I saw the fat fish. Fat fish, Chu Ji shouted. Hey, why are you back? Didn't you find your family? Are you an orphan? Fat fish said. Chu Ji laughed and said, I found my home, but I didn't find my family. I really don't know if I am an orphan. Fatty fish asked, so what are you going to do? I've found a job that can support myself, and I'll take care of the rest later. I can't remember anything about the past, so it's useless to say anything. Cough, 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 a cough sounded. An old man walked over from the cabin. Fatty fish hurried forward to help. Chu Ji felt that the old man was much less energetic than he was 2 days ago. The old man asked, Kid, I just heard you say you found your home. Yes, but I didn't find my family, and I don't know where they are now. Chu Ji looked at the old man's pale face and frowned. Old man, you don't look well. You should go to the hospital for a checkup. The old man said, No, I know my body well, no need for inspection. The fat fish next to him seemed to be hesitant to speak. Chu Ji raised his eyebrows. Is there any inside story here? Chu Ji found an opportunity to pull Fatty aside and asked, Fat fish, tell me, is life at home difficult? Fatty fish said with a sad face, Grandma is in the hospital and it costs a lot of money every day. Grandpa doesn't dare to rest even when he is sick. I can't help at all. Fatty was about to cry as he spoke. Chu Ji frowned. Don't worry about the money, I will find a way, said Chu Ji. Chapter 219, Start Over Again. Although he didn't remember anything, his innate kindness prevented him from sitting idly by. And the other party is his savior, so he will not ignore it just for this reason. Jinghai Qin's family, Qin's father received a document. It was sent from Jinhai. As a medical family, the Qin family has cooperated with hospitals in many countries. This is the Qin family's foundation. The hospital in Jinhai happens to have a cooperation with Yekenshi. Whenever the hospital encounters a problem that cannot be solved, or a rare and difficult disease, they will contact Qin to see if Qin has a suitable treatment method. This time, the other party sent an email to Qin. Obviously, he encountered a problem. Brain damage and amnesia is a good topic. I'll go look up some information. Father Qin rubbed his forehead, went to the next room, and knocked on the door. Wanshu, can I come in? At this time, Qin's mother also came over, glanced at Qin's father, and said, Why are you disturbing her? Father Qin said, It's not a good idea to keep going like this. She won't eat or drink. What's become of her? If I hadn't intervened in time, she would have collapsed in anger. Then why are you bothering her? Isn't that annoying? Oh, there's a case reported from Jinwen about amnesia caused by brain damage. I seem to remember that there's a record of it in the book that the old man gave Wanshu. I want to take a look. Mother Qin shook her head and opened the door. Qin Wanshu was sitting on the bed, quietly stroking a photo. That was one of the few photos of her and Chu Ji. Seeing this, Qin's mother hesitated to speak. Finally, he sighed helplessly. Father Qin also shook his head slightly. Thinking of how Qin Wanshu was so angry that he vomited blood and almost fainted, he was still frightened. He never imagined that Chu Ji meant so much to her. If the 2 old guys weren't still alive, Qin Wanshu would probably have followed Chu Ji, right? Father Qin sighed, put the information in his hand aside, and then went to look through Qin Wanshu's bookshelf. At this moment, Qin Wanshu's eyes inadvertently fell on the case. Words like falling into water, lack of oxygen, amnesia come into view. More importantly, she saw a profile photo of the patient. Qin Wanshu's dull and scattered gaze gradually focused. I want to go to Jinwen, Qin Wanshu suddenly said. Qin's father and mother stopped their actions abruptly, and then looked at Qin Wanshu together. Maybe God is letting me start over again. A few more days passed, and Chu Ji finally found some time. He plans to go to the hospital to visit Fatty's grandmother. When Chu Ji arrived at the hospital and saw Fatty Yu's grandmother, he was slightly stunned. He didn't know why, but when he looked at the old lady, he felt inexplicably close to her. He felt that he should also have a grandmother. The old lady has kind eyes and an elegant temperament. She doesn't feel like an ordinary old person. It was just because of the illness that she looked a little haggard at this moment. Seeing Fat Yu's grandmother lying on the hospital bed, he felt inexplicably anxious. He felt that he had had this feeling before, and it seemed to be because of his grandmother. Does he have a grandmother? He doesn't know, but why does this feel so familiar? Can I call you Grandma from now on? Chuji asked Fatty use Grandma. My child, you seem to be a good and kind child, but Grandma has cancer and is dying. I dare not accept your calling me Grandma. Whether you recognize it or not, I will treat you as my grandmother. Don't worry, I will collect enough medical expenses, said Chuji. Silly child, why are you doing this? You and I are not related at all. Won't you be laughed at if you do this? The old lady's eyes were kind, but with a slight reproach. At my age, others would not even have time to hide, but you still keep coming forward. How can a poor old woman like me deserve to be treated like this? Others will really laugh at you. Chuji tilted his head slightly, not understanding why he was being laughed at. He just felt a familiar aura from this old woman, as if he had dreamed of an old woman like her countless times. That feeling really couldn't be expressed in words. He just subconsciously didn't want the old man in front of him to die. And the feeling is so strong. Chuji certainly didn't know at this time that he saw the shadow of his own grandmother in the old man in front of him. The same kind eyes, the same caring attitude towards him. He forgot everything, but some family ties will not fade because of forgetting, but will only become stronger with the passage of time. After leaving the hospital, Fatty looked at Chuji and said, "Then you will be my brother from now on, right?" "You can call me brother, my name is Chu Yuan," said Chuji. "Brother Yuan," Fatty called out. Chuji patted Fatty Fish on the shoulder. "What's your real name?" "My name is Chen Killy, brother." "Killy, okay, I'll remember that. You go back, I'm going to work and try to earn more money." Looking at Chuji's leaving back, Fatty, also known as Chen Killy, stood there for a long time without moving. Chen Killy was about to leave, but before he had gone far, he saw a middle-aged man being chased by two thugs in the alley next to him. The middle-aged man was covered in blood. Chen Killy frowned, then he rushed forward. "What's your name, kid? Do you want to follow me?" "Don't worry, follow me, and I promise to make sure you have everything you need." Chen Killy looked at the middle-aged man and said, "Do you want me to recognize you as my big brother?" "Yes, boy, you are quite strong. I need someone like you." "Okay, I'll follow you," said Chen Killy. Chuji finished his part-time job for the day and left the bar exhausted. This is his third part-time job. Seeing that it was already past 1 in the morning, he had to go back and rest as he had work to do tomorrow. He was stopped just a few steps out of the bar. He was stopped by 3 women. 3 drunk women. "Handsome boy, it's still early. Why are you going back so early?" One of the women with curly hair spoke up. She has the best figure among the 3, and this woman gave him a sense of familiarity. And the woman looked at Chuji with a hint of cunning in her eyes. Chuji has seen many beautiful girls in the bar these days, but there are not many of them with a grain bag as big as his. The face is also good-looking, at least not ugly. "Sorry, my work is over and I have to go back now," Chuji said as he walked to the side. He didn't want to get entangled with these crazy women, especially the woman with curly hair in the middle. She doesn't look like a good person. However, he felt that the other person was somewhat familiar, but he just couldn't remember who the other person was. After taking a few steps, his clothes were pulled. Chuji frowned, turned his head, and saw the curly-haired woman pulling his clothes. "Did I let you go?" The woman suddenly became angry. Chuji was a little confused. It seemed like he didn't say anything. "So, did I let you go?" The other 2 women next to the curly-haired woman also gathered around. Chapter 220, It's Over. People around saw this scene, and some were whistling. But no one came forward. Most people just came to watch the joke. Chuji said helplessly, "Ladies, please let me go. My work for today is really over. I need to go back and rest." The woman who was holding Chuji's clothes sneered and said, "You just want money, right? I'll give you money and you can play with the sisters today." Chuji frowned. The curly-haired woman said in a condescending tone, "As long as you accompany the sisters well, I will give you 10,000. "Ha, handsome boy, it's your blessing that the sisters like you. Don't be ungrateful." The 2 women next to him also spoke. There was some disgust in Chuji's eyes. "I'm sorry, I really don't have time today." Chuji pushed away a few women and started walking again. The women were also stubborn, maybe because they were really drunk. They actually grabbed Chuji again, and they started pushing and shoving each other. Soon the commotion attracted the attention of the bar security. After all, this is at the door of the bar. The riots also affected bar business. A security guard came over at this time, and his expression changed when he saw the women. It was obvious that he knew these women. The security guard said to the curly-haired woman, "Ms. Chen, Aj is not a public relations officer. Besides, he is off work today. How about I tell the manager to make other arrangements for you? The curly-haired woman glanced at the security guard and said, "Why are you meddling in this? Do you believe that if you say one more word, I will close this bar down?" The security guard stopped talking. "If my bar goes bankrupt, my boss will drown me." He did not doubt whether the woman in front of him could do it, and thought that she really had the ability. The security guard was helpless and gave Chu-ji a helpless look. Several women refused to give in. Chu-ji was becoming more and more annoyed, and things were about to get out of hand. The security guard stepped forward again and said to the woman, "Ms. Chen, let me have a word with Ash." "You can't let him go," the wavy-haired woman said. I dare not," the security guard said hurriedly. "If he messes with this person, he will have a hard time." The security guard pulled Chu-ji aside and whispered, "Ash, isn't your grandma going to have surgery? The surgery should cost a lot, right? I think it wouldn't be a bad idea for you to have a few drinks with Miss Chen. Grandma's illness is more important." After saying that, he patted Chu-ji on the shoulder and left. Chu-ji also stood there in a daze. "My persistence for Grandma is nothing. 100,000. If you accompany your sisters well, I will give you 100,000. I will give it to you now. Add my friends and I will transfer it to you." The curly-haired woman, Miss Chen, spoke at this time. 100,000. And Grandma's surgery cost also 100,000. Chu-ji took a deep breath, turned his head and looked at Miss Chen and said, "Okay." Miss Chen gave a sarcastic smile. Chu-ji returned to the bar again. "Just now I was a waiter, now I am a consumer." In a private room in the bar, several women were singing in a howling voice. Chu-ji was drinking with them. Unlike other male PR guys, Chu-ji didn't want to say a word. Just drink, but he underestimated the boldness of these women. They actually touched him. One of them even reached his hand into an unspeakable place and let out a cry of surprise. He looked like he had never seen the world. Then the woman's body seemed to be stuck to Chu-ji. If the curly-haired woman hadn't pushed the other woman away, Chu-ji would have been furious. That Miss Chen was particularly crazy and actually asked Chu-ji to drink his imported wine. Chu-ji felt disgusted and firmly disagreed. At this time, Miss Chen slapped Chu-ji in the face and said, "Li Yunfeng, tell me, how can I be unworthy of you? How dare you dump me?" Chu-ji rolled his eyes and said, "I'm not Li Yunfeng. You are. Miss Chen picked up a wine glass on the table with one hand and took a sip. Then he held Chu-ji's head with both hands and poured the wine into Chu-ji's mouth. The two women next to them suddenly stopped talking and stared at Chu-ji. Miss Chen and Chu-ji going crazy. Chu-ji wanted to slap the woman away, but after thinking about it, he held back because he had taken the money. The moment he took the money, at least today he had no dignity in front of these women. After drinking 2 glasses of wine in a row, Chu-ji felt a little dizzy. The scenes around me began to become unreal. Ziu, why don't you just forget it? Just do it for fun. It won't be good if you take it seriously," a woman next to her said. The curly-haired woman said, "No, he actually dared to reject me. What right does he have to reject me? What qualifications does he have to reject me?" Then Chu-ji was forced to drink 2 more cups, and he could hardly hold on any longer. He didn't know how long it had been, but he vaguely saw the 3 women leave. Chu-ji breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, he had dealt with it, but he seemed to have overthought it. Miss Chen left but came back after a while. She seemed to be able to drink well and walk freely. Chu-ji seemed to hear vaguely what the other party was saying. "Pretending not to know me. Am I really that mediocre? Even a fool like you doesn't take me seriously." Then he seemed to be carried out of the room and the bar by Miss Chen. He felt something was wrong and tried to struggle, but it was no use. He didn't know how long it had been before he lay on a soft bed in a daze. Then he felt a fragrant and soft body on top of him. Perhaps it was the influence of alcohol that brought out the dark side of his heart and ignited his anger. Then he rolled over and pressed the body under him. I let out all the suppressed emotions in my heart these days. There were strong winds, heavy rains, and rough waves. For a long time, after an unknown amount of time, Chu-ji finally opened his eyes. What came into view was an unfamiliar room. He sat up suddenly. Yesterday's memories gradually emerged in his mind. His heart skipped a beat. It was over. Chu-ji hurriedly got up, put on his clothes, walked out of the bedroom and came to the living room. The living room is large and tidy. Big TV, expensive sofa. What's more important is the expensive-looking famous paintings hanging on the walls. There was a photo of Miss Chen on the table next to her. Miss Chen in the photo is very pure and beautiful. The oval face, willow-shaped eyebrows, Plump and round red lips and skin as white as a peeled egg all show that Miss Chen is a rare beauty. Chu Ji frowned. He didn't know what was going to happen next. And he still felt as if he had seen her somewhere. At this time, the sound of the door unlocking was heard, and the door opened. Chu Ji's heart also tightened for a moment. Sure enough, Miss Chen walked in. She looked much more dignified today than she did yesterday, without that unruly look she had yesterday. She looks more beautiful and mature than in the photo, with a hint of charm still lingering between her brows. The woman looked up at the living room and met Chu Ji's eyes. Chapter 221, New Job. Chu Ji suddenly remembered at this moment. Wasn't this woman the one who hit him with a club? Chu Ji didn't see any anger in the woman's eyes, which made him relieved. My name is Chen Zixiu. Chen Zixiu spoke first. As she spoke, her eyes inadvertently looked towards the bedroom. The bedroom door was not closed. I don't know what Chen Zixiu saw, but her face turned red, which was rare. However, the nervous Chu Ji did not pay attention to this. My name is Chu Yuan. I know. Chen Zixiu sat on the sofa with her legs crossed, looking Chu Ji up and down. You worked really hard yesterday. Chen Zixiu's words sounded casual. He looks like a veteran in love affairs. But no one noticed that Chen Zixiu's fingers were trembling slightly, and it was obvious that she was just pretending. Chu Ji was slightly embarrassed when he heard this. He didn't mean to shirk his responsibility. He just felt a little uncomfortable. He didn't know how many people Chen Zixiu had done the same with, but he felt that he was not the first and would probably not be the last. Since you've worked so hard and have good skills, I'll sign this. Chen Zixiu placed a contract in front of Chu Ji. Is this a marriage agreement? Chu Ji was a little surprised when he saw the contents of the contract. What, are you surprised? Don't you want to take responsibility? Chen Zixiu's aura became gloomy, and she stared at Chu Ji with cold eyes. Chu Ji saw a hint of anger in Chen Zixiu's eyes. Chu Ji sighed helplessly and compromised. He had to compromise for his grandma. Although he knew that Chen Zixiu was not his type, and he hated her lifestyle, he had no way out when things had come to this point. His intuition told him that Chen Zixiu might not be a good person. She can really do some despicable things. He picked up the pen and signed the contract. Chu Ji said, I know I am not qualified to ask you for conditions, but I hope you can keep some things from me. Chen Zixiu watched Chu Ji sign, and the ferocity in her eyes disappeared. What do you mean? I know you have someone you like. What I mean is, since I signed the contract, we are nominally husband and wife. I hope you can give me a little respect. Don't bring that person in front of me to humiliate me. Or if you find someone better, please terminate our relationship immediately. Chu Ji simply made things clear. Chen Zixiu asked, Do you think you are qualified to make conditions? Chu Ji fell silent upon hearing this, his face gloomy. I know, he said. He is indeed not in a position to negotiate terms now. But if I sign this agreement, I'm afraid I'll become the other party's slave. Is it just because you refused? Chu Ji finally signed his name, Chu Yuan. Looking at Chu Ji's calligraphy, Chen Zixiu showed a hint of appreciation in her eyes. Which school did you graduate from? I can't remember, said Chu Ji. Chen Zixiu said, I almost forgot that you don't remember anything now. Chu Ji said, I have signed the agreement, but can we postpone the marriage? Because I don't even know if I have any family. Okay, but I want to emphasize that whether to get the certificate is up to me, not you. If I think you're annoying, I can terminate the agreement at any time, said Chen Zixiu. Also, quit all your part-time jobs immediately. All your job from now on will be to pick me up from get off work and cook for me. If you don't know how to do it, learn it. Chen Zixiu's tone was still condescending. Chu Ji frowned and said, Aren't you a little too overbearing? What, are you against me? You should know the consequences of angering me. Chen Zixiu snorted coldly. Chu Ji was speechless. This is 1 month's living expenses. If it's not enough, come back to me. Chu Ji received a transfer message on his mobile phone. It was for 200,000. Chu Ji frowned, his eyes somewhat displeased. He really didn't like Chen Zixiu's bossy attitude. But it seems that I have no right to do anything to Chen Zixiu now. I took her money and slept with her. Why am I still pretending to be so noble? Putting aside his worries, Chu Ji sighed and made a phone call. Brother Liu, I won't go to the bar today. Yes, I won't go there in the future. Sorry. After hanging up the phone, Chu Ji got up and went to the vegetable market. Once you get the money, you have to do the job. Chen Zixiu had already left the room, apparently going to work. After buying groceries, Chu Ji returned to Chen Zixiu's residence. This place is in the city center, and every inch of land is valuable. Chen Zixiu can afford such a big house here, which shows that she is very rich. When he arrived at the door of the room, he found it closed. Chu Ji sighed. It seemed that he could not get in. Give Chen Zixiu a call. Chen Zixiu answered the phone. She seemed to be in a meeting and sounded impatient. I can't get into the house, Chu Ji asked. Chen Zixiu said, your index finger fingerprint. Then the call was hung up. Chu Ji was slightly stunned. When had he ever entered his fingerprints here? With a try-it attitude, he tried the index finger of his right hand. With a beep, the door opened. Chu Ji's cold face was a little stunned. When did she collect her own fingerprints? Chu Ji suddenly remembered the crazy scene he and Chen Zixiu had here. Did he collect my fingerprints at that time? If I didn't agree to his request, she would probably send me to jail, right? Chu Ji smiled bitterly. As expected, the consequences of offending her were somewhat bad. This could be considered a warning to him. Chu Ji shook his head, getting rid of the discomfort in his heart. He had no right to express his dissatisfaction. He also knows how to cook. After putting the purchased vegetables into the refrigerator, he passed by the table next to him and saw a medicine bottle, which seemed to be for treating stomach problems. Chu Ji thought about it and made some stomach-nourishing porridge. He remembered the recipe of this porridge very clearly, but he just couldn't remember where he got it from. Rubbing his swollen forehead, Chu Ji entered the kitchen. Chen Zixiu said she would be home around 6 o'clock, so Chu Ji calculated the time and started cooking. I just made a few home-cooked dishes and some stomach-nourishing porridge. He also wrote down how much money he spent today in a notebook. He wouldn't ask Chen Zixiu for a penny more. Chen Zixiu came back at around 6:10. There was a cold look on his face, and he looked very gloomy. Damn it, Chen Yi, why do they all like you? I am not their biological child. Just wait for me, I will not let you have an easy time. I will make sure you a bitch pay the price. Chen Zixiu was a little hysterical. She suddenly picked up a vase from the shoe cabinet and smashed it to the ground. Just then a hand reached out and caught the vase steadily. It's so troublesome to clean up after it's broken. Chu Ji's cold and calm voice sounded. Chapter 222, Have you been to Jinghai? Chen Zixiu was slightly stunned and glanced at Chu Ji. Chu Ji looked at Chen Zixiu with a firm gaze. The gloom in Chen Zixiu's eyes dissipated a little. If someone knew Chen Zixiu, they would definitely exclaim that it was impossible. The irritable Chen Zixiu is very scary. Unless she is allowed to vent her anger, how can she be persuaded to calm down with just one sentence? But now Chu Ji actually did it. Chu Ji said at this time, the meal is ready, let's talk after dinner if you have anything to say. Chu Ji reached out and took the bag from Chen Zixiu's hand, put the bag on the shoe cabinet, and took out a pair of slippers. Chen Zixiu snorted coldly, put on her slippers, and walked in. After washing her hands, Chen Zixiu sat on the chair next to the dining table. She was slightly stunned when she saw the two delicate and fragrant dishes in front of her. Then he looked at Chu Ji suspiciously. Chu Ji said, just make it casually, try it, and I'll serve you a bowl of porridge. Chu Ji served a bowl of porridge and placed it in front of Chen Zixiu. Chen Zixiu has always eaten alone, usually eating out, and is used to eating sumptuous meals. Although the monthly consumption may not be 100,000 yuan, it is still tens of thousands. But she was tired of eating those things. Because of stomach problems, she hasn't been eating well recently. At this time, she was delighted to see the several side dishes made by Chu Ji. The faint fragrance whetted her appetite. After taking a simple bite, Chen Zixiu's eyes lit up again. Before she knew it, Chen Zixiu was full for the first time and even had a bowl of porridge. She had never felt so satisfied. When she put down her bowl and chopsticks, she realized that Chu Ji did not sit down to eat with him, which made her slightly stunned. Why don't you eat? Chu Ji said, I won't eat here, I'll go back and eat by myself later. Chu Ji's tone was as cold as ever. He came here just to cook for Chen Zixiu, and he treated this as a job. He is very clear about his identity, and will never allow himself to have any inappropriate thoughts. But Chu Ji didn't see Chen Zixiu's gloomy face. Chu Ji cleaned up the food, then cleaned up the kitchen. Chen Zixiu's eyes followed Chu Ji's figure, and no one knew what she was thinking. Chu Ji picked up the garbage and said to Chen Zixiu, Mr. Chen, I'm leaving now. Don't worry, I will come to cook for you tomorrow morning. Chu Ji walked towards the door. Stop, Chen Zixiu suddenly spoke. Her eyes were filled with anger. Do you look down on me? She stood up trembling and walked towards Chu Ji. Why do you look down on me? Chu Ji was somewhat stunned and asked, Mr. Chen, where did you get this from? No, you did. You all looked at me like that. Do you think I couldn't notice? Your eyes are exactly the same as that bitch's. That's how she looks at me. I'm a joke, right? Chen Zixiu suddenly rushed towards Chu Ji like crazy. Chu Ji looked at Chen Zixiu, who was like a shrew, and his eyes became even colder. Chen Zixiu is very beautiful, but that's all. He really can't feel any good towards Chen Zixiu right now. Throwing the garbage in his hand aside, Chu Ji grabbed Chen Zixiu's arm. But Chen Zixiu seemed to be really crazy, and opened her mouth to bite Chu Ji. A bite on his shoulder. Chu Ji turned around and pushed Chen Zixiu against the wall next to him. He pressed the other person's arm with one hand, and pinched her mouth with the other hand to make her let go. But Chen Zixiu refused to give in, and her twisting body made Chu Ji a little upset. He suddenly turned her over, picked her up and walked towards the bedroom, pressed the other person onto the bed. There was a crisp sound of snap. The room suddenly became quiet. What? Chu Ji was a little dazed. He looked at his palms and rubbed them unconsciously and was speechless. Well, you have a good rest, I'm leaving first. Chu Ji walked out of the room. Only after Chu Ji left did Chen Zixiu hurriedly cover her blushing face with the quilt. She touched her buttocks and then kicked her legs, this time as if she was acting coquettishly. Chu Ji walked out of the community and threw away the garbage. A gust of wind blew, and it was a bit cold. I left my coat at Chen Zixiu's house. He now regretted his impulsiveness. Chen Zixiu is a willful person, and I don't know what I will do to him. It's okay to deal with me. I hope she won't implicate Grandma's family. At this time, Chu Ji didn't know that Chen Zixiu was standing at the window and looking at him quietly. See Chu Ji walking away. She walked out of the room and came to the living room, where she saw the coat that Chu Ji had left behind. Chen Zixiu was slightly stunned, then stepped forward and took the coat in her hand. Then, as if possessed by a ghost, he put the coat to his nose and took a deep breath, a hint of intoxication appearing on his face. Chu Ji came to the hospital and walked into the ward. I saw that Grandma had woken up by now. Seeing Chuj coming over, Grandma said, "Good boy." "Grandma," Chu Ji hurriedly went up to her. The nurse next to him looked at Chu Ji, who walked in with some admiration. She also knew something about Chu Ji's situation. But she didn't expect Chu Ji to be so filial that he worked several jobs in a day to pay for his grandmother's medical expenses. Chu Ji talked to his grandmother for a while, and then a tall figure in doctor's clothes walked in. Although she was wearing a mask, it couldn't hide her beauty. "Grandma, do you feel your appetite has improved recently?" asked the female doctor. "Dr. Chin, I feel much better," Grandma said with a smile. He looked at the female doctor, then at his newly adopted grandson next to him. There was a look of satisfaction in his eyes. "Dr. Chin, are you married?" Grandma asked. The female doctor said, "Not yet, Grandma." "Then what do you think of my eldest grandson? He is a good person and has a kind heart," the old lady said immediately. Dr. Chin looked at Chu Ji with a smile in his eyes. "Grandma, don't talk nonsense. How can I be worthy of Dr. Chin?" Chu Ji said hurriedly. The female doctor suddenly asked, "What if they match?" Chu Ji was slightly stunned. The old lady also smiled meaningfully when she heard this. Dr. Chin smiled charmingly at this time and said, "I was just joking." Then Dr. Chin asked the old lady a few more questions about her health. Then write them down one by one. When she went out, she looked at Chu Ji and said, "Come with me." Chu Ji hurriedly followed him out. Grandma had surgery. Although her condition has stabilized, the cost of maintaining her condition in the future will be high. You have to be mentally prepared. Chu Ji's face darkened and he said, "I understand. Dr. Chin, just use the medicine and don't worry about the medical expenses." Dr. Chin took off her mask, revealing a beautiful face. It was Chin Wanshu. She looked at Chu Ji and said softly, "If you have trouble paying for medical expenses, I can help you out." Chu Ji said, "No, I will find a way myself." Chin Wanshu looked at Chu Ji and suddenly asked, "Have you been to Jinghai?" Chapter 223, Memories in the Bones. Why do you ask that?" Chu Ji looked at Chin Wanshu with confusion in his eyes. "It's okay. I once went to Jinghai to attend an event and met someone there who looked a lot like you. How should I put it? You give me a very special feeling, like a family member, but different from a family member," Chu Ji said. Chu Ji looked at the female doctor opposite him and saw that her cheeks were slightly flushed, and she was extremely beautiful. Chu Ji felt his heart beating rapidly. It was like a forgotten memory was opened up. It was very familiar, but the person in front of him seemed very strange. As if realizing something, Chu Ji quickly said, "Dr. Chin, don't get me wrong. I'm probably not the person you said. I seem to be a local." "Hee, you are really interesting. You seem to be a local. Fortunately, you are a local, otherwise I would think you are him," Chin Wanshu said meaningfully. Chu Ji didn't care when he heard this. There are many similar people in the world. "It seems that I can't connect with people of that level," Dr. Chin, Grandma is counting your help recently, Chuji said at this time. Of course, no problem, but how do you thank me? Chin Wanshu's eyes were cunning. Dr. Chin, just tell me. I will definitely help you as long as I can, Chuji said. Actually, I just came back not long ago, and I'm not familiar with this place yet. How about you take me out for a walk when you have time so that I can get familiar with the scenery here? Of course, no problem, but I only have one day off today. Next time I take a day off, I will definitely take you around, Chuji said. Okay, I'll wait for your news, but don't make me wait too long, Chin Wanshu said meaningfully. Her eyes fell on Chuji, as if she wanted to melt him. Chuji's heart was beating wildly, but he didn't dare to look at Chin Wanshu's face, because he always had an urge to protect her. It seemed like an instinct ingrained in his bones. But we just met. After saying goodbye to Dr. Chin, Chuji walked out of the hospital. Putting aside the matter of Dr. Chin, Chuji frowned again. Although Chen Zixiu gave herself money, she didn't know how long the money would last. He had to find another way to make money, and he would return Chen Zixiu's money with interest. He now regards the money he has as borrowed. Yes, I have to keep a record of how much I spent today, and I have to find a way to make money. Chuji walked on the street in a daze, not knowing what to do. Now Chen Zixiu has asked herself to turn down all her part-time jobs, and she has to think of a way to make money at home. With this in mind, Chuji came to the rental house he had rented near the hospital. I rented this house to make it easier to take care of my grandmother. The small rental house gave him a subtle sense of security. At least here at this moment, this place belongs to him. After getting rid of his tiredness, Chuji fell asleep quickly. The next morning, Chuji came to Chen Zixiu's house. When I opened the door, the room was quiet. It seemed that Chen Zixiu had not gotten up yet. I went to the kitchen and started cooking, and soon some simple appetizers were ready. Seeing that it was almost time, he wanted to ask Chen Zixiu to come out for dinner. But after thinking about it, I decided to give up. That guy must be in a bad mood when he woke up, so I'd better not get into trouble. It wasn't long before there was movement coming from the bedroom. Chuji turned his head and saw Chen Zixiu coming out of the bedroom in disheveled clothes. More importantly, he saw his clothes wrapped around her. Chuji naturally saw this scene, and his heart tightened. I didn't think Chen Zixiu took out her anger on his coat yesterday. What a scary woman. Chuji silently felt sorry for his coat for a few seconds. Seeing that Chuji was a little flustered, Chen Zixiu hugged her clothes in her arms. That dress is mine, give it to me. No, Chen Zixiu looked a little flustered. Then she quickly walked into the bathroom and closed the door. Then he heard the sound of the washing machine starting up. Did she wash her clothes? Why, Chuji wondered. After a while, Chen Zixiu came out of the bathroom, wearing light makeup. I have to say that Chen Zixiu is still quite pretty when she is not crazy. Especially the backpack on the chest is very conspicuous. Mr. Chen, breakfast is ready, please have some. Chen Zixiu sat at the dining table. Although they were just a few light side dishes, she ate them with gusto. She really hasn't eaten in the morning for a long time. It turns out that breakfast can be so delicious. Chuji breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that Chen Zixiu didn't seem to be abnormal. He was really afraid that this woman would go crazy and not care about anything. Shall I take you to the company? Chuji asked tentatively. Chen Zixiu stood up and took out a car key and handed it over. You drive. Chuji looked at the key, and it seemed to be a Ferrari key. Tusk, it really fits Chen Zixiu's style. I drove Chen Zixiu all the way to the company gate. Chuji got out of the car, opened the door, and let Chen Zixiu get out. At this time, a car drove over. It was a Bentley. The car door slowly opened, and a stunningly beautiful woman walked out. The woman was wearing a simple white dress. But it is this simple combination that further highlights the woman's smart and capable temperament and perfect figure. The slender thighs made a crisp sound when stepping on the floor, which made people imagine a lot. She seemed like a born protagonist. She did nothing but stand there and attracted everyone's attention. Chuj just glanced at the other person and then looked away. He noticed that Chen Zixiu's expression began to become strange. She clenched her hands tightly and looked at the woman with anger, jealousy, and even resentment. Compared with this woman, Chen Zixiu was more like an unnoticed supporting role, jealous of the dazzling protagonist. Chuji frowned. Perhaps that peerless beauty was the Chenye that Chen Zixiu mentioned. The woman seemed to have seen Chen Zixiu as well, but did not come over to say hello. But there was a hint of confusion in his eyes as he passed over Chuji. Chuji gently pulled Chen Zixiu's hand and said, "Everyone is unique. You are excellent, better than many people. You shouldn't belittle yourself." A gentle but cold voice rang in Chen Zixiu's ears. These words were like a spring breeze, calming the waves in her heart. Chu Ji didn't know if his words were useful. He only saw Chen Zixiu's body, which was trembling with anger, calm down. "You drive away and come pick me up from get off work in the evening," Chen Zixiu suddenly said. "What about noon? I'm having lunch at the company, so I won't be going back." Chu Ji hesitated for a moment and said, "Then I'll bring you lunch at noon. I know you have a bad stomach, so you should eat less food from outside." Chen Zixiu's body stiffened for a moment. She turned her head and looked at Chu Ji. She was met with Chu Ji's cold and peaceful gaze. Chapter 224, he should be the one sitting there. Chen Zixiu took out her cell phone and transferred another 100,000 yuan to Chu Ji. "This is my lunch allowance for 1 month," Chen Zixiu said as she walked into the building with her long legs. He just looked a little flustered. Chu Ji touched his nose and felt like a bad person. "I took out my cell phone and saw that today was Sunday." He looked in the direction of the building, and indeed there were not many people there. But why does Chen Zixiu still have to go to work? Sure enough, being the daughter of a wealthy family is not easy. Soon it was noon. Chen Building. Chen Zixiu's office. Sitting opposite Chen Zixiu was a young man with a gloomy face. "Qin Yu, you didn't come to me today just to laugh at me, did you?" Chen Zixiu looked at the young man opposite with a gloomy face. The young man stood up and walked in front of Chen Zixiu, and frivolously stretched out his fingers to lift Chen Zixiu's chin. Chen Zixiu dodged it calmly. "What, you lost face in front of my sister and come to me to find confidence?" Chen Zixiu said sarcastically. Qin Yu was stunned. Chen Zixiu was not like this before. At that time, it was Chen Zixiu who took the initiative to find him and flirted with him. Of course, everyone knows that this is just a show. But Qin Yu didn't mind having an extra toy on the bed. It was just that he was chasing Chen Yi at that time, so he didn't have time to make a move on Chen Zixiu. He didn't expect that the other party would play hard to get with him at this time. "Haha, interesting. What's up? Have you found a new lover after not seeing each other for a while? Have you become cold towards me?" Chen Zixiu said with a charming smile on her face. "Although I am an illegitimate daughter, I am not trash to be played with. I think Mr. Qin Ai understands the principle of not waiting after the expiration date, right? Of course, whether you can impress me depends on your performance in the future. Maybe when you get the shares of the Qin family, I might take the initiative to climb into your bed." Qin Yu looked at the charming Chen Zixiu, and his desire rose in his heart. Chen Zixiu is not as pretty as Chen Yi, nor as smart as Chen Yi, nor does she have Chen Yi's business ability. She is just a scumbag who speaks and acts without thinking and has a messy private life. But I have to admit that Chen Zixiu is really a little devil. Her every move can make men confused. She is a famous socialite in high society. I'm afraid I don't know how many people have fallen at the feet of this Miss Chen. Qin Yu's breathing became rapid due to Chen Zixiu's teasing. He suddenly stood up and was about to pounce on Chen Zixiu. However, Chen Zixiu's eyes showed disgust, and her hand touched the pen on the table. She doesn't mind giving this guy a taste of her own medicine. Does she really think of herself as that kind of casual woman? At the beginning, in order to consolidate his position in the Chen family, he did want to rely on Qin Yu's power. But that was just exploitation, and she was unwilling to sacrifice her body for it. It is even more impossible now. Every woman has a unique feeling for her first man. Chen Zixiu already has her first man, and he will also be her last man. She will naturally not be the same as before. At this moment, there was a knock on the door outside the office. "Mr. Chen, is there someone outside looking for you?" It was the secretary's voice. Chen Zixiu took the opportunity to come to the door, opened it, and asked, "Do you know who it is?" The secretary replied. He said his name is Chu Ji. When Chen Zixiu heard this, a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes. Then she turned her head and looked at Qin Yu and said, "Second Master Qin, I won't keep you here. If you have time to waste here, you should think more about how to please my sister." Qin Yu knew that he would not be able to succeed today. He left Chen Zixiu's office with some dissatisfaction. Chen Zixiu looked at Qin Yu's back with a hint of sarcasm in her eyes. "Humph, your head is full of pornographic things. How can you possibly defeat Qin Feng?" Putting aside the thought in her mind, she looked at the secretary and said, "Quick, let Chu Yuan come up." The secretary nodded and prepared to leave. Chen Zixiu suddenly stopped the secretary and said, "Next time he comes, just let him come up." The secretary looked at Chen Zixiu in surprise. She didn't expect Chu Ji to be so respected. Could he be another young master from a big family? but even the young masters of any family have never seen Chen Zixiu care so much. The secretary already had a vague guess in his mind. After a while, Chu Ji came up with a thermos. Led by the secretary, he came to Chen Zixiu's office. On the way, the secretary was observing Chu Ji. He is tall and strong, with an angular face and firm, bright eyes. But there was not much expression on his face, and he seemed a little cold. Another thing is that the clothes he was wearing didn't seem to be what a young man from a wealthy family should wear. They looked like street stall merchandise. Chu Ji didn't feel uncomfortable with the secretary's look. I am just a stranger to him, so it is normal for him to look at me a few more times. Chu Ji walked into Chen Zixiu's office and saw Chen Zixiu sitting in the boss chair. "Mr. Chen, I brought you some porridge to regulate your stomach." Chu Ji put the porridge on the table. Chen Zixiu said to the secretary, "You go out first." The secretary left, but did not forget to close the office door. Chu Ji frowned but didn't say anything. He poured the porridge out of the thermos bucket. A fresh fragrance spread. Chen Zixiu couldn't help but sniff. She didn't want to eat, but when she smelled the fragrance, she became hungry again. She stood up from her boss' chair and sat on the sofa next to her. Chen Zixiu had finished the whole bowl of porridge without realizing it, and a satisfied look appeared on her face. She squinted her eyes like a lazy fox. Chu Ji didn't say anything while Chen Zixiu was eating. He just subconsciously sat where Chen Zixiu had just sat and casually flipped through the documents on Chen Zixiu's desk. This is supposed to be very impolite behavior, but Chu Ji felt that he did it naturally, as if it was a matter of course. The key point is that Chen Zixiu didn't stop him at all. She just glanced at him and let him look through the documents. Chu Ji felt familiar with these documents, as if he had reviewed many such documents. He flipped through a document in his hand and subconsciously stopped moving. He glanced around and said to Chen Zixiu, "Can you lend me some paper and a pen?" Chen Zixiu said, "There's some on the table, take it yourself." Chu Ji picked up a pen, found a piece of white paper and started writing and drawing on it. Chen Zixiu continued to drink the porridge until the whole bucket of porridge was gone. She glanced at Chu Ji secretly and muttered, "Will he say I'm a glutton? Will it be hard to support me in the future?" Suddenly Chen Zixiu was stunned. Looking at Chu Ji, who was writing and drawing seriously, she felt a little dazed. Chu Ji was sitting in her seat at this time, but it looked very harmonious, as if that seat was meant for him. At this moment, Chu Ji had an indescribable aura. Every move he made was filled with a hint of arrogance, and he appeared confident and calm. Chapter 225, Computer Repair. Chen Zixiu looked a little dazed. He didn't raise his head until Chu Ji put down his pen. Chu Ji met Chen Zixiu's gaze. He was slightly startled and said, "I'm sorry, I seem to have disturbed you at work." He quickly stood up from his boss chair. Chen Zixiu came back to her senses and said quickly, "It's okay, it's not very busy this afternoon anyway." Just then, there was a knock on the door. Chen Zixiu frowned, looking a little angry. "Come in." The door opened, and a tall figure walked in. Chu Ji looked and found that it was the woman who got out of the Bentley. The woman walked into the room. The whole room became brighter. When the woman saw Chu Ji, a hint of surprise appeared on her face. "Ziu, who is he?" Chu Ji said, "Hello, I'm Chu Yuan." The woman looked at Chu Ji, her eyes slightly shining, and said, "Hello, I am Zixiu's sister, my name is Chen Yi." Chen Yi extended her hand to Chu Ji. Chu Ji was slightly stunned. Was the other party going to shake hands with him? At this time, Chen Zixiu took a few quick steps and stood in front of Chu Ji, looking at the woman and said, "Sister, do you have something to talk to me about?" Looking at the nervous Chen Zixiu, Chen Yi showed a playful smile. She just heard a strange man enter Chen Zixiu's office, and he hasn't come out for more than an hour. She was very curious because her sister had never let a man stay in her office for so long. So she came over to take a look, and now it seems that there is indeed a problem. My sister seems to care a lot about the guy named Chu Yuan. Chu Ji also saw Chen Zixiu's hands clenched tightly because of nervousness. Is she afraid that her relationship with her will be known? Chu Ji felt that he was a little rash to come up here today. Next time he could just cook his own food and have it delivered to him. Why did he come up here for no reason? Thinking about the secretary closing the door when leaving, I now understand that they were afraid that the news would get out. Yes, it's embarrassing if the affair between a rich girl and a poor boy gets out. Chu Ji said at this time, Mr. Chen, I have fixed your computer. If there is nothing else, I will leave." Chen Zixiu was slightly stunned when she heard this, and for a moment she couldn't react to why Chu Ji said that. Chu Ji walked towards the door and just nodded as he passed by Chen Yi. Chen Yi looked at Chen Zixiu suspiciously and asked, He's just a computer repairman. Chen Zixiu said, no. I don't think so either. Is he your driver? Chen Zixiu frowned. Why would you say that? Chen Yi said, I saw him this morning. He got off the car with you. Chen Zixiu said impatiently, he is not my driver. Chen Yi looked at Chen Zixiu suspiciously and asked, who is he? As she spoke, she looked at the thermos on the table that Chu Ji had not taken away. We got off the bus together in the morning, and now he is delivering food to us and even delivering it to the company. It seems that Chen Zixiu has no intention of being shy. Could this be another gigolo that his sister keeps? I heard that my sister has always been bold in her private life, so it seems possible that she would do something like this. Okay, I won't ask anymore, but Zixiu, you still have to pay attention to the impact in the future. After all, you are a member of the Chen family. Forget about playing with it in private, but don't bring it out in public. Chen Yi's tone was sincere when she spoke, and it seemed that she was really considering Chen Zixiu. Chen Zixiu asked, Sister, are you preaching to me? Chen Yi rubbed her forehead helplessly. She had always known that her sister was hostile to her, but the other party has been controlling himself very well. But this time, my sister's reaction seemed a little too big. It seems that Chu Ji has a great influence on my sister. Chen Yi left Chen Zixiu's office. Arriving at her office, she said, go find out who that person is and what his relationship is to my sister. Meanwhile, Chen Zixiu grabbed the thermos on the table and was about to smash it out. But she didn't know what she was thinking about, and she gently placed the thermos on the table. What computer repairman? Is it embarrassing to admit that you are my man? Thinking of Chu Ji's cold face in the past, Chen Zixiu's eyes became slightly flustered. Then she became confident again. Humph, isn't it just for my money? As long as I pay him, he will do whatever he wants. Chen Zixiu felt that she had found her confidence again. Chen Zixiu sat back in her seat angrily. She called her secretary and asked, has the plan been completed? The secretary said, Mr. Chen, we have contacted the best planning company, but so far there is still no satisfactory plan. Chen Zixiu's face turned pale. Keep looking. I don't believe that we can't find a qualified planning company in the whole Jinwen, Chen Zixiu said sternly. The secretary hurried out. You are all useless. What's the point of the company keeping you? If I mess up this time, my father will probably be completely disappointed in me, right? She took this job on her own initiative, in order to prove that she was no worse than Zhang Yi. She made a promise to her father for this. However, the previous planning proposals were rejected, and the deadline is approaching. If I cannot come up with an answer that satisfies the board of directors, my position in the company will be in jeopardy. Thinking of this, Chen Zixiu grabbed an ornament on the table and was about to throw it away. Chen Zixiu was suddenly stunned. There were several pieces of paper neatly placed in front of her, which was the plan for the task she had been thinking about. Chen Zixiu flipped through the pages one by one, and her eyes gradually became brighter. Although she was not very capable, practice makes perfect. She had seen many plans for this task, but none of them satisfied her. But the plan in front of him was different. It gave him a very subtle feeling. There was no fancy language, just a plain and straightforward narrative. However, the task is clearly divided into several stages, and it is clear what to do and what goals to achieve in each stage. She quickly called the secretary and handed the plan to the other party, saying, immediately gather everyone to study the feasibility of this plan, and also make it into an electronic file for me immediately, quickly. The secretary hurried out. Meanwhile, in Chen Yi's office, Chen Yi called her secretary and asked, how is the planning going? The secretary said, Mr. Chen, we are almost done according to your instructions. Chen Yi nodded. Sister, if you can't complete the task, don't blame me for not giving you a chance. I will ensure the interests of the Chen group no matter what, Chen Yi said. Chapter 226, Chen Zixiu's White Moonlight. Chu Ji did not go back to Chen Zixiu's home. He took the bus to the hospital. Come to the hospital, Grandma on the sickbed asked. Aren't you going out for a walk on Sunday? How can it get better? I don't even have a girlfriend. How can you meet your girlfriend if you don't go out? Grandma tapped Chu Ji's forehead unhappily. Grandma, my situation is a bit complicated. Which daughter of a good family would like me? Yuan, don't underestimate yourself. You are very kind. Kind people usually have good luck. You will definitely meet someone who is sincere to you. Chu Ji laughed and said, Thank you, Grandma, for your kind words. The old man stroked Chu Ji's forehead, with a kind look in his eyes. At this time, Fat Fish came over from outside. Brother, you are here too, Fat Fish greeted. Brother, why don't you go fishing with Grandpa? Fatty's eyes flickered and he said, The market has been bad lately, so it's okay to wait for 2 days. Chu Ji nodded. He knew nothing about fishing. Chu Ji said, let's go, it's noon now, haven't you eaten yet? I'll treat you to $100 meal. Really? Fatty was overjoyed. Certainly. Haha, brother, wait a moment, I'll put the things down for Grandma, said Fat Fish. Grandma looked at the two of them with a smile in her eyes. Seeing them happy made her feel even happier. I went to a small restaurant near the hospital and ordered 2 dishes and a few bottles of beer. Chu Ji pushed all the beer to Fatty Yu and said, it's all yours. Fatty Fish was stunned and asked, you don't want a drink? No, I have to drive in the evening. Driving? Are you a designated driver? Well, I guess so, said Chu Ji. Fatty Fish was stunned and said, that's fine, the designated driver will give you a little more freedom. Chu Ji saw Fatty start drinking and smiled. I came here to ask you something. Tell me what's going on. No matter if it's in the hospital or outside, there's nothing Fatty Fish doesn't know. Chu Ji said, you are such a shameless boaster. Do you know the Chen family in Jinwen? Chen, the Chen family from our Jinwen rich family. Chu Ji was slightly stunned. Is the Chen family so famous, or is it one of the wealthy families in Jinwen? The assets that can support a wealthy family are all in the hundreds of billions. Maybe right, he was a little unsure. Fatty Fish said, Chen's business involves all aspects, especially Tengyu, which is a giant in the gaming industry. You know, online games are the most profitable industry right now, with annual net profits in the billions. That shows how powerful Chen is, right? Chu Ji didn't expect that Chen's company also had the gaming industry. But recently, a new gaming giant is rising on the other side of the strait, and I'm afraid it will have an impact on the Chen group, Fatty Fish said while eating. An emerging gaming giant. Yes, a gaming giant formerly known as Kiwon has released several hit games and captured a lot of the market. It's developing so fast that I guess Chen is having a headache. I also heard that the boss is an elite in the business world with extraordinary abilities, and his name is Chu Ji, which is the same last name as yours. Chu Ji frowned, and then his forehead felt a little painful. I couldn't help but cover my head. Brother, what's wrong with you? Fatty asked anxiously. Chu Ji waved his hand and said, nothing, go on. Fatty Fish paused when he saw that Chu Ji was really fine and said, let me tell you a piece of gossip. What? Although the Chen family is very rich and one of the few wealthy families, in this generation, the Chen family only has one daughter. One isn't Chen Zixiu from the Chen family. Chu Ji was suspicious. On the surface there is only one, but in fact there are 2. The other daughter is an illegitimate daughter who is not favored by the mistress of the house and has never been made public. Chu Ji pondered, so Chen Zixiu is the illegitimate daughter, right? I heard that the illegitimate girl has an immoral life. She's always hanging out in bars or discotheques. She's also been involved in fights and lawsuits. She's a ruthless person. It's said that the illegitimate girl changes men every day. The number of people who have an ambiguous relationship with her can form a company. Chu Ji sighed, his eyes turned cold, and a strange look appeared on his face. Fatty continued, you know Li Yunfeng, right? Chu Ji shook his head, but he had heard this name from Chen Zixiu. Speaking of which, Li Yunfeng is a legendary figure and a prominent figure at Jinwen University, the best university in Jinwen. The illegitimate daughter also studied at Jinwen University. She fell in love with Li Yunfeng at first sight and put a lot of effort into pursuing Li Yunfeng. She even announced her love to him in public during the college assembly. However, Li Yunfeng likes Chen family's eldest daughter, Chen Yi. He was indifferent to the confession of the illegitimate daughter. There are so many bloody things going on here. Chen Yi also has many suitors, for example, Qin Yu from the Qin family. Another wealthy family has been pursuing Chen Yi. During this period, he was at odds with Li Yunfeng, framed Li Yunfeng, and even hired someone to harm Li Yunfeng. But unexpectedly, Li Yunfeng was not a good person either. He knocked down the group of people who were looking for trouble with him and even acted like a hero and saved Chen Yi. He was simply the Prince Charming that women fantasized about. So Chen Yi treats Li Yunfeng well, and I guess Li Yunfeng has already got the beauty. Tusk, that's the Chen family, and if he marries Chen Yi, he will soar to the sky. After dinner, Chu Ji and Fat Yu went to the hospital again. Seeing that his grandmother's condition was stable, Chu Ji breathed a sigh of relief. Then he took a taxi to Chen Building. Looking at the time, there were still 10 minutes left, so Chu Ji went to the garage and parked Chen Zixiu's car at the exit, waiting for Chen Zixiu to get off work. Soon Chen Zixiu walked out of the building and saw Chu Ji coming towards her. A smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. I'm afraid she doesn't even know it herself. Chuji opened the car door and let Chen Zixiu get in. Chuji asked, "What do you want to eat tonight?" "Whatever," said Chen Zixiu. In fact, she wanted to say that anything was fine as long as you could do it, but it seemed too ambiguous, so she didn't say it. Chuji stopped asking and started the car. At this time, he also saw the Bentley parked not far away, and Zhang Yi walked out of Chen building with her long legs. Chuji also saw a handsome young man waiting at the door. Chuji narrowed his eyes slightly and guessed the identity of the young man. Chen Yi looked very happy, chatting and laughing with the young man, and they seemed to be a good match. At this time, he noticed that something was wrong with Chen Zixiu's face. "It's for that young man. He is Li Yunfeng," Chuji said. Upon hearing this, Chen Zixiu suddenly looked at Chuji, a trace of panic inadvertently flashing across her eyes. "How do you know?" "Guess. Have you investigated me?" "No, you said that in the bar that day," Chuji said. Chen Zixiu suddenly stopped talking. Chapter 227, Are You Serious? Chen Zixiu hung up the phone. Thinking of Chuji's cold face, she muttered, "He originally had a problem with me. If he saw me, Chen Zixiu wouldn't know how to explain it, but why should she explain it?" Chuji thought so too. He and Chen Zixiu only have a contractual relationship now, so why should he interfere in her private life? "Do you want to go down and say hello?" Chuji asked. Chen Zixiu said with a slightly flustered look, "No need, why should I greet him?" Chuji disagreed. He drove past Chen Yi and Li Yunfeng. Chen Yi looked over. Li Yunfeng also looked over. He frowned slightly when he saw Chen Zixiu. At this time, the car window rolled down, and Chen Zixiu looked at Chen Yi and said, "Sister, I'm leaving first. Bye." Li Yunfeng wanted to speak, but this time, Chen Zixiu didn't even look at Li Yunfeng. Li Yunfeng was a little stunned. I watched Chen Zixiu's car leave. Li Yunfeng didn't know why he felt a little lost. Chen Yi said at this time, "Yunfeng, let's go." Li Yunfeng quickly opened the car door. At this time, Chuji looked at Chen Zixiu. I found that there was nothing different about the other person. He still remembered how she behaved when she mistook him for Li Yunfeng that day. He didn't believe that Chen Zixiu would just let it go like that. At this time, Chen Zixiu touched her chest and felt that she didn't seem to care that much about Li Yunfeng. "Why, I couldn't let it go a few days ago and even went out to get drunk. But what happened today?" Chen Zixiu was suspicious. When Chuji arrived at Chen Zixiu's house, he started cooking. Just a few simple side dishes and a bowl of porridge. It was simple, but Chen Zixiu felt it was particularly sweet. It was much better than the big fish and meat she had eaten in the past. After dinner, Chuji cleaned up the kitchen. Then he looked at Chen Zixiu and said, "Mr. Chen, I'll leave now. I'll come back tomorrow." Chen Zixiu frowned and said, "Can't I live here?" Chuji said, "Of course not, I have other things to do." Chen Zixiu didn't know why she felt angry again. Chuji doesn't dare to live here. I have made a mistake once, and I dare not make it a second time. After Chuji left, Chen Zixiu looked at the clean house, and a gentle smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. "It feels good," she whispered. At this time her phone rang. "Sisters, come out and have fun." The voice of my best friend rang over the phone. Chen Zixiu said, "No, don't look for me for this kind of thing in the future. I want to retire." "What do you mean by retire from the underworld? It feels like we are going to do something bad." "Oh, that's not right. Is that something you, Chen Zixiu, can say?" Chen Zixiu smiled and said, "If you say you're not going, then you're not going. It's fine, just hang up now." "Chen Zixiu, you're not serious. Are you really attracted to that man?" "I'm afraid I'll be even more unhappy if I go to bars again." On the other end of the phone, the two women who had accompanied Chen Zixiu in teasing Chu Ji, and even grabbed Chu Ji's vitals, looked at each other. "It's over, it's over. Zixiu feels like this time we're going to get serious," said one of them. "What kind of magic power does that guy have to subdue our little witch in Jinwen?" "Tisk, what magic, don't you know?" One of the women looked at her hands. "Oh, you're going to die." The other woman's cheeks suddenly turned red as if she had thought of something. The two women started fighting. At the same time in Jinghai, Chu Ji's family was in a gloomy mood. "Keep looking, I won't give up as long as I can't find Ash." Su Ruoxuan looked at the women in front of her with red eyes. "And the Zhang family, I want to make the Zhang family disappear in Jinghai," Su Zin said. "How is Nanchu now?" Su Ruoxuan asked. Li Qing's face was pale, and she looked particularly haggard at this moment. "Nanshu is still the same as before, so stupid and foolish." Su Ruoxian said, "Ash is not dead yet. Who is she showing this to? Tell her to get up. Ash is not here. We have to keep an eye on Ash's property. Whoever dares to attack will be killed." "What?" At this time, Zhao Bo was drinking red wine in a manor in the suburbs, laughing sinisterly. Chu Ji, you didn't expect that you would die at the hands of a little jerk, did you? Zhang Heng is really stupid, so stupid that he is adorable. Just two simple sentences can make him lose his mind, tusk. When you die, your property will belong to me. Not only your property, but also your women will belong to me, ha 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 ha. What? Su Wan was still looking for Chu Ji. At this moment, she looked very haggard. Her eyes became dim and no longer as lively as before. At this time, Su Wan was standing on the beach, looking at a vague island opposite. That was the closest island to them in Jin Bay. Someone came over at this time. It's Yue. At this time, Yue seemed more capable. Her beautiful face and graceful figure made her no less attractive than Su Wan. The reason why she appeared here was because they were looking for missing persons, and the police also had to contribute. Looking at Su Wan's appearance, Yue couldn't help but sigh. At the same time, I also lament the impermanence of life. Su Wan turned her head and looked at Yue. Her eyes became empty again. Yue wanted to say something but stopped herself. Then he sighed helplessly. Just then her phone rang. Yue answered the call, and as she listened to the content on the phone, her eyes lit up slightly. After hanging up the phone, Yue looked at Su Wan. Yue took a few steps towards Su Wan and said, Chu Ji may not be dead. Su Wan looked at Yue suddenly, but her body became weak due to excitement. Are you telling the truth? Su Wan said with a trembling voice. We can't confirm this news, but we did hear someone say that a fishing boat in Jinwen seemed to have fished out a person in the waters near us. But we can't confirm whether this person is Chu Ji. Can we find the fisherman? Su Wan asked excitedly. You know the situation between us and Jinwen. I can only ask someone to find them, but I heard that the fishermen are from a complex group. It may take time to find them. Jinwen, I'm going to Jinwen, Su Wan murmured. She suddenly remembered that she seemed to have arranged an identity in Jinwen for Chu Ji. Maybe this is God's will. It was just that she had just asked someone to do it for her at the time, and that person has now passed away. She now doesn't know what the exact home address was when she arranged an identity for Chu Ji. But it doesn't matter. Jinwen is not big, and she will find him even if she has to turn Jinwen upside down. All the grievances of the past few days seemed to be vented at this moment, and tears welled up in my eyes. She cried without restraint, her eyes tearing up, and Yue felt sad watching this. I may have to take a vacation soon, I'll go with you, Yue said. Su Ruoxuan and others also got the news soon. When Su Ruoxuan heard the news, she fell to the ground limply, all her previous strength gone. Chapter 228, that's it. After calming down, Su Ruoxuan said, Don't let the news spread. The person behind the scenes might think that we have lost our composure and will jump out soon. We must take advantage of this and bite off a piece of meat from him. After hearing the news, Li Yao Nanshu, Su Zin, Li Qing, and others also recovered from their grief. Their faces became more serious than ever before. Big sister, we listen to you. Li Yao was the first to express her opinion. Perhaps only these women knew the meaning of this big sister, but they didn't know that a person had already arrived in Jinwen at this time. Zumoyu was bumped by Chu Ji, who was walking towards her with his head lowered. The whole person fell backwards. Chu Ji was startled and subconsciously reached out and grabbed her in his arms. Zumoyu snuggled into Chu Ji's arms, her eyes shining. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean it. Chu Ji quickly let go of the other person. Zumoyu asked with a sly look in her eyes. It's okay, you look familiar to me, have we met somewhere before? Chu Ji's eyes lit up and he said, Have you seen me before? My name is Chu Yuan, I live over at Xiangshan Road, do you know where it is? Zumoyu shook her head and said, I don't know, the person I know is not from Jinwen. A look of disappointment appeared on Chu Ji's face, but when he looked at Zumoyu's pretty face, his face slightly blushed. He felt that the other person also gave him a familiar feeling, but he couldn't remember who the other person was. But he didn't dare say this, because he was afraid that the other party would accuse him of being a hooligan. Zumoyu said with a smile, It seems that we hit it off right away. My name is Zumoyu, and we officially met today. Zumoyu stretched out her hand. Chu Ji blushed a little. He wiped his hands and carefully held Zumoyu's hand. What are you doing here? Chu Ji asked. I'm here to look for someone, Zumoyu said. But I will also stay here for a while. However, I'm unfamiliar with this place and I don't know how long it will take to find someone. Looking for someone? You should go to the police station. Didn't I just come out of the police station? Zumoyu continued. Now I don't even have a place to stay and the hotel is too expensive. I don't have much money. It seems that I can only find a small hotel. Chuji frowned. He knew that Jinwon was not as peaceful as it seemed. After a pause, Chuji said, "The hotel is not safe. If you don't mind, I'll take you to a place." He didn't know why he cared so much about the woman in front of him. This woman gave him a very similar feeling to that Dr. Chin. It even seemed as if the woman before him had appeared in his dream. When I heard that the other person was in trouble, I subconsciously wanted to help her. Zumoyu looked at him gently, with a gentle smile in her eyes. At this time, the sun was shining, and red leaves were falling around them. This scene is like a beautiful painting. Chuji brought Zumoyu to his home. "Where is this?" Zumoyu asked. "My home," said Chuji. Zumoyu blushed slightly and said, "You brought a member of the opposite sex you just met back to your home like this." Chuji was stunned, then his face turned red, and he explained in a hurry. "That's not what I meant. What I meant was that I don't live here, and it's a waste to leave it empty. I really don't mean anything else." Zumoyu looked at Chuji, who was eager to explain, and the tenderness in her eyes seemed to melt him. "Why are you so anxious? I can't stop talking," Zumoyu said. She looked around and said, "The scenery here is beautiful. I didn't expect you could have your own house here." Chuji said, "I'm not very clear about this. I seem to have forgotten a lot of things." Entering the villa, it seems very warm. Since Chuji knew that this was his home, he came to clean it from time to time, and it is not as dirty and messy as before. "But since I don't live here, there is nothing in the kitchen. I'll buy some later," Chuji said. "Okay, I'll go with you," Zumoyu said excitedly. Chu Zhesheng couldn't bear to refuse him. The two drove to the supermarket and bought a lot of things. After everything was arranged, Chuji looked at the time and said, "I'm leaving now. Call me if you need anything in the future." Looking at Chuji's departing back, Zumoyu covered her chest and said, "It would be so nice to just spend my whole life with him like this." At this time, her cell phone rang. "Sister, the person has been found. He is fine. He just forgot something. Don't worry, you can't panic over there. This is a situation he created for you with great difficulty." "Okay, I understand. I won't let him go back so soon to prevent someone from getting desperate and attacking him again." After hanging up the phone, Zumoyu walked around the room. At this time, Chuji put the cooked porridge into a small thermos bucket and then rushed towards Chen's building. After arriving at the building, he did not go up this time. The look Chenyi gave him last time made him realize that he was now a loser, and if he got too close to Chen Zixiu, people might gossip about him. He doesn't care, but Chen Zixiu might be unhappy if she hears it and fire him. It's not that he couldn't bear to part with Chen Zixiu, but Chen Zixiu was very generous. The money for Grandma's medical treatment all depended on Chen Zixiu. For the sake of money, it's better to give up a little self-respect. Chuji came to the front desk and called Chen Zixiu's secretary. Soon a dignified urban beauty came down. "Mr. Chu, why don't you go up and deliver it to Mr. Chen in person?" The secretary's cheeks flushed slightly as she looked at Chu Ji's clear and handsome face. He used to think Li Yunfeng was good-looking, but now he thinks that Li Yunfeng is good-looking, but compared with Chu Ji, Li Yunfeng is just so-so. And the sunshine-like feeling Chu Ji gave her made her feel more comfortable. This kind of elegant and gentle temperament was something Li Yunfeng did not have. For example, now when Chu Ji spoke, there was a faint smile in his eyes, which made her feel relaxed and happy, and even her restless heart became calm. "It's a bit inconvenient, and I'm afraid it will have a bad impact on Mr. Chen. Thank you for your help." Chu Ji didn't say much. "Ms. Chen is in a meeting now. You can go upstairs and wait for her." The secretary wanted to try again. No need. I'll come over when I get off work in the afternoon." Chu Ji waved his hand quickly. The secretary looked at Chu Ji, leaving with a puzzled look in his eyes. As soon as Chu Ji left, Li Yunfeng walked in. "Mr. Li," the secretary came forward and greeted him. "I'll go upstairs to find your general manager, Chen," said Li Yunfeng. "Of course, this Mr. Chen is not Chen Zixiu, but Chen Yi." The secretary said, "Mr. Chen is in a meeting. Do you want to go up and wait?" "Okay, I'll wait for your General Chen to come out." Li Yunfeng walked towards the elevator. Chapter 229, A Perfect Plan. The conference room at this time. The head of the Chen family looked at Chen Zixiu and said, "Zixiu, now tell me about your situation. How is your plan going? If you still cannot satisfy everyone present, then you know the consequences." There was also a planning proposal in front of Chen Yi. The head of the Chen family also saw it, and he nodded slightly towards his eldest daughter. His eyes were full of admiration. Chen Zixiu was filled with anger as she watched this scene. Someone next to him said, "Could it be that it hasn't been done yet? Why don't we move on to the next item? There's no need to waste time here." This is Chen Yi's direct subordinate, and they are obviously attacking Chen Zixiu at this time. Has Zixiu finally made it? Asked the head of the Chen family with a frown. Chen Zixiu stood up and said, "Of course it's done. Please ask the assistant to send the plan out." Everyone can make sarcastic comments after reading it. Then Chen Zixiu signaled to her assistant. After the assistant distributed the planning proposals, Chen Zixiu turned on the screen in the conference room. "Now let me tell you about this plan myself, Tilda." Chen Zixiu had a confident smile on her face. Chen Yu was slightly surprised to see Chen Zixiu being so confident. But then she shook her head. She didn't believe what kind of plan Chen Zixiu could come up with. Chen Zixiu then said, "This plan is made based on the actual market situation and is divided into 5 steps. There is a clear plan for the effect of each step, which includes the tasks that each functional department needs to complete, ensuring that everyone works towards this goal. First, I started with market research." As Chen Zixiu talked, the indifferent attitudes of the people in the conference room began to calm down. Some people even sat up straight with a gleam in their eyes. Some even took out their glasses, looked carefully at the big screen, and then looked through the plan in their hands. The face of the head of the Chen family also became stunned at this time, and then became serious. He looked at Chen Zixiu and showed an admiring look for the first time. After Chen Zixiu finished speaking, the audience fell silent. Chen Zixiu frowned, and her heart couldn't help but feel nervous. With her current abilities, she really couldn't confirm whether this plan was a success or a failure. But she was sure of one thing: this was the best plan she had ever seen. Just then, applause broke out. Then the applause became more and more enthusiastic, and finally everyone was applauding for Chen Zixiu, including Chen Yi. Chen Zixiu blushed. This was the first time she received recognition from so many people. Their applause was the greatest affirmation of her. "Yes, this plan is good. I have to say that this plan is one of the best plans I have ever seen. There is no high-sounding language, only a practical and down-to-earth plan. The goal is clear, the execution is strong, and there are backup plans for each step, whether it is achieved or not. It is difficult for this plan to fail." The meeting ended successfully. People left the office one after another. Chen Yu walked up to Chen Zixiu and said, "This is really an excellent plan. To be honest, it's better than anything I've done. I didn't expect you have such an outstanding talent under you." Chen Zixiu had a smile on her face. "It's really not easy to get praise from my sister," said Chen Zixiu. Chen Yu wanted to say something, but her secretary came over and said, "Mr. Chen, Mr. Li is waiting for you in the office." Chen Yu subconsciously glanced at Chen Zixiu, but she was surprised to find that Chen Zixiu's face was very calm. There is no more jealousy and resentment as before. At this time, Chen Zixiu's secretary also came over and said, "General Manager Chen, Mr. Chu." Before the secretary finished speaking, Chen Zixiu's eyes lit up, and she walked briskly towards her office. "Chu Yuan." Chen Zixiu opened the door but found that there was no one in her office. "Where is Chu Yuan?" Chen Zixiu asked the secretary, who followed her. "Mr. Chen, Mr. Chu brought the porridge and left. He didn't come up," said the secretary. "Why?" Chen Zixiu asked with a frown. The secretary looked around and said, "It seems that he is afraid of gossip. When I came here, I heard someone say he was a gigolo or something. It was really unpleasant to hear." Chen Zixiu's face turned extremely ugly when she heard this. "But I seemed to be in a bad mood for the whole afternoon." Chu Ji came to the hospital after delivering porridge to Chen Zixiu. When he arrived at his grandmother's ward, he saw Qin Wanchu was there too. Grandma was holding Qin Wanchu's hand and saying something unknown. Qin Wanchu had a slight shyness on his face. "Dr. Qin, you are here too?" Chu Ji asked. "Haha, Dr. Qin is my attending physician now. If she's not here, who will be here?" Grandma waved at Chu Ji. Chu Ji stepped forward. Grandma grabbed Chu's hand and said, "You two are both good children. It would be even better if you could be together." As she spoke, Grandma covered Chu Ji's hand with Dr. Qin's hand. Chu Ji felt the smoothness of his palm and his heart was slightly moved, but he immediately became embarrassed. He quickly pulled his hand back and said, "Grandma, don't talk nonsense. I'm a pauper now. How can I be worthy of Dr. Qin?" The old lady looked at Chu Ji speechlessly. Qin Wanchu next to her didn't seem to be surprised at all. She just smiled and said, "Grandma, I think we still need some time to get along with each other." Chu Ji said a few words to his grandmother, and then left the ward with Qin Wanchu. "I'm sorry, Grandma is a little sentimental at her age." "Why are you saying sorry? Have you done something to offend me?" Qin Wanchu looked at Chu Ji with a smile. No, looking at Qin Wanchu's stunning face, Chu felt his heart skip a beat. "Dr. Chin, so you are here?" A male doctor next to him walked over. There was a hint of fiery gaze as he looked at Qin Wanshu. "Dr. Zhang, is there anything wrong?" "It's noon now. I'd like to invite you to have lunch together," said the male doctor. "No, I'm going to have dinner with him later." Qin Wanshu looked at Chu Ji next to him. The male doctor's face froze and he said, "Dr. Qin, if we get too close to the patient's family." "Who said he is a patient's family member? He is my friend." Qin Wanshu took Chu Ji's arm and whispered in Chu Ji's ear, "Be a shield for me." Chu Ji was stunned, then let Qin Wanshu hold his arm. This feeling was very familiar, as if it was a situation stored deep in his mind. The male doctor's face turned a little ugly. He glanced at Chu Ji and said, "Then I won't bother you two anymore." Chu Ji said, "Dr. Qin is so beautiful, she must have a lot of suitors." Qin Wanshu said, "So you want to be my shield? You are not allowed to refuse. You promised me at the beginning. You said you could help me with anything. And besides, this is not a big deal. Do you want to break your promise?" Chu Ji said, No, how could it be?" "Okay, then if you want to be my shield, you have to act like one. You have to come and see me every day. Can you do that?" Chapter 230, Not Paying Attention at All. Chu Ji nodded. Not only did he need to see his grandmother, he also needed to check his own head, so he came to the hospital almost every day recently. Then the second point is that every time you come, you must bring me a flower. No more than one, okay? Chu Ji nodded again. Another thing is that you have to accompany me to dinner every 2 days. What couple wouldn't go out for dinner, date, or watch a movie together? Why you can't do this? Qin Wanshu said dissatisfiedly. "Okay, I promise. Also, I'm new here. Please accompany me to find a house nearby today," Qin Wanshu said. Chu Ji scratched his head and asked, "House?" "Of course, I don't want to live in the room assigned by the hospital. I want to live alone," Qin Wanshu said. Chu Ji said, "I also have a place, but there is already someone living there. She just came to Jinwen like you, and she is also a lady. If you don't mind, you can stay at my place." "Where are you?" "Yes, that's my home. Don't worry, I don't live there now," said Chu Ji. Seeing that Qin Wanshu had no objection, Chu Ji said, "How about I take you to see it?" Qin Wanshu nodded. Chu Ji said something to his grandmother, then took Qin Wanshu and went straight to his residence. When he arrived at his residence, he saw Zhu Moyu leisurely basking in the sun in the yard. There is also a drawing board next to it, with just a few strokes drawn on it, but it outlines the distant scenery. The sun was warm, and Zhu Moyu seemed a little sleepy. She looked a little naive, with her head nodding back and forth on the recliner. Chu Ji felt warm in his heart when he looked at her, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth unconsciously. "Sister Mo Yue." These words were not shouted by Chu Ji, but by Qin Wanshu. As a young lady from a top wealthy family, she naturally had contacts with the Zhu family. Not many people knew that the Zhu family had a younger sister, but Qin Wanshu happened to be one of them. Zhu Moyu opened her hazy peach blossom eyes, like a lazy cat. When she saw Chu Ji and Qin Wanshu, she also exclaimed in surprise, "Wanshu, Sister Mo Yue, why are you here? Why are you disappointed that you didn't get there first?" Chu Ji asked, "Do you know each other?" "Of course, we met in Jinghai." Zhu Moyu stood up. The trembling chest made Chu Ji feel a little dizzy. Qin Wanshu looked at Zhu Moyu's unbelievable figure, his eyes full of jealousy. His own figure was not bad either, but it was still far behind Zhu Moyu's. "I don't know what her body proportions are, but any man would probably not be able to bear it. Sister Mo Yue, I want Dr. Qin to live here as well. It would be even better since you two know each other," Chu Ji said. "Okay, no problem for me." Zhu Moyu looked at Qin Wanshu with evil eyes. Qin Wanshu subconsciously covered her chest. "Sister Mo Yue, please be careful." Zhu Moyu's eyes were filled with excitement. "I can't pay attention at all." "Aj, you must live here too." Qin Wanshu looked at Chu Ji. Chuj looked at Qin Wanshu in confusion. "Are you calling me?" Chu Ji frowned, then he felt a headache and a slightly painful look appeared on his face. My body squatted down involuntarily. Just then he felt his head being wrapped by something soft. Relax, you are yourself, don't think too much." Zhu Moyu held Chu Ji's head and spoke softly. Chu Ji quickly calmed down. He broke away from Zhu Moyu's arms, but he did not feel awkward. It seemed natural, which he probably did not even realize. Qin Wanshu, who was standing next to him, wanted to step forward to treat Chu Ji, but after seeing this scene, she stopped moving and just looked at Zhu Moyu with suspicion. She didn't look at Chu Ji, but only at Zhu Moyu. "Sister Mo Yue, you hugged a man and didn't react." Zhu Moyu blushed and said, "He is an exception." Qin Wanshu was stunned. Zhu Moyu was allergic to men. Just like her sister, her body would become allergic when she came into contact with men. That's why there are rumors that the one from the Zhu family doesn't like men, but likes women. But Zhu Moyu was hugging Chu Ji and didn't react at all. She was so natural that it was strange. Zhu Moyu was also looking at Chu Ji at this time. Why was she so nice to Chu Ji? Because she accidentally discovered that when she came into contact with Chu Ji, she had no allergic feeling as never before. On the contrary, she had a feeling of fascination. That's why Chu Ji is the only tutor in the Zhu family, and he's a man. What are you talking about? What exception? Chu Ji asked with some confusion. The two women stopped talking at this time. Yuan, you haven't answered me yet. Do you want to live here? There are many rooms here. There are several rooms on the upper and lower floors. Chu Ji thought about it, and looking at Qin Wanshu's pitiful appearance, he finally nodded. But I can't promise that I will come back on time every day. The two women looked at each other, with smiles of success in their eyes. Seeing that there was still time,